After the young wealthy princess fainted, she discovered that she could hear everyone's inner thoughts. She looked at her white moonlight, who was trembling from crying, but her ears caught his actual complaints. Pretending to cry is seriously so exhausting. Why hasn't Lin Wanwan come to comfort me yet? If it were in the past and I looked like this, he would have been heartbroken and worried sick long ago. During these 5 years that I left the country, has he really shifted his affection to Mu Chen? I must make him divorce Mu Chen as soon as possible. The son-in-law of the Lin family can only be me. I want to be the most powerful person in this city. Lin Wanwan's pupils contracted, unable to believe these were Zhou Zimo's inner thoughts. In the 10 plus years they had known each other, he had always acted indifferent to fame and wealth, never expecting that his inner heart was actually filled with calculations. She felt that telepathy was simply too absurd, and it must be a hallucination caused by her head injury. But right after, another voice rang out. Even if Wanwan and Mu Chen got their marriage certificate, the one in her heart is still me. My hard work all these years hasn't gone to waste. I absolutely mustn't lose my footing right now. As long as I've returned, no matter what demands I make, Wanwan will be completely obedient to me. Wealth status as well as identity. Everything she owns will be mine. Lin Wanwan tightly closed both of her eyes. Zhou Zimo's greedy inner thoughts entered her ears with crystal clarity, making it impossible for her to keep lying to herself. The blood in her entire body felt as if it had turned ice cold. The person she had loved deeply for years was actually scheming against her like this. Lin Wanwan angrily snapped her eyes open, staring at Zhou Zimo with an ice-cold gaze. Zhou Zimo was startled back by this unfamiliar gaze, and a trace of panic faintly arose deep in his heart. He grabbed her arm and asked softly, "Wanwan, what's wrong with you?" Lin Wanwan completely ignored him. The uneasiness in Zhou Zimo's heart grew stronger and stronger, just as he was preparing to press further. The doctor timely spoke up from the side, reminding them that the patient needed to keep quiet now, and that the family members should pay more attention. The moment the doctor's words fell, Wen Qiuzhen yanked Zhou Zimo's hand away and threw it aside with a face full of disgust. Suppressing his displeasure, Zhou Zimo spoke gently, "Auntie Wen, I want to stay here and take care of Wanwan." At this time, I walked forward with a calm expression, looking at him and asking back coldly, "In what capacity are you staying behind to accompany her? I am Lin Wanwan's legitimate husband, so taking care of my wife is my duty. What kind of outsider are you supposed to be?" Although I had already decided to divorce her and wanted to completely stay away from all this, right and wrong, before formally going through the procedures to leave, I must vent the resentment from my past life. Zhou Zimo bit his lip aggrievedly, turning his head to look at Lin Wanwan pitifully. In my established impression, as long as Zhou Zimo put on this victim look, Lin Wanwan would never let the person bullying him off easily. But this time Lin Wanwan remained expressionless, not even giving him an extra glance. Zhou Zimo nervously clutched the corner of his clothes, tears welling up in his eyes. "Wanwan." Lin Wanwan finally spoke her first words since waking up. "I need quiet rest. All of you get out." She completely ignored Zhou Zimo's show of weakness and even gave an eviction order without any mercy. Zhou Zimo's face turned pale instantly, unable to figure out why Lin Wanwan had become so cold. Before boarding the plane, he could clearly hear her anticipation, but now was obviously not the time to get to the bottom of it. Zhou Zimo wiped his tears and squeezed out a bitter smile, his eyes carrying a hint of sorrow. "Then take a good rest first to recover. I'll come back to visit you tomorrow." But in his heart, he was calculating viciously. It must be during the time I was abroad that scheming Mu Chen took the opportunity to climb up. I already guessed that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. Pestering Wanwan like a tag-along all day is truly disgusting to the extreme. Wanwan's husband can only be me. Only by successfully marrying into the Lin family can I completely wash away my ordinary background. Lin Wanwan really couldn't listen to these schemes any longer. Clenching her teeth to suppress her anger, she roared in a low voice, "All of you get out!" Zhou Zimo sniffled aggrievedly and could only quietly get up and leave the ward, his back looking exceptionally lonely and desolate. Wen Xiuzhen tucked the blanket in for Lin Wanwan, saying softly, "Wanwan, rest peacefully on the hospital bed. Your dad and I will be guarding right outside the door. Call us anytime if anything happens." Lin Wanwan nodded wearily and closed her eyes. I couldn't wait to grab the chance to slip away, but right at the moment I prepared to turn around, Lin Wanwan on the hospital bed suddenly snapped her eyes open. "You stay behind." I lowered my gaze, revealing a mocking smile, stepping forward and walking slowly toward the hospital bed. In an instant, only Lin Wanwan and I were left in the room. Without those noisy, calculating inner thoughts in her ears, Lin Wanwan's tense nerves finally relaxed. But this relaxation didn't matter. A piercing pain washed over her entire body. I looked at her with a flat expression and asked, "Does your body feel painful?" Lin Wanwan bit her lip and didn't make a sound. I raised my eyebrows, sitting down on the chair beside the bed. "If there's anything wrong with your body, it's better not to hide it from the doctor." Lin Wanwan's gaze was sharp, as if she were examining me. With a faint smile on the corner of my mouth, I didn't react, but I secretly sighed in my heart. We were a married couple for 3 years after all, so how could I not see through this little mind of yours? Lin Wanwan frowned slightly, her mind filled with confusion. A married couple for 3 years. Could it be talking about me and him? But we clearly just had our wedding yesterday. Do you want to drink some water? Lin Wanwan nodded with a very slight movement. I stood up and walked over to the water dispenser, listening to the trickling stream and gradually sinking into deep thought. I finally did it, being able to face Lin Wanwan as calm as still water. Does this mean I can completely let her go? Can I throw away the shackles of the past and try to embrace a brand new life? Actually, now that I calm down and think about it carefully, who in this world can't live without someone else? There is no love that will never fade away. It's time for me to look forward to, and I must never carry this obsession for Lin Wanwan anymore, to open up my hard-won new life. I reached out to turn off the water dispenser switch, returning to the bedside with the water cup and a cotton swab. Your situation is special right now, so you can't drink too much water. Let me dip a cotton swab in water to help moisten your lips. She gazed at me with a calm look. Although she felt my inner thoughts were full of bizarreness, she could genuinely feel that I had once loved her deeply. This completely subverted her previous understanding. She had always firmly believed that I married her because the Mu family's fortune had now declined, and I wanted to use the Lin family's power to climb up. How could there be even half a bit of true affection or love? Thinking of my parents who clung to the rich and powerful, a trace of resistance unconsciously flashed in her eyes, believing that such a family couldn't raise any good person. But the current reality slapped her hard in the face. The man she had always believed loved her without a doubt was actually full of schemes and calculations behind her back, while the person she guarded against and thought was deeply scheming had actually loved her with his whole heart and soul back then. It's truly too ironic. I placed the water cup on the bedside table and sat down. After a while, really not wanting to face her anymore, I said, "Let me find a caregiver to take care of you." Lin Wanwan's face instantly darkened. No, I'm not used to having strangers wait on me. I widened my eyes slightly in surprise, deeply suspecting whether something was wrong with her brain from the crash. After a moment of silence, I still sat back down. "I have already discussed it with Auntie Wen. I will remain responsible for taking care of you until you are discharged. Once you leave the hospital, we will go handle the divorce procedures." After calmly speaking the word divorce, my tense shoulders relaxed in an instant, and my heart felt an unprecedented wave of relief, as if all the haze of my past life had completely vanished into thin air. Lin Wanwan still had that expressionless look. The word divorce failed to stir even a single ripple of emotion in her. I lowered my head quietly, staring at the hospital floor, a mocking smile quickly flashing across my eyes. I really was pitifully foolish back then. In my past life, I actually naively thought that using sincerity and unreserved companionship could move her. She is clearly a cold and heartless person down to her bones. The love she can dole out was already scarce to begin with, and she had long given it all to Joe Zemo in one go. How could there be any leftover affection to share with anyone else? Past lives and former matters. Lin Wanwan gradually realized something bizarre. I seemed to have experienced a future that others had never lived through. This completely exceeded her original scope of understanding. If it were in the past, she would have absolutely scoffed at it. But now, after personally experiencing it, she felt it wasn't impossible. She stared at me intently without blinking. "We just held our wedding yesterday, yet now you are so impatient to get a divorce. What will the outside world say about this? Have you ever thought about the consequences?" I kept my head down, not returning her gaze, missing the complex emotion that flashed across her face. We can choose to keep it a secret first and not announce it. There is no wall in this world that doesn't leak wind. What on earth does she mean by these words? I took the initiative to propose a divorce to end our relationship, so shouldn't she be overjoyed and agree immediately? After all, she hates it most when others force her to do things. Being forced to marry me made her extremely disgusted, which consequently made her reject me as a person even more. I closed my eyes and took a deep, big breath, trying hard to dispel those terrible memories from my mind, then lifted my head and asked her back filled with confusion, "Don't you want to divorce me right away?" Lin Wanwan avoided my gaze somewhat unnaturally. "It's not that I don't want a divorce. It's just that at this critical juncture, divorcing is inappropriate. It will cause trouble for my work and life." I nodded understandingly. "All right, I understand your concerns." Lin Wanwan furrowed her brows in bewilderment. What exactly did he understand? She was extremely eager to find out my thoughts, but my heart was completely peaceful at this moment, without a single ripple. Naturally, she had no way of knowing the answer she wanted. "Take advantage of the time to sleep a bit more. When you wake up, I'll go prepare some food for you." I stood up. Lin Wanwan hurriedly spoke up to ask, "Where are you going? Will my staying here disturb your rest?" I looked at her with a face full of surprise. Lin Wanwan coughed lightly and turned her head away. "It won't disturb me." If I didn't see it wrong, she actually seemed to feel embarrassed. It really makes one feel a bit strange. Lin Wanwan changed her expression and looked toward me, suddenly giving me a big fright. I tilted my head, feeling extremely confused. "What's going on?" She tightly pursed her lips and kept silent. I sat down calmly and started looking at my phone. Lin Wanwan's vitality was greatly depleted from her injury, so she fell asleep not long after. Seeing that she carried a faint, lingering hostility, it really made one feel very annoyed and disturbed inside. I got up, left, and went to the restroom. After coming out of the restroom, I saw Joe Zemo standing by the wall. I didn't feel surprised at all in my heart. Joe Zemo took the initiative to speak first. Did you badmouth me and complain in front of Wanwan? Whenever Joe Zemo faced me, he never wanted to look me straight in the eye, as if he were always a cut above others. There was always a kind of contempt in his eyes. This was the confidence that Lin Wanwan gave him. I tossed my hair, smiling as I said, "Why don't you guess for yourself?" Joe Zemo lost control of his emotions a bit. "Mu Chen, you need to get a clear grip on the situation. I don't want to make my words sound too ugly. Wanwan and I are childhood sweethearts. If Grandpa Lin hadn't gotten in the way back then and refused to cancel this marriage arrangement, we would probably have been married long ago." I looked directly into his angry eyes, smilingly saying to him, "So what about it? What's the big deal about being childhood sweethearts? The one who married her is ultimately me. No matter how jealous you are, it's useless. You can only watch us be deeply in love." To a certain extent, aside from Joe Zemo himself, I am the person who knows him best. I know exactly how to pierce right through his heart. As expected, his breathing instantly grew heavy and rapid. "Mu Chen, how dare you say such things? Do you think Wanwan will stay with you? You really have no self-awareness at all. Wanwan actually hates you deep down in her heart. Are you truly stupid or are you just playing dumb?" Of course I know this clearly in my heart, and I have long recognized all of this. When Lin Wanwan and I first met, everyone was still in their childhood back then. I thought she looked incredibly beautiful and wanted to step forward to get closer to her. But her aura was cold and distant, radiating a vibe that warned strangers to stay away. I never dared to approach her. We never met again after that, until the year the high school entrance exam ended. Grandpa Lin invited me to the Lin family home. I knew she was my fiancée, and having just awakened to love, I fell for her right then and there. I also understood that she didn't like me, and was even extremely repulsed by me. Seeing that I didn't say anything, Joe Zemo felt a lot more comfortable in his heart and revealed a victorious smile. Wanwan is very ruthless to the people she dislikes. I'm also doing this for your own good. I advise you to get a divorce quickly. Otherwise, you'll have a lot of suffering to endure later. Although he just wants the two of us to divorce, there is actually nothing wrong with what he said. I held back from nodding, saying disdainfully, "Don't think too highly of yourself. During the 5 years you were abroad, people change. Just now in the ward, you should have felt her coldness. You've already started panicking in your heart, haven't you?" Just as I finished saying these words, Joe Zemo's face turned pale for a moment. How could he not be panicking in his heart? Lin Wanwan had never treated him so coldly before. Taking it all in, I mocked, "There's no relationship that can't be pried apart." I've put a lot of thought into this over the past 5 years. Where on earth do you get your confidence? To think that she must have only you and will always loathe me. Joe Zemo opened, his mouth wanting to counter, but couldn't say a single word for the longest time. Seeing him feel so miserable inside, my goal was pretty much accomplished. I lifted my feet preparing to leave. Wanwan has loved me for many years. She will definitely love me for a lifetime. I stopped in my tracks, turning my head to say, "Then I'll certainly watch closely, to see just how long this confidence of yours can last. I will definitely make Wanwan leave you." Joe Zemo clenched his fist tightly, his face looking quite unsightly. I let out a cold laugh and strode away without looking back. Walking to the door of Lin Wanwan's ward, I wasn't in a hurry to step inside, thinking back to how Joe Zemo used to target me and how he teamed up with Lin Wanwan to oppress me. It threw me into a deep despair, made me endure immense pain, and caused me to suffer through so much bitterness. Now that I've started over again, of course I can't just let it go easily. But how exactly should I strike back? Clashing with them directly is really not a wise choice. I don't want to let these two people ruin my entire life all over again. Heaven gave me a second chance, not to make me repeat the same mistakes, making them lose everything they currently have, giving them a taste of their own medicine, and sending him crashing to rock bottom. Putting aside whether I have that kind of ability, even if I did, I'm afraid that in this lifetime, I would only be living for revenge. Aside from this method of striking back, there is actually another choice. That is to destroy the relationship between them. But just thinking about this process makes me feel like it's absolutely suffocating. Putting on an act every single day in front of people I despise is simply a terrifying torment, pondering over it back and forth in my mind. It's better to bury the resentment deep inside, cherish this second chance properly, start a brand new life for myself, and live comfortably for the rest of my days instead. I persuaded myself once again in my heart and pushed the door open to enter the ward with an expressionless face. Lin Wanwan was currently sleeping. I went to the restroom to freshen up briefly, then came out and lay down on the family member's rest bed, preparing to get a good night's sleep. I had been busy all day and hadn't rested well. This sleep turned out to be extraordinarily deep. By the time I woke up again, the sky outside had already turned completely dark. I picked up my phone and took a look. My mouth widened in surprise. It was already 5 a.m. "Have you rested well?" The woman's gentle voice rang out in my ears. I lifted my head to look at her. "I feel all right." Lin Wanwan didn't say anything more. The ward returned to silence once again. "Do you feel hungry?" "My stomach is a bit hungry." The two of us spoke almost at the same time. After speaking, we fell into silence again. A trace of annoyance flashed across my face. I tossed back the blanket and stepped out of bed. I'll go get you something to eat. You can only have some porridge right now, so you are not allowed to be picky when I bring it back. I must clarify this beforehand. Otherwise, when I bring the porridge back later, Lin Wanwan will give me an attitude again, which is really completely unnecessary. Lin Wanwan nodded faintly. I know. I put on my shoes and walked toward the ward door, opening the door and stepping outside. Seeing Shu Jiaqi standing close to the window, a smile unconsciously appeared on my face. Assistant Shu, you are here. Shu Jiaqi was obviously stunned for a moment, and then she lowered her head slightly awkwardly. Hello, sir. I suddenly remembered that Shu Jiaqi didn't know me yet at this time. The smile on my face gradually faded, and I felt a tinge of regret in my heart. Shu Jiaqi is Lin Wanwan's assistant. In the past, after I married Lin Wanwan, I gradually became familiar with her. Shu Jiaqi is a very good person. She sympathized with me a lot and took great care of me in daily life. I was extremely grateful to her in my heart and always wanted to find an opportunity to thank her. But now that I've started over, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to be friends with her anymore. I can only bury this gratitude deep inside. I bent my arm and pointed toward the ward. Wanwan is hungry. Shu Jiaqi nodded gently. I'll go get the porridge right away. After Shu Jiaqi turned around and left, I casually opened my phone and saw messages sent by Lu Shubai one after another. How is Wanwan's situation right now? Brother Chen, are you doing alright currently? Lu Shubai has been my good friend for many years. Now that I have been given a second chance, I've been holding back and haven't contacted him. Precisely because I'm afraid that once I do, my emotions will completely spiral out of control. A person on the brink of a breakdown, once facing a trusted friend, will let down all of their guards and instantly become incredibly fragile. Just like at this very moment, my nose can't help but feel a stinging sensation. Taking a deep breath, my fingers rapidly tapped on the keyboard. Lin Wanwan is fine now. I'm also doing very well right now. You don't need to worry about me. Let's talk more tomorrow when I go to school. You are actually going to school. You finally thought it through? Even through the screen, I could see his excitement. I smiled faintly and didn't continue to reply to him. I'm a medical student at a university. If I hadn't dropped out of school to marry Wanwan at Wen Xiuzhen's demand, I would eventually have become a doctor, living a life that might not be spectacular, but would absolutely be meaningful and fulfilling. I stuffed the phone back into my pocket, leaning against the cold wall and spacing out. When Shu Jiaqi came back and saw me daydreaming, she really didn't want to speak up and disturb me. But fearing that Lin Wanwan's stomach was hungry and she would get impatient from waiting, she still walked over. Mr. Mu, I have already fetched the porridge. I instantly snapped out of it, taking the insulated lunchbox from her hand and asking with a faint smile, was this sent over from home? Yes, Madam brewed this porridge herself. She left instructions to keep it at the nurse's station and bring it over once the young lady woke up. Shu Jiaqi spoke with a hint of restraint. She truly regards me as Wanwan's husband. Thinking back to when I was at the Lin family home in the past, the people who could genuinely respect me and treat me like a normal human being was only Shu Jiaqi. Holding the insulated lunchbox in my hand, I wasn't in a hurry to enter the ward, but stared at Shu Jiaqi and asked caringly, what time did you come over? Yesterday evening around 7 p.m. I came over right after finishing up my tasks. Then it's enough to have me taking care of things here. Go quickly and get a good night's sleep. Facing my sudden concern, Shu Jiaqi furrowed her brow slightly, obviously feeling a bit uncomfortable. But she still spoke very respectfully. Thank you for your kind intentions, sir. The old madam asked me to guard here, so I cannot go to rest just yet. I noticed the expression on her face, realizing that this would only pressure her. I could only nod helplessly. All right then, I'll head inside first. After speaking, I turned around and walked into the ward. The ward door didn't have good soundproofing, so Lin Wanwan, being inside the room, could hear the conversation at the door just now. I pushed the door open and walked in. Lin Wanwan looked at me, her expression changing slightly. I didn't notice it at the time. Walking over to place the lunchbox on the bedside table, I opened the lid and poured the porridge into a bowl, then sat down steadily on the chair, preparing to feed the porridge to Lin Wanwan. The spoon was brought to Lin Wanwan's lips, but she kept her mouth tightly shut, refusing to open it. My eyes were filled with confusion. You don't want to eat. Did you know Shu Jiaqi from before? Lin Wanwan's gaze flickered slightly. I gently pursed my lips, then answered with a natural expression, we don't know each other. Then Wanwan narrowed her sharp eyes, putting on a posture like a storm was brewing. When she shows this kind of expression, my heart is simply all too familiar with it. I put the spoon back into the bowl, asking with a flat tone, where did she displease you? I am truly too lazy to cater to this anymore. Lin Wanwan opened her mouth slightly, but then shut it tightly again. She knew that if she spoke her mind out loud, I will absolutely put down the bowl and leave, and it would be the kind of leaving without looking back. Before finding out what on earth is going on, she doesn't want me to escape from her control. Are you going to eat or not? Seeing Lin Wanwan remain silent all this time, I gradually grew a bit impatient. When had Lin Wanwan ever heard someone speak to her like this? Her face instantly became extremely ugly. But she took a deep breath and continued to eat. She was indeed starving. One bowl down only served to line her stomach. Seeing that she seemed to want to keep eating, I directly put down the bowl in my hand, saying to her with a flat tone, "You still can't eat too much right now. Lin Wanwan is not a child after all. Since I have already made it clear, even if she isn't full yet, she can only leave it at that for now." I packed up the insulated lunchbox properly, walked out of the ward with the things, and casually handed them to Shu Jiaqi. When I got back, I checked the watch and it was almost 6 a.m. I walked slowly back to the side of the hospital bed, tucking the corner of the blanket in for Lin Wanwan. Then with a serious expression, I said to her, "I'm going to school now." Lin Wanwan raised her eyebrows slightly. "So, just let the caregiver take care of you during the day. Will you come over after school?" I nodded gently. Since I promised Wen Shuzhen to take care of her until she's discharged, I will absolutely be as good as my word, and will never wash my hands of it halfway through. "Go ahead." Lin Wanwan immediately closed her eyes. "I need to change my clothes before going to school, before getting married." I joyfully moved all my things into the new house. So even if I am extremely reluctant right now, and don't want to return to that heartbreaking place, I can only bite the bullet and go back there. Taking a taxi all the way to the front door of the house, I walked in and saw Chu Huilan inside. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. "Mom, you've been here all this time and didn't go back. I knew you would come here after leaving the hospital. I want to have a good talk with you." Seeing that there is still plenty of time, I'm not in a hurry to rush over to school either. So I walked over and sat down without any hesitation. Chu Huilan asked with a displeased look on her face, "Are you serious about divorcing Wanwan? You must be absolutely out of your mind." Chu Huilan slammed her teacup down heavily, her face instantly masked in a layer of fury. "Do you even have any idea how much of a blessing it is to be able to marry her?" I let out a bitter smile, answering if I hadn't fallen in love with Lin Wanwan, perhaps that would have been the true blessing. Chu Huilan was instantly stunned upon hearing this. "I finally understand your words now. You always advised me not to fall in love with Lin Wanwan. From your perspective, as long as I didn't give her my true heart and just married her into the family like this, I would be able to live a happy and stable life for the rest of my days." I reached out to grasp Chu Huilan's hand. "Your ultimate goal is just for my own good, wanting me to have no worries about food and clothing for my entire life." "Mom, I should be right about this, aren't I?" Chu Huilan's expression stiffened slightly. "You think too much, child." The moment the words left her mouth, she looked extremely uncomfortable and forcefully pulled her hand out of mine. I didn't feel any displeasure in my heart. Instead, a trace of a smile flashed across my eyes, and pretending to look exceptionally serious, I said, "Even if she doesn't give me any money to spend in the future, gongs up with Josimo to humiliate me, and even tries every possible means to ruin my reputation just to force us to divorce, I should just endure all of it, right? How dare they do such a thing?" Chu Huilan widened her eyes in sheer shock, and the whole person instantly flared up in a raging temper. "Although our Mu family isn't as wealthy as before, we still have our heritage after all. Not to mention the two families still share social relations. On what grounds does she dare treat you like that?" I let out a cold mocking sneer. "But she only loves Joe Zemo in her heart. Once a woman is doing things for the man she loves, sometimes she will act completely regardless of the consequences. What love or no love, it's all just an illusion. A woman's love is the most useless thing in the world." Chu Huilan let out an extremely faint sigh. She had completely taken the bait of my words. A trace of hesitation showed in her eyes. As she asked, "Will what you said really happen?" I nodded with absolute certainty. "Lin Wanwan has always been highly repulsed by me. Now that she's forced to marry me in accordance with the last wishes, she has probably already discussed it with me to the extreme." "Well, if that's the case..." Chu Huilan lowered her head and pondered for a brief moment, then continued to speak further. "If you are dead set on divorcing her, as your mom, I naturally won't stop you either. But you have to think it through in your heart. Trying to marry a woman with such excellent conditions again is probably going to be completely impossible. Marrying someone with good conditions doesn't guarantee happiness. Besides, even if I remain single for the rest of my life, I can still make myself live happily." I said to her with a face full of smiles, "You're just talking nonsense here. If you don't marry a wife, your dad and I, forget it. Let's not mention these things anymore." Chu Huilan is an extremely competitive and strong-willed person. This was something I only understood after my rebirth. The bitter hardships she endured when she was young made her whole body full of thorns, refusing to soften her temperament no matter what. She was just terrified that if she yielded even slightly, hardships would come knocking on her door once again and deal her another fierce, heavy blow, making her suffer so much pain that she'd wish she were dead. When Mu Heng married her into the family back then, I was only 1 year old. Even if the family hired more nannies, they could never replace the role of a mother. A child relying on their mother is driven by natural instinct. If they can't find her, they won't stop crying. But I heard from an old auntie at home that I barely cried or made a fuss when I was little. At that time, I keenly realized something. And after pressing further all the way, I finally learned that before I could even retain memories, Chu Huilan stayed at home to accompany me almost every single day. Most of the time, she was the one taking care of me. Anyone could see her deep love and affection for me. But later on, for some unknown reason, starting from a certain day, she deliberately distanced herself from me. What kind of turn of events exactly happened in between that made her ruthlessly make such a decision? To this day, nobody can explain it clearly. So it turned out that later, when I grew to be 4 years old, she gave birth to a girl from Mu Liheng, who is also my younger sister Mu Xiaobei. She wasn't close to this flesh and blood of hers either. At first, I thought she was naturally cold and detached, and later I felt she only cared about fame and wealth. But now thinking it over carefully once again, if she really only cared about fame and wealth, back when the Mu family's investments completely failed and nearly went bankrupt, she stayed through it all and didn't even utter a single complaint. Although I don't understand why she is like this, I know clearly in my heart that she cares about this family, cares about me, and cares about Xiaobei. That is more than enough. Xiaobei sees things even more clearly than you do. I couldn't help but laugh softly, the sound of my laughter being clear and bright. She said that marrying Lin Wanwan wouldn't bring me happiness. Chu Huilan showed a look of surprise on her face. When did she ever say those words to you? Just 2 days before my wedding. What does a little brat know about anything? Chu Huilan scoffed disdainfully, dismissively, chiding, always loving to worry about adults' business at such a young age. She really lacks proper family discipline. I just stood to the side with a faint smile. Seeing that it was indeed getting late, I got straight up from the sofa, reaching out to squeeze her stiff shoulders. I'll take you to a good hospital another day to check out your frozen shoulder properly. I'll head upstairs to take a shower first, and I'll have to go to school in a bit. Are you going to school for classes? Chu Huilan's expression shifted slightly. Are you telling me you don't plan to drop out anymore? I smiled and shook my head at her. If I hadn't planned on divorcing her, I wouldn't even think about dropping out of school. Chu Huilan's face changed instantly, vaguely guessing the reason behind it. What on earth do you mean by that? Dropping out of school was Wen Shuzhen forcing me to do so. Thinking back to the pressure Wen Shuzhen applied at that time, my face turned ugly along with it. Upon hearing this, Chu Huilan instantly flew into a rage, her cheeks turning completely flushed with anger. Lifting her finger and pointing at my nose, she scolded, "You worthless, muddle-headed fool. Why didn't you tell me about such a huge matter? I actually thought it was you yourself who didn't want to study anymore. If you had told me about this earlier, I would have definitely gone to the Lin family to demand an explanation. On what grounds does she Wen Shuzhen act so tyrannically?" The moment she finished speaking, her lingering anger remained unappeased. She picked up the coffee cup and smashed it toward the television. The LCD screen couldn't withstand the impact at all, instantly shattering into a spiderweb pattern, while the coffee cup also smashed into pieces. An Chen just happened to come out of the kitchen, frozen in place with fear by this scene. Chu Huilan swept a glance at her with her peripheral vision, letting out several cold sneers in succession. None of them in the Lin family are any good. It's just as well that you divorce her early. If you kept living with that weak and easily bullied temperament of yours, you would suffer a massive loss sooner or later. An Chen has been a nanny for the Lin family for many years. Wen Shuzhen deliberately dispatched her over here, putting it very beautifully on the surface, saying that she works meticulously, knows how to care for people, and can manage our daily lives well. But in reality, she was sent over to spy on us. Regarding these angry words spoken by Chu Huilan right now, Aunt Chen would definitely not miss a single word and report them all back to that Wen Shuzhen. Chu Huilan knew it as clear as a mirror in her heart. She was clearly saying these things on purpose just now. This is all my fault. I clasped my hands tightly in front of my body, lowering my head and putting on an admitting fault posture, just like when I made mistakes in my childhood. Back then, I didn't dare to tell her about this matter, precisely because I was afraid she would run over to make a scene with the Lin family, which would only make the Lin family more displeased in the end. In my past life, I could never figure it out, whether one has maternal family members backing them up or not. The days spent in the in-laws' house are entirely different. Chu Huilan has a fierce and unprovocable personality. Having lived in a complex, remote area since childhood, dealing with a pampered, well-behaved young mistress who grew up following rules like Wen Shuzhen is simply an easy piece of cake. If I had her backing me up in my past life, my days in the Lin family would never have been that difficult. I remember you used to have quite a temper before, and you were never someone to be trifled with. How did you become so cowardly and useless now? Seeing this aggrieved look of mine, Chu Huilan's tone gradually softened. I told you a long time ago not to give her your heart, which would have guaranteed you a comfortable life. But you even got anxious with me back then because of this, as if I were deliberately trying to harm you. You feel that love is completely useless. But do you not love my dad? I lifted my eyes and quietly looked at her. Brother Chen, you are still too young. Chu Huilan let out a gentle sigh. When two people gather to live their lives together, whether they can walk together for a long, long time, can never rely on love alone to sustain them. You could even say it doesn't rely on love to sustain it. Once you truly marry someone and live for a while, you will naturally understand. Although I went through many tribulations before my rebirth and suffered all kinds of bitterness in romance because I hadn't lived a proper life with her, I was still quite ignorant about the true meaning of marriage. I finally understand your painstaking care now. My pair of eyes blinked a few times, looking quite playful. From now on, I will definitely listen to your words more. Facing my sudden closeness, Chu Huilan appeared extremely unaccustomed. She curled her lips slightly uncomfortably, answering with a cold voice while saying the opposite of her heart. Don't you ever say that. I'm not your biological mother anyway. So whether you want to listen to my words or not is up to you. The smile in my eyes gradually deepened. Even though you are not my biological mom, you still care so much about my business. Who has the spare time to care about you? Chu Huilan waved her hand with a face full of impatience. Hurry up and go do whatever you need to do. I couldn't help but laugh happily, shimmering light dancing in my eyes. Alright, then I'll head upstairs first. Seeing that it was indeed getting late, I went upstairs to take a quick hot shower, changed my clothes, grabbed the application form, and headed out. Originally, the family only had one driver following us, but in that car accident, he also unfortunately suffered some minor injuries and was resting. I had no choice but to walk out of the villa area and go to the main road to hail a taxi. It was truly not very easy to hail a cab around here. After waiting for a long time, I finally managed to stop one. After getting into the car, I directly stated my destination, taking out my phone to send a message to Lu Shubai, making an appointment to meet at the university entrance. Without saying more than a couple of words, that gentleman went back. Upon hearing this, I immediately had a guess in my heart, so I quickly pressed the driver for details. What did that man roughly look like? What color clothes was he wearing at the time? The driver gave a brief description based on his memory. I am certain that this person is Joe Zemo. What on earth was he doing running over here in the middle of the night? I really can't quite figure it out, but I can be sure that he definitely harbors malicious intent. This fellow is entirely full of bad water. I had a deep first-hand experience of this in my past life. I turned my head to look at the scenery outside the car window, a trace of mocking coldness flashing through my eyes. Although I can't touch Lin Wanwan right now, making Joe Zemo suffer a bit of bitterness is still doable. The taxi stopped steadily at the entrance of H University. After paying the fare, I got straight out of the car. With one glance, I saw the person squatting by the roadside. It was my good friend of many years, Lu Shubai. He was wearing a set of casual sportswear, his hair blown slightly messy by the wind, looking as if he had just finished working out. The moment he lifted his head and saw me, he immediately stood up from the ground in excitement and lunged toward me like crazy. Brother Chen, you finally come. I instantly froze on the spot and didn't dare to move, crossing my arms over my chest to guard myself. But I still failed to avoid his flying lunge, getting firmly caught in his full embrace. Brother Chen, we haven't seen each other for half a month. Do you have any idea how much I missed you? I actually thought that after you got married, you completely planned on throwing away your brother. My face was completely smothered by his messy hair. He showed an aggrieved look on his face. This is the punishment for you avoiding me and hiding away, not even letting me attend your wedding. My hands, which were prepared to push him away, froze in midair. Back then, in order to marry Lin Wanwan smoothly, when Xiu Zhen raised a whole bunch of demands to me, making me drop out of school was merely one of them. She also required me to cut off all social interactions. In the eyes of that snobbish Wen Xiuzhen, my friends were all unpresentable and completely unworthy of the status of being Lin Wanwan's husband. I was completely blinded by the so-called love at that time, and unexpectedly agreed to everything in a muddle-headed manner, even ruthlessly abandoning my friends from the past, which included my brother Lu Shubai. To this day, I still remember when I saw him again in my past life, the deep disappointment reflecting in his eyes. Later, I fell into a helpless and isolated, desperate situation, suffering through all kinds of bitterness, which was purely reaping what I sowed. That wedding wasn't anything worth going to anyway. Endless guilt instantly welled up in my heart. Even though I was almost suffocating from his tight embrace, I didn't reach out to push him away again. Anyway, I will be divorcing her very soon. Ha, what did you say? Lu Chubai suddenly released his arms, his face completely covered in an expression of utter shock. I playfully winked my left eye at him. There's nothing wrong with your ears. Once her injuries recover and she's smoothly discharged from the hospital, I will immediately go with her to get a divorce. Didn't you dream of marrying her? Lu Chubai wrinkled his face in distress, forcefully scratching his messy hair. Wasn't marrying her your lifelong dream? I shrugged my shoulders noncommittally. That was back when I was naive and ignorant. However, ever since I got married to her, I realized she is actually nothing special. Could it be that she has some hidden physical issue? A trace of mischief instantly cropped up in my heart, and I deliberately pursed my dry lips slightly, pretending to look troubled and reluctant to speak. Then you definitely must get a divorce. Lu Chubai shook his head with a face full of pity. I really couldn't have imagined it in my wildest dreams, that Lin Wanwan actually has this kind of secret affliction. As expected, the heavens are exceptionally fair. I nodded my head in deep agreement. Exactly, that's exactly how it goes. Just based on Lu Shubai's big mouth trait, the gossip about Lin Wanwan potentially having physical issues will absolutely spread across the entire city in less than a day. This can be considered a tiny bit of revenge against her. In an extremely pleasant mood, I draped my arm over his shoulder. Let's go, accompany me to the counselor's office. I need to get my dropout application form back quickly. My primary task for the immediate future is to finish the remaining 3 years of university in a grounded manner and live a normal, quiet, and ordinary life. Brother Chen, why exactly did you want to drop out of school in the first place? It was all forced by that woman Wen Shujin. Otherwise, she would never agree to our marriage. My tone was filled with a deep sense of mockery. He lifted his head and glanced at my cold side profile, and with a keen sense of observation, he broke out into curses. I knew it was that woman pulling the strings. Otherwise, why would you drop out of school for no good reason? For a good man with such excellent conditions like you, what on earth is she still dissatisfied with? Are my conditions excellent? I pointed to a guy drawing a poster board not far away. That's the eldest young master of the Ye family, Ye Hui. That's what's called having good conditions in Wen Shujin's eyes. To put it bluntly, it's just about having a good family background, right? It's simply superficial to the absolute extreme. I just let out a gentle, faint laugh and didn't follow up on his complaint. Isn't the real society just this cruel? No matter how outstanding your personal conditions are, as long as the family background behind you isn't good enough, you will still be looked down upon in front of the Lin family. If I calculate it carefully like this, even if Zhou Zimo successfully married into the family in my past life, and even if he had all kinds of affection from Lin Wanwan, just based on his meager identity and background, his days would definitely not be any better. Enduring others' rolling eyes and contempt every day, that kind of feeling is also quite hard to bear. After thinking about it this way, my heart instantly felt much more comfortable. Walking quickly all the way to the front of the counselor's office, just as I was about to raise my hand to knock on the door, the office door was pulled open from the inside by someone. The man inside suddenly saw me face to face, and his originally calm expression abruptly changed. Why would you suddenly appear here? Haven't you already dropped out of school? I couldn't hold it back and burst into laughter on the spot. The man standing in front of me was none other than Zhou Zimo's own younger brother, Zhou Qiang. Speaking of this guy named Zhou Qiang, he is truly Zhou Zimo's peerless good brother. He constantly lusts after his own older brother's woman and secretly trips up his own brother like crazy. That behavior can simply be called moving heaven and earth. Just because he dropped out doesn't mean he can't re-enroll. Lu Chubai grinned directly at Zhou Qiang. Once Mu Chen comes back, you won't be able to steal the spotlight anymore. Are you feeling exceptionally miserable in your heart right now? Zhou Qiang glared at him with a gloomy and venomous gaze. I wasn't talking to a big mouth like you, so don't rush over trying to meddle in my business. Don't you feel it lowers your social status? I don't know whether it lowers my status or not. Anyway, you are inferior to my brother Chen in every single aspect. Getting exasperated and playing dirty behind someone's back is what truly lowers one's status. When did I ever play dirty behind someone's back? Lu Shubai let out a contemptuous and cold sneer. You know perfectly well in your own heart the good deeds you've done. During the anatomy class last month, my brother Chen's rabbit was deliberately killed. It must have been you who did that dirty work. A trace of panic flashed across Zhou Qiang's eyes. Stop spouting nonsense here to slander me. I wouldn't deign to do such a filthy thing. You need to present evidence when you speak and act. It was exactly you this fellow's doing. I didn't do it. I quickly interrupted the endless quarreling between the two, looking at the person in front of me with a smile as I spoke. I don't want to listen to your meaningless argument. Zhou Qiang, you are blocking my way. Could you please step aside? Zhou Qiang widened his eyes, staring dead at me, without the slightest intention of making way from head to toe. I know this fellow Zhou Qiang all too well. Ever since I stepped through the gates of this university, just because I was Lin Wanwan's fiancé, he targeted me like a mad dog for no reason. If a day passed without him coming to find trouble with me, his gloomy heart wouldn't feel at peace. Just like at this highly tense moment before us, he definitely wants to pierce me with vicious words, the kind that won't stop until it stings me to the core. Sure enough, just as I expected. Before a few seconds passed, Zhou Qiang launched his attack. Mu Chen, if you drop out of school and focus on pleasing Sister Lin at home, maybe you could still win her heart. But now you are actually giving up on dropping out, and my brother has already returned to the country. I'm afraid you'll have to prepare for a divorce very soon. He knows best how to stab me right in the heart. If these words were placed in my past life, hearing them would definitely make my heart feel like it was being twisted by a knife. But right now, I am completely indifferent. Because of this, not only did he fail to see a painful and embarrassed expression on my face, but instead he saw me flashing my pearly neat white teeth, and flashed him a grim cold sneer. Does saying that make you feel a bit better in your heart? What do you mean? My unexpected reaction completely caused his brain to crash. You have been secretly in love with Lin Wanwan all along. When you say that, I spend every day pleasing her. Isn't your own heart bleeding? I suddenly reached out and firmly grabbed his jaw, forcefully shaking his cheeks from side to side. Clicking my tongue, I continued in a contemptuous tone. Your looks aren't that much worse than your brother's. Don't you feel even a tiny bit unwilling in your heart? Your brother has the ability to force her to divorce me. So why do you think you can't do it yourself? Zhou Qiang's face instantly changed drastically. He forcefully slapped my arm away and roared, Mu Chen, don't you spout absolute nonsense here. I have never secretly loved Sister Lin. Look at this hypocritical appearance of yours. You like a woman, but don't even dare to admit it. It seems that in this lifetime, you can only stand aside and watch helplessly as your own brother and your beloved woman act all lovey-dovey right in front of you. These words of mine were more than just malicious. They simply didn't treat Zhou Qiang like a normal person, stabbing the bluntest knife forcefully right into his weak spot. I just want to make him live in agony every single day, allowing that delusional wish of his to breed much earlier than in my past life. Before I completely finalize the divorce with Lin Wanwan, I will definitely cause a lot of trouble for Zhou Zimo with my own hands. Shut up! Zhou Qiang's eyes had already turned blood red, his chest heaving up and down, and even his breathing became exceptionally heavy. This is simply a pack of absolute lies. I shrugged my shoulders indifferently, my face completely painted with a look that said, "You know it yourself." Zhou Qiang's mental state had already collapsed slightly. He gave me a death stare filled with ultimate hatred, then turned around and quickly fled from this place. Brother Chen, could it be that Zhou Qiang also likes Lin Wanwan? Lu Shubai tightly gripped my arm, the word curiosity clearly written all over his face. I know he is very gossipy down to his bones, but right now is obviously not the right time to reveal too much to him. I made a reassuring gesture for him to hold his horses, then turned around and walked into the counselor's office. Thinking back to when I insisted on dropping out of school, the counselor had advised me earnestly and firmly refused to agree. In the end, seeing that I was truly dead set on leaving, he was forced to agree with helplessness and regret. Now seeing that I suddenly regretted it and wanted to stay, he was naturally very happy in his heart. After all, losing such an excellent medical student is an extremely heartbreaking and regrettable thing. After the counselor sternly gave me a few instructions, he let me and Lu Chubai head back first. Just as the two of us walked slightly away from the office, he lifted his head to look at me, his eyes sparkling with stars. "Brother Chen, tell me quickly. I really can't hold back my curiosity anymore. Hurry up and tell me the whole truth. Haven't you already figured it out? Zhou Qiang indeed has been secretly in love with Lin Wanwan all along." The corners of my mouth curled up slightly, the smile on my face filled with a thick sense of mockery. He has been extremely fond of Lin Wanwan since childhood, but unfortunately, she only had eyes for Zhou Zimo from beginning to end. Until I said those words just now, he always felt that as long as his brother was worthy of her, he only needed to guard her silently from the side. Ha! How could you know about this so clearly? Lu Shubai was completely shocked by this juicy scoop. I just smiled enigmatically without saying a word, and he tactfully didn't continue to press further. After trying hard to digest this mind-blowing gossip, his not-so-bright brain raised a question. Why did Zhou Qiang think this way before you said those words just now? What about after those words? He will definitely become unwilling in his heart, and the idea of competing with his own brother will sprout. I am provoking the deepest desire in his heart. I pulled the locker key out of my clothes pocket, slipping my finger through the key ring and spinning it with a face full of pleasure. Lu Shubai completely understood now, and a mischievous grin instantly appeared on his face. "Brother Chen, you kid are still as wicked as ever." I raised my eyebrows slightly and looked at him. Just now I saw the Mu Chen from high school again. He bumped my shoulder forcefully and let out a silly chuckling laugh. "How wild and arrogant you were back then. High-spirited, refused to submit to anyone. Too bad you started acting like a good boy once you entered university. It's a pity that once you entered university, you started pretending to be a good boy. It really wasn't interesting at all." The smile on my face gradually faded. Mu Liheng's biological mother, who was also my biological grandmother, was a northerner. When she was young, she often followed her mother back to live in the north, staying for several months each time. Therefore, her personality was very bold, unconstrained, and uninhibited. Coupled with the fact that her brain was indeed not very clever, she had been living happily and casually for so many years. Otherwise, she wouldn't have caused the Mu family's years of hard work to go down the drain instantly due to investment failures. In terms of personality, I took after her more or less. Plus, their expectations for me were extremely low, which led me to completely let myself go after entering high school. Strictly speaking, back then, although my grades were quite excellent, I was a student who was a delinquent in the eyes of the teachers. As for why I forced myself to change after entering university and became a law-abiding, well-behaved boy, it was of course because of Lin Wanwan and Wen Shuzhen. I quickly pulled myself out of the memories of my past life, muttering to myself in a whisper with an extremely flat tone. If she hadn't been in my world, how splendidly would I have lived my past life? "Brother Qiang, what did you just whisper to yourself?" Lu Chubai didn't hear my words clearly, and questioned aloud with a face full of curiosity. I shook my head gently, indicating it was nothing. From now on, I will live as my true self. I firmly grasped his warm palm, and the two of us headed to the classroom with brisk steps. I have been smart ever since I was a child, learning everything much faster than others. Back then, I achieved an exceptionally high score in the college entrance examination. When choosing a major, my parents meant to let me do as I pleased. Among the numerous popular majors available, I chose to study medicine directly without any hesitation. The path of studying medicine is very arduous and lengthy. Mu Liheng had explicitly expressed his disapproval, but I simply and firmly stated that I liked it. insisting on my choice without looking back, without revealing this true reason. The true reason was actually for the death of my biological mother. It wasn't entirely about being able to save and help more people, or preventing more ordinary families from being torn apart, but rather to accumulate virtues and pray for my deceased mother. Her life was truly too short. I hope she can have a peaceful and smooth time in her next life, spending her entire life in safety and stability. An entire morning of major specific classes came to an end. It just so happened that there were no classes scheduled for the afternoon. Luchubai hadn't gathered and hung out with me for a long time, so he excitedly invited me to go shopping together. I still have to go to the hospital to take care of Lin Wanwan. After I explained the situation to him like this, the two of us made an appointment to shop together another day, and I left the school to head straight to the hospital. Upon arriving at the hospital building, just as I went upstairs and prepared to walk toward the ward, I ran into Wen Shuzhen, who happened to be coming out from inside. Wen Shuzhen was clearly stunned for a moment when she saw me, then spoke with an exceptionally complex expression on her face. "You kid are actually quite capable." I was left completely baffled by this sentence. What? Before you and Wanwan got married? She actually disliked you quite a bit. I didn't expect that after just a brief single night, she doesn't dislike you that much anymore. Am I wrong to say you are capable? Her words were filled with a hidden sarcastic undertone. I furrowed my brows tightly and didn't say a single word. In the past, I always behaved very obediently in front of her. No matter how she deliberately made things difficult for me or said such unpleasant and harsh words, I would just bow and scrape, never talking back. Although my attitude has become much more assertive after my rebirth, she obviously hadn't fully grown accustomed to it yet. Seeing me stand on the spot keeping silent, she actually thought I didn't dare to open my mouth to talk back, and instead mocked me even more aggressively. Sure enough, a son raised by that kind of woman is the exact same kind of trash down to his bones. Since she is pushing her luck like this without knowing any restraint, I don't plan on continuing to indulge her anymore. When Shuzhen, if you are sick, go see a doctor immediately. I wasn't even willing to call her mom on the surface anymore, my expression instantly turning as cold as a block of ice. You are a member of the Lin family after all, yet you speak like a street ruffian. Aren't you afraid of lowering the Lin family's class? These words were truly exceptionally harsh. She obviously didn't expect that I wouldn't show her any respect at all, and would say such unpleasant words right to her face, standing frozen in place with shock for a moment. By the time she finally snapped out of it, her face was so swollen with anger that it turned the color of pig liver. Mu Chen, how dare you speak to me like this? Even if you and Wanwan are about to divorce, you shouldn't call me directly by my full name. I'm your elder after all. I think you are the one with absolutely no family upbringing, bringing shame upon your family ancestors. She simply relies on her maiden family's powerful background and had a good life back then to marry into a prominent family. Although her personality has always been spoiled and tyrannical, making her whole being just like a paper-made hedgehog that fiercely stabs whoever she finds unpleasant to the eye. Very few people usually dare to go head-to-head with her. Therefore, the nasty words she can hurl during a quarrel are at most only to this laughable extent. Hearing her bring up even my own family ancestors, I really couldn't hold it back, and burst into laughter on the spot. Fine. Calling you by your full name was indeed wrong of me. Then, how about I change it to Auntie Wen from now on? Auntie Wen, just how big is your heart? Your biological daughter is still lying in pain inside, and it's still unknown whether her head will have any lingering after effects. Instead of worrying properly about her health, you waste time here using words to make me feel uncomfortable. If you are really that free to have this kind of time, you might as well just go play a few rounds of mahjong instead. Mu Chen, you are truly way too presumptuous. I rolled my eyes completely without any regard for my image, really too lazy to continue dealing with her anymore. Stepping to the side, I pushed open the ward door with one move and shouted loudly inside, Lin Wanwan, your mom is truly being way too unreasonable. I don't want to argue with your mom because of this, so you'd better just let the caregiver take care of you. Even if Wen Shuzhen were beaten to death on the spot, she would absolutely never expect that I would dare to pull this stunt. She was simply about to be driven completely insane by me. Waving her hand, she forcefully pushed my shoulder and said, you actually still dare to complain to my daughter. What kind of thing do you really think you are? Wanwan looked quickly. What kind of trash is this? He doesn't show any respect to me as an elder at all. He actually dared to call me a street ruffian, saying that I lowered the class of your Lin family. I really can't swallow this kind of anger for even a single day. I'm calling the people from the Civil Affairs Bureau right now, and you two must get divorced immediately today. Well, that's just fantastic. I clapped my hands forcefully and excitedly in applause. I really can't thank you enough. Having a powerful and influential mother-in-law is indeed great. Getting a divorce doesn't even require going to the Civil Affairs Bureau in person. That is simply way too convenient. Could you please hurry up? One is an incurable love brain, and the other is a short-tempered menopausal woman. I can't tolerate this mother and daughter duo for even a single day. Lying on the hospital bed, Lin Wanwan's forehead twitched gently, her entire being radiating a frightening and dreadful energy. The men in this world who want to marry her are countless. If any man could marry her, he would probably laugh himself awake even in his dreams. Yet this thing, regarded as a rare treasure by countless people, was actually being so blatantly despised by me. This dealt a massive blow to her lofty self-esteem. How could she swallow this foul, malicious breath in her heart? It's for the best that you obediently agree to the divorce. When Shuzhen reached out her finger pointing directly at my nose, a raging fire of fury burning deep in her eyes, threatening me with a fake smile. Once I called the people from the Civil Affairs Bureau over, if you dare to back out, or relentlessly pester us, not only will I make you suffer the consequences, but I'll also make sure your Mu family faces a miserable end. I followed along, revealing a hypocritical fake smile. Whoever backs out of this matter is a dog. It's a deal. The moment the words left my mouth, she hurriedly opened her handbag, preparing to take out her phone to call someone. Mom, I said that only Grandpa can make the decision regarding my marriage. Lin Wanwan stared dead at the entrance of the ward, her gaze becoming extremely gloomy, venomous, and terrifying. Whether I want to process the divorce with him right now is entirely up to me and me alone to decide. Do not do unnecessary things in the middle of it. Wanwan, if you don't take this chance to divorce him quickly, just until when do you plan to continue waiting? When Shuzhen expressed her utter incomprehension, her eyes nearly turning completely blood red with anger. A flash of annoyance crossed Lin Wanwan's face. I said, do not meddle in this matter. I insist on meddling in this damn matter. I don't want this kind of unpresentable son-in-law. Besides, haven't you always liked Josimo? Now that he has already returned to the country, shouldn't you wish to finish processing the divorce quickly so that you can marry him in a grand and honorable manner? Fine, I'll process the divorce with him today and turn around to register the marriage with Josimo tomorrow, Lin Wanwan said coldly with an expressionless face. Absolutely not. When Shuzhen blurted out almost subconsciously, in her eyes, her precious daughter should marry someone of equal social status, a man with a powerful family background who was outstanding himself. What kind of trash were this Mu Chen and Josimo anyway? Not only could they not provide any help to her daughter's career, but they might even become a severe drag on her in the future. Lin Wanwan let out an extremely cold sneer. It turned out her mother had always thought this way in her heart. No wonder she had ruthlessly done that thing back then. Since you won't agree to me marrying him anyway, why should I be in a hurry to get a divorce right now? Lin Wanwan turned her head, expanding exhaustion, staring blankly at the ceiling with lifeless eyes. Tell Mu Chen to get his ass in here to see me. Wanwan, listen to your mother's advice. Stop wasting your breath. Lin Wanwan coldly interrupted her word, her tone chilly and devoid of any emotion. When Shuzhen gave me a death stare with a face full of unwillingness, and then turned her head and left filled with a chest full of rage. My gaze stared dead at her angry back, my expression appearing rather thoughtful. In my past life, my eyes and heart were only filled with Lin Wanwan, and I actually never noticed such an obvious blind spot. A woman with a dominant personality like Wen Shuzhen had actually never been able to be firm with her biological daughter. She almost listened to whatever her daughter said. Could it be purely because she loved her daughter too much? But she was Lin Wanwan's biological mother after all. If she really made up her mind to make a scene, Lin Wanwan would most likely have to compromise helplessly in the end. The more I think about this matter, the stranger it gets. The doubt in my heart was clearly heard by her. Realizing that my heart and eyes were entirely focused on guessing her inner thoughts, it made Lin Wanwan's mood exceptionally complicated. She let out a soft cough, intending to draw my scattered attention over. I instantly snapped back from my contemplation, tilting my head in confusion to look at her quietly. Get in here quickly. I walked straight inside, not stopping my steps until I reached the side of the hospital bed. I pulled over a chair from the side and sat down. Why didn't you take this opportunity to divorce me directly? Not only did Wen Shuzhen fail to understand it in her heart, but I myself also felt completely puzzled by it. There is no particular reason. You and Josimo were already mutually in love with each other anyway. Since you want to marry him in a grand and honorable way, it would be useless for your mother to strongly oppose it anyway. Therefore, I really don't understand it in my heart. In my past life, if it weren't for me relentlessly pestering you, I'm afraid on the very first day he returned to the country, you would have impatiently dragged me to get a divorce. How could we have stayed entangled in love and hatred at home for 3 years? If we get divorced immediately right after getting married, it will cause a negative impact on the Lin Group's reputation. Therefore, we absolutely cannot divorce within a short period of time. Before my rebirth, this woman dreamed of divorcing but couldn't. After my rebirth, the one dreaming of divorcing became me instead. Life is truly full of ironic, dramatic twists. I absolutely cannot continue dragging this out. We must divorce right after you are discharged from the hospital. So he really has gone through a rebirth. To think such a fantastical thing truly exists in this world. I'm afraid you've forgotten that when we held our wedding, only the family members from both our sides were present at the scene. Even the media didn't know we got married. Because you deliberately concealed the marriage, the outside world still thinks you are single to this day. Therefore, our divorce will absolutely not affect the Lin Group. There is ultimately no wall in this world that can block all wind. Then I must have a clear and definite time. Exactly how much longer until we can divorce? At least after half a year. Half a year is absolutely out of the question. I simply cannot wait that long. Then how long do you want? Immediately, right after you are discharged from the hospital. 1 year. How are you starting to raise the price on the spot? I might as well just tell you the truth. I already have someone I truly like, so I'm in a hurry to get a divorce so that I can be together with them. I don't believe a single word of your nonsense. I have absolutely no need to lie to you. If you can accept me messing around during our marriage and willingly let yourself be cuckolded, then I will reluctantly listen to you. I can accept waiting until half a year later to process the divorce. What can you accept? As a heartless, ungrateful wolf also started believing in Buddhism, beginning to eat vegetarian food, and saving all living beings fine. This is what you said. Since you can calmly accept even this, I have nothing left to say either. You said to wait half a year. Then we will wait half a year? However, I want to make a 3-clause agreement with you first. During this period, I will move back home to live. We will each live our own lives. And if there's nothing important, we shouldn't meet again. That is absolutely not a problem. It was time to have lunch. 10 minutes later, I walked inside carrying a thermal lunchbox, sitting down expressionlessly and opening it. I brought a spoon filled with hot porridge to her lips. Unsure if it was because I deliberately let my hand shake, quite a bit of the porridge in the spoon spilled onto her neck. The 2 words, Mu Chen, seemed to be squeezed out from the bottom of her lungs, suppressing an exceptionally massive rage. With a face full of panic, I quickly stood up, tugging out a few tissues from the tissue box on the cabinet, and hurriedly wiping her neck in a flurry. While wiping, I repeatedly apologized. I'm really so sorry. I truly didn't do it on purpose. Please don't be angry. Who asked you to deliberately play tricks on me just now? Right now, your body is completely unable to move. So aren't you entirely at my mercy? Lin Wanwan clearly heard my inner thoughts, feeling the tissue drenched in sticky liquid. Gradually arriving upon her delicate face, her expression turned completely as black as the bottom of a burnt pot. There is no porridge on my face at all. Is that so? I'm really sorry then. I actually thought there was some. Mu Chen, do you think your life is too long? I know eldest young Mistress Lin is powerful and influential, and whoever offends you won't have a good end. But you can't possibly ruthlessly kill me just because I accidentally spilled some porridge, right? Lin Wanwan let out a cold sneer. I indeed can. Then wait until you can move your body before saying that. For now, you'd better just obediently endure it. I also returned a cold sneer without any politeness. Lin Wanwan stared dead at me, a spark of anger flashing deep in her eyes. Wipe my entire body clean for me, and then change me into a set of clean clothes. I can't do this kind of job. As a young man full of vigor, doing this kind of thing isn't quite appropriate, right? I'll go find someone else to come and change you. Lin Wanwan was truly infuriated this time. An extremely rare agitation appeared on her always ice-cold face. Absolutely not. It must be you who does it. I must save you. If you don't clean me up today, accompanied by the loud bang of the door slamming shut, before Lin Wanwan could even finish her harsh words, I had already quickly walked out of the ward. Lin Wanwan closed her eyes tightly in agony, feeling the blood vessels all over her body constricting with rage, as if they would burst open at any moment. Then, in any moment. In the past, when facing her and Wen Xiuzhen, I had always behaved so submissively and obediently, looking completely non-threatening. But looking at it now, that was absolutely something I deliberately faked. This kid is definitely not a pushover. Not knowing how long she had been suffering in agony, just as her patience was about to reach its limit, the ward door was finally pushed open. Hurry up. Lin Wanwan urged, her voice anxious and irritated. Miss, please endure it for just a bit. I'll go to the restroom to get a wet towel first. The raspy voice coming from the doorway made her freeze. She turned her neck slightly stiffly to look over, and saw a woman who looked to be in her 50s, shuffling unsteadily toward the restroom. She didn't know where on earth I had found this woman. She looked completely disheveled, wearing a set of old-fashioned worn-out work clothes that were even stained with a lot of suspicious spots. Letting a woman like this wipe down her body was worse than just giving her a swift death. Get out of here right now. Young lady, Mr. Mu already told me about your situation. I expressed my deepest sympathy toward it. You can rest completely assured. I will absolutely not mock you. Do you even know who I am? Does it matter who you are? My name is Lin Wanwan. Never heard of it. That damn bastard Mu Chen. Lin Wanwan took a deep, forceful breath and closed her eyes in despair. Seeing this, the woman immediately strode over. The process of getting wiped down was exceptionally agonizing for her. I feigned a large yawn. The person I found isn't bad, right? They are exceptionally good. I'll have to trouble your considerate care until I'm discharged from the hospital. To my utter surprise, she didn't fly into a furious rage this time, but instead appeared extremely calm, except when she gritted out the word considerate. It sounded as if it were forcefully squeezed out from between her teeth. Otherwise, I really would have thought she wasn't angry at all. I narrowed my eyes dangerously, a trace of vigilance surfacing on my face. This woman is incredibly wicked down to her core. There's no telling what she's plotting in her mind, to ruthlessly retaliate against me once she can move. But since I've already offended her to the absolute limit, and can't escape the fate of being retaliated against either way. Then I might as well kick her while she's down. Lin Wanwan suddenly felt that her current situation was simply not much better than that of Wu Dalong. She tried to move her arm gently, and the piercing bone-deep pain made her gasp a mouthful of cold air. Hoping to move on her own was out of the question for now. Clearly recognizing this tragic point, she licked her somewhat dry lips and suddenly spoke up to ask Mu Chen, "Do you still love me right now?" Hearing this, I let out a light scoffing laugh. "What do you mean by, do I still love you? I have never loved you in the first place, alright." The reply was clean, crisp, and swift, without the slightest bit of hesitation. Moreover, whether it was the expression or the tone, there wasn't a single trace of duplicity or lying. Even without listening to my inner thoughts, she could clearly know that, for her, I no longer harbored even a single shred of affection. This realization made Lin Wanwan's gaze darken slightly. Actually, she couldn't say she felt terribly miserable in her heart, but rather just felt somewhat regretful. Just when she wasn't paying attention at all, a piece of sincere emotion had quietly vanished. The two of us fell into silence for a long time. Lin Wanwan opened her mouth, her voice raspy. "If I marry Zhou Zimo, will we be happy in the future?" "He probably will be right, but I think you won't. I wouldn't know about that. Is there anything else you need?" Lin Wanwan shook her head. "Then get some good sleep. I plan to take a nap too." I walked over to the accompanying family bed on the sides, took off my shoes and lay down on it. Closing my eyes, I could feel that she was staring at me. Lin Wanwan's gaze made me feel annoyed. Why does she keep staring at me? Does this person have some kind of mental issue? Just as this thought flashed through my mind, Lin Wanwan turned her face back. My tightly furrowed brows slowly relaxed, and before long, I fell fast asleep. Lin Wanwan listened as my breathing became even. Once I was sound asleep, she cast her gaze over once again. Right now in Lin Wanwan's eyes, I looked very pleasing to the eye. In the past, she never had me in her eyes, but only now did she realize that I am quite good looking. With a well-defined face and an outstanding temperament, my facial features were sharp, handsome, and exceptionally eye-catching. Judging by looks alone, I am absolutely not inferior to Zhou Zimo. Perhaps her gaze was too intense, as I felt a bit uncomfortable in my sleep, frowning and groaning a couple of times before turning my body over. Lin Wanwan let out a faint laugh, and then closed her eyes as well. I slept all the way until 4 p.m. Waking up to see the ward door open, I felt a bit confused. Turning over, I saw Lin Wanwan lying beside me, seemingly still asleep and not yet awake. I slowly sat up from the bed, put on my shoes and walked out of the ward. Seeing Shujiaki standing nearby, a smile instantly appeared on my face. "When did you come over?" "I just arrived not long ago." Shujiaki has a rather quiet personality, and doesn't usually like to smile much. But facing my friendly smile, she could only stiffly twitch the corners of her mouth. The nurse said to open the door regularly for ventilation, so I opened the door. So that's how it is. I knew I shouldn't act too familiar with her, so after speaking, I intended to turn around and head back to the ward. "Sir, I ran into young Master Zhou when I came here. He was making a phone call downstairs just now. I don't know if he will come up in a bit." There was actually no need for Shujiaki to say these words, and originally she shouldn't have said them. But perhaps because she felt my goodwill, she hesitated for a moment and said it anyway. Hearing this, I was slightly stunned for a moment, then smiled softly. "It's fine. If he wants to come up, let him come up. The legs belong to his own body. No one can control where he goes. But President Lin will mind." Shujiaki didn't dare to speak too plainly, so she could only remind me implicitly like this. "You will feel miserable in your heart when the time comes." I smiled and shook my head. "I won't. I've already grown used to it long ago." These words left Shujiaki unsure of how to respond, so she chose to maintain her silence instead. Just as I was about to open my mouth to say something more, the woman's cold voice came out from the ward, faintly carrying a trace of anger. "Mu Chen, I'm thirsty." I subconsciously rolled my eyes, then nodded and smiled at Shujiaki, turning around to walk into the ward. The woman on the hospital bed had an unfriendly look in her eyes. I thought she just had morning sickness or crankiness after waking up, finding everyone unpleasant to the eye, so I didn't think much about it. I poured a cup of warm water and brought it over to her. "Are you and Shujiaki very close?" Lin Wanwan's gaze flickered slightly. She had already asked a similar question before. A flash of annoyance crossed my face. I put down the water cup and answered coldly, "Not close." "But you two don't look like you're not close." Lin Wanwan let out a cold sneer. Is this person looking for trouble out of nothing? Why does she suddenly care about me and Shujiaki? Caring about whether we know each other and whether we are really close? Is she that free right now? Well, this woman indeed is very free right now. But this is truly quite annoying. Hearing the complaints in my heart, Lin Wanwan's already bad expression turned even worse. I didn't have a single good word about her in my heart, and hearing too much of it inevitably makes one feel unpleasant. "You think we look close?" Because I am intentionally showing goodwill to her. I wore a hypocritical smile on my face. Why does a man show goodwill to a woman? What else could it be for? Of course it's because I've taken a liking to her. The curve of my mouth deepened, carrying a thick sense of malice. Didn't you say you could accept me cuckolding you? A woman with a mindset like yours is hard to find. So I should take this opportunity to give you a few more green hats. Since we're going to play something thrilling, then we must chase after the ultimate thrill. I will absolutely annoy you to death. As the sound of my words gradually faded, Lin Wanwan's face completely turned cold as frost. Although she knew I was deliberately trying to anger her, and these words were not serious, she was still thoroughly infuriated. The gaze she used to look at me was deep and icy. Taking a look at it, it seemed completely bottomless. I couldn't help but feel slightly startled in my heart, a touch of chill instantly creeping onto my mind. As the helmsman of the group, Lin Wanwan possesses a powerful aura of a high-ranking individual. When she gets angry, even if she doesn't show any expression, or even say a single word, it is still enough to strike fear into people's hearts. I had witnessed her methods before my rebirth, and I actually did feel afraid of her. If my heart weren't filled with rage, and if I weren't taking advantage of the fact that her body can't move right now, I wouldn't dare offend her to this extent at all. Your courage has grown quite a bit compared to before. Lin Wanwan curled the corners of her mouth slightly, smiling with a bit of a wicked charm. Keep it up. I pressed my lips together tightly. Should I stop provoking her? Otherwise, once her injuries heal and she is discharged from the hospital, I won't even know how I ended up suffering. Lin Wanwan quietly listened to my inner thoughts, the smile on her face becoming full of mockery. Retaliate against him? This man really dares to imagine things. You must be thirsty right now, right? Have some water. I hurriedly picked up the water cup beside her, trying to temporarily soothe Lin Wanwan's anger, lest she rack her brains to screw me over. Lin Wanwan let out a faint smile, slapping someone and then offering them a sweet date. How could such a thing be possible? You are thinking way too much. I'm not drinking. Lin Wanwan let out a cold laugh, just as she was preparing to open her mouth to scare me a bit. The sound of leather shoes walking came from outside the door. I guessed that Joe Zemo must be coming up, so I immediately brought the water cup to Lin Wanwan's lips. Darling, let me feed you some water. My sudden anomaly made her freeze for a brief moment, but after seeing Joe Zemo walk into the ward, she instantly understood exactly why. She naturally wouldn't cooperate with my acting, unless she had suddenly started believing in Buddhism. Move a bit further away from me, Lin Wanwan said with a cold face. These words were completely within expectation. Putting away the fake smile on my face, I straightened my body and shrugged indifferently, deliberately sighing, and saying loudly, you still dislike me as always. Let me feed her. Joe Zemo walked over quickly, taking the water cup out of my hand and looking at Lin Wanwan with a gentle face. Her words just now made him feel at ease. It seemed I was just bluffing yesterday. Lin Wanwan has only had eyes for him all along, and never spared a glance for other men. How could her heart change just like that? Moreover, a young fellow like me is completely not her type. His worry was truly way too redundant. But even so, he must have Wanwan get a divorce as soon as possible. He had waited for too long for this day, and he really couldn't wait any longer. It was time to marry Lin Wanwan into his family. As long as he showed a little goodwill to Lin Wanwan, everything he wanted would soon be within his grasp. What Joe Zemo was plotting in his mind, Lin Wanwan could hear it crystal clear. Looking at the man she had loved for years in front of her, her eyes were actually filled with bone-chilling disappointment and disgust. It turned out the Joe Zemo she saw in the past was just what Joe Zemo wanted her to see, fake to the point of making people feel terrified. Lin Wanwan hated being deceived the most, not to mention this was no longer just deception. This man dreamed of marrying her, yet he kept pretending to have no feelings for her, playing the game of hard to get. He simply played her like a fool, seeing that Lin Wanwan neither drank the water nor uttered a single word, and just kept staring at him with a cold gaze. Joe Zemo couldn't help but begin to panic in his heart. Sister Wanwan, what's wrong? Lin Wanwan lowered her eyes, her long eyelashes trembling slightly. I don't want to drink anymore. Then what do you want to drink? I'll go buy it for you, all right? Joe Zemo blinked his innocent big eyes and asked softly in a tone used for coaxing a child, Bro, can you have some common sense? Can she drink anything else besides water right now? I slumped on the sofa nearby and let out a large yawn lazily. It seems you're still not handsome enough. Having finally returned after going abroad for several years, if you were to feed her poison, she might even swallow it willingly. My intention to drive a wedge between them was way too obvious. It was practically written right on my face. A surge of rage welled up in Joe Zemo's heart, but due to being right in front of Lin Wanwan, he could only force himself to endure it. Muchen, I know you dislike me very much. Actually, I can understand this too. But you are married to Sister Wanwan now, so I hope you two can live a happy life. You really don't need to be so hostile toward me. Which eye of yours sees me being hostile toward you? I thought his words were simply laughable. Are you even worthy of my hostility? Joe Zemo's face instantly darkened. No one had ever dared to talk to him like this in front of Wanwan. On what grounds did Muchen dare to be so arrogant? The reason Joe Zemo found this so unacceptable was entirely because Lin Wanwan had spoiled him in the past, giving him a strong sense of superiority. To put it bluntly, he was just a dog acting fierce on its master's authority. Actually thinking he was someone amazing, I didn't care at all about how he would react. What I cared about was Lin Wanwan's reaction. If Lin Wanwan flew into a furious rage because of these words and threatened to make me suffer the consequences, then I would immediately admit defeat and back down, as I would absolutely never go head to head with her. But if she only scolded me casually with a few words, then I would continue to push my luck and make Joe Zemo so uncomfortable that he couldn't sleep. Lin Wanwan stared at me with flickering eyes, clearly understanding this little plot I was running in my mind, and let out an extremely soft scoff. Mr. Mu speaks with such a grand tone. I wonder who gave you the confidence. So, can I speak if I don't have confidence? The mouth is on my own face, and I can say whatever I want. Does this have anything to do with having confidence or not? My attitude was the definition of arrogant. Watching it simply made one's teeth itch with annoyance. Indeed, what you want to say is your freedom. Joe Zemo's rims of the eyes turned slightly red, and after taking a glance at me, he lowered his head. I let out a cold snort, and mocked loudly, with a face full of disdain. Thank you, Mr. Joe, for being so understanding. If I say even harsher words when we meet in the future, I hope you won't mind either. Lin Wanwan saw through Joe Zemo's true character, so she naturally wouldn't help speak up for him anymore. Slightly narrowing her long, narrow eyes, she planned to let all of this go completely unmanaged, focusing purely on listening to the inner thoughts of the two men. Seeing that she hadn't scolded me after a long while, Joe Zemo raised his eyes to look at her. Lin Wanwan still remained completely unmoved. Joe Zemo bit his lip forcefully, reaching out his hand to grab Lin Wanwan's arm, and said softly with the pale face, "Forget it. Sister Wanwan, Mu Chen is still young and not very mature. It's fine if he dislikes me and says harsh words. He didn't even say anything, okay?" A strong sense of disgust spread out, and Lin Wanwan's deep dark eyes were full of frost, looking like thousand-year-old sharp ice that could never melt. In Joe Zemo's past memories, the gaze Lin Wanwan used to look at him was always gentle. When had she ever looked at him with such a cold expression? He widened his eyes in disbelief, his face instantly turning a bit frighteningly white, resentment and sorrow surfacing in his eyes. "Sister Wanwan, why are you looking at me with that kind of gaze? My mood is a bit bad right now." Lin Wanwan shifted her gaze away from his face. "Both of you keep quiet for me." "Sister Wanwan," Joe Zemo bit his lower lip with his teeth. "Are you still angry with me? Angry that I went abroad and stayed away for a whole 5 years, without even coming back once during that time, to see you? You are thinking way too much. When you left, Wanwan didn't know how happy she was. Otherwise, she wouldn't have agreed to marry me, and she wouldn't have been so passionate on our wedding night." I couldn't help but chime in and interrupt. I was simply annoying to the absolute extreme, insisting on interrupting just when Joe Zemo was preparing to have a heart-to-heart talk, and even using words that could throw his mind into total chaos. "You want to have a heart-to-heart talk with her to cultivate your relationship? If I let you succeed in that talk today, I will write my name backward." Lin Wanwan felt a bit amused in her heart. With this interruption of mine, Joe Zemo's heart completely sank by half. His attempts to comfort himself were just self-deception now. Lin Wanwan might really have changed her mind. Otherwise, she would absolutely never let me act so arrogant in front of her. Thinking about the possibility of losing his entry into the Lin family, Joe Zemo felt incredibly anxious in his heart. He clenched his hands into fists with unwillingness, looking at Lin Wanwan with a heartbroken face. "Sister Wanwan, is what he said all true? I don't believe it. He must be lying, right?" Seeing him look this miserable, I couldn't even describe how satisfying it was to relieve my hatred. There was a fresh fruit platter placed on the coffee table, which was full of picked grapes. I reached out and grabbed a big handful, throwing them into my mouth one by one to eat. My entire being looked completely triumphant. Although I don't know why this woman is so cold to him, this is simply fantastic for me. By the time this woman's injuries heal and she is discharged from the hospital, I will definitely make Joe Zemo lose 20 pounds from sheer worry. I kept calling her "this woman" over and over in my heart, which made Lin Wanwan's forehead twitch gently. She didn't want me to be so proud of myself, so she raised her eyes to look at Joe Zemo, revealing her first smile since they met. Of course it's not true. I knew it. Joe Zemo instantly wept with joy. "Sister Wanwan, I really regret it now. I shouldn't have gone abroad back then." Otherwise, the expression on my face turned a bit displeased, feeling that the grapes in my mouth weren't sweet anymore. Throwing the unfinished grapes back onto the fruit platter, I stood up. "I'm going to the restroom." As expected, he is the man Lin Wanwan has loved for years. How could she just stop loving him right off the bat? I really don't know how she fell in love back then with a man like him, who is so double-faced and has more sneaky plots than the seeds in a dragon fruit, and how she could remain infatuated with him without changing for so many years. Just based on her eye for men, it's a miracle that the Lin group hasn't run into problems yet. "Mu Chen," Lin Wanwan's voice carrying anger came from behind. I stopped my steps as I was walking out, turning my head back with a face full of confusion. Joe Zemo also looked at her with a puzzled face. Joe Zemo also looked at her with a face full of confusion. Lin Wanwan took several deep breaths, wanting to suppress this surge of fire in her heart, but in the end she still failed. "Go to the restroom outside," Lin Wanwan growled loudly. She couldn't let people know that she could hear inner thoughts. So losing her temper right now would only make people think she was sick. My face was full of speechlessness. Is she losing her temper at me on behalf of Joe Zemo? This reflex arc is truly way too long. Looking at it, her brain was most likely damaged from the crash. For the first time, Lin Wanwan felt that this mind-reading ability was simply a complete disaster and utterly maddening. Unless she were an emotionless wooden puppet, she would get driven seriously ill by anger sooner or later. Muttering complaints in my heart, I walked out of the ward. Not until I had walked far enough that Lin Wanwan could no longer hear my inner thoughts did her tightly knitted brows slowly relax. Sister Wanwan, during these 5 years since I left you, I have really missed you so much. With an obstacle like me gone, Joe Zemo planned to pour out his heart to her again. Lin Wanwan was in a bad mood and only gave a cold hum in response. Arriving in a foreign land and living all by myself, only then did I realize how much you protected me before and understand that only you can give me happiness. Joe Zemo pursed his lips, looking somewhat hesitant to speak. Sister Wanwan, is there any affection between you and Mu Chen? What kind of affection are you referring to? Lin Wanwan cast a side glance and looked at him. Of course it's romantic love. For two people to get married, there must be love, right? Only with love can one find happiness. At least half of his words were wrong. He said this completely on purpose, aiming to awaken the past Wanwan who insisted on having no one but him. The Lin Wanwan of that time was very certain that as long as she married him, she would definitely be happy. I indeed have no romantic love for him. Lin Wanwan's expression was exceptionally calm. A look of joy instantly appeared on Joe Zemo's face. Just as he wanted to open his mouth to speak, Lin Wanwan's tone suddenly took a sharp turn. However, I am quite interested in him right now. Does this count as affection in your eyes? The moment the words left her mouth, the color completely drained from Joe Zemo's face. Realizing that she might not love him was one thing, but hearing it with his own ears was another entirely. Sister Wanwan, are you being serious? Joe Zemo's throat felt as if it were filled with sand, his voice sounding incomparably raspy. This blow was too fatal for him. The woman whose eyes and heart had always been entirely filled with him had personally admitted to being interested in another man. This felt more painful to him than losing everything. Lin Wanwan nodded coldly, completely shattering his final ray of hope. How he wished he had misheard, or that Lin Wanwan was just deliberately speaking out of anger. Unfortunately, none of it was true. Lin Wanwan was incomparably serious. Why? Joe Zemo tightly gripped the ornament on his bag. Are you trying to say you didn't know I loved you so deeply? Lin Wanwan ruthlessly interrupted him. The mockery in her eyes couldn't be more obvious. But you have been constantly rejecting my love. Does it still matter whether I love you or not? My interest in Mu Chen shouldn't matter to you either. So why are you asking this? Don't you find it very strange? I just didn't want you to get me too easily. I wanted you to feel that my marrying you was entirely achieved through your hard work and begging. Only in this way would you know how to cherish me, keeping your thoughts entirely focused on me, so that I could completely hold my head high in front of you and the Lin family. But I really didn't expect your love for me to be nothing more than this. I went abroad to get gilded and returned to the country. Yet you've become interested in another man? Truly, one wrong move causes the whole game to be lost. Joe Zemo took a deep breath, forcefully ripping the tassel off his bag with his hand, to barely force himself to calm down. I regret it now, okay? Lin Wanwan's eyes were deep and icy. Joe Zemo's inner thoughts left her with nothing but deep disgust for him in her heart. To think he had actually been trying to control her all along. He truly has a massive nerve and ambition. Although my inner thoughts when I went to the restroom were harsh, they were indeed completely correct. Her ability to judge men is way too poor. I understand. Lin Wanwan's reaction was as flat as water. The thing she had been looking forward to all this time could now be obtained with just a snap of her fingers. Yet she wasn't moved by it at all. Your regret is your own business. But I'm already married now, so I'm truly very sorry. This was short of saying there's no longer any possibility directly. Seeing his years of plotting go down the drain, Joe Zemo's emotions instantly broke down. Lin Wanwan, you truly have no heart. His face was instantly covered in tears. Anyone who saw a man weeping would feel bad for him. But once Lin Wanwan dislikes a person, no matter how handsome and dashing the other party is, it won't cause half a ripple in her heart. She didn't give a response, unsure if she didn't want to respond, or was just too lazy to respond at all. But no matter which case it was undoubtedly pushing his emotions to a dead end, making him feel even more broken down. You clearly loved me so deeply before. Why don't you love me anymore now? Joe Zemo wiped his tears as he cried, his tone of complaint sounding like an aggrieved child. You are a big liar. You clearly said you would wait for me forever. Lin Wanwan still remained unmoved. She glanced at the wall clock. It had already been 15 minutes since I went to the restroom. Did this man secretly run away? Lin Wanwan's gaze became a bit gloomy. If this man dares to run away, don't blame her for showing no mercy. You also know that I am a slow starter. Back then I was too young, and still very ignorant about matters of love. But I am very certain now that I love you too. I fell in love with you long ago without even realizing it. Joe Zemo didn't notice at all that she wasn't listening, crying and complaining with absolute earnestness. I slowly idled my way out of the restroom. I had taken a phone call from Lu Shubai, which was why I came back a bit late. Just as I walked to the entrance of the ward, I heard the suppressed weeping of the man inside. Pushing the door open with a beaming smile, I spoke up, "Mr. Zhou, please don't cry in front of my wife's hospital bed. Those who don't know the truth might think she passed away." Zhou Zimo's weeping stopped abruptly. He turned his head around and stared at me with a face full of resentment. It must be this ungrateful bastard who used some underhanded and dirty methods to bewitch Sister Wanwan's mind and said a lot of bad things about me behind my back. Otherwise, since Sister Wanwan loved me for so many years, how could she just stop loving me right off the bat? Sister Wanwan must still have me in her heart. I absolutely still have a chance to turn the tables. My efforts over all these years absolutely cannot be in vain. Zhou Zimo's inner thoughts made Lin Wanwan feel annoyed, and at the same time, she felt a surge of deep rage. Her affection for him had been entirely within his calculations. Having been played in the palm of his hand for so many years was a humiliating disgrace to her proud and arrogant self. Don't look at me with that kind of gaze. I feel scared in my heart. I didn't know what had happened between the two of them during the 15 minutes I was away, but judging by the current situation, the two of us had definitely broken down in their talk. If I don't stir up trouble at this moment, when will I? Darling, I'm almost scared to death by him. I ran quickly to the side of the hospital bed, squatting down and resting my chin on the edge of the bed, looking up at Lin Wanwan with a pitiful expression. The gaze he used to look at me made it seem like he wanted to eat me alive. I feel like there's no need to go this far, right? What is he getting so deeply angry for? It's truly unbearable. Lin Wanwan turned her eyes to look at me, the corner of her mouth twitching imperceptibly. With a punchable personality like mine, was she sure what she did to me in our past life? Lin Wanwan still didn't quite understand at this point that once you truly fall in love with a person, it's equivalent to exposing your weakness right in front of the other party. If one day your beloved wants to hurt you, the knife was something you actively handed over yourself. If it weren't for loving too deeply, who would easily give someone else the chance to hurt them? Mu Chen, you'd better know when to stop. The fury in Zhou Zimo's heart rushed straight to his head as he pointed at my nose in unbearable rage. You are doing this on purpose just to anger me here. How did I anger you? Don't just wrongfully accuse a good person. Everything I said was the absolute truth. You clearly know that between Sister Wanwan and me. What do I know? I interrupted his words without any politeness, playfully sticking out my tongue. I just turned 20 years old this year, while you and Sister Wanwan are already 26. Back when you two were able to be close, I hadn't even graduated from middle school yet. How could I know what is between you two? Brother Zhou, I know you like Sister Wanwan, and Sister Wanwan used to like you too. But we are married now, you know? Though, if you guys want to be together, that's fine too. After all, since she can accept me finding someone else, I can't appear too stingy either, right? I'll allow you guys to meet up occasionally or something? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Sister Wanwan, listen to what on earth he is saying. You said you're interested in this kind of man. I truly cannot believe it. Zhou Zimo roared out loudly in fury. I'm only 20 years old, not some 26-year-old old fossil. I can only be considered a boy, not some mature man or uncle. I shot back with a beaming smile. This is truly so satisfying. I'm going to anger you until you feel uncomfortable all over. Whether Zhou Zimo would be angered to the point of feeling uncomfortable all over, it was still unknown for now. But he was definitely going to be driven mad with rage right now. His body swayed slightly a couple of times, squeezing out two words from between his teeth. Mu Chen? What's wrong, uncle? Oh wait, I mean Brother Zhou? Why are you calling my name so excitedly? I blinked my innocent big eyes, putting on a completely pure and harmless expression. Compared to him, who was in a state of violent rage, this look of mine is definitely more likable. Even Zhou Zimo himself thought so. Realizing that he must look incomparably embarrassing right now, he took several deep breaths, before barely managing to adjust the expression on his face. Then staring at me with an unfriendly gaze, he asked, Mu Chen, you really like to pretend to be pitiful, don't you? Pretend to be pitiful. I tilted my head with the face full of confusion. Brother Zhou, what does it mean to pretend to be pitiful? I don't quite get it. Zhou Zimo let out a cold sneer, lowering his eyes to look at Lin Wanwan. Sister Wanwan, he says he doesn't understand this term, but you should understand it very well, right? Lin Wanwan's family background, along with her one-in-a-million beautiful face, destined her to have men constantly surrounding her. However, her eyes used to only have him, always rejecting the men who threw themselves at her with a cold face. But there was indeed an exception in the past. During Lin Wanwan's high school years, a male student in the same class as her had incredible methods, actually managing to win a bit of her appreciation. After finding out Zhou Zimo interacted with that male student and discovered the other party was a typical scheming man, so he directly explained the situation to Lin Wanwan, detailing exactly what a scheming man was. Lin Wanwan had always listened to his words, and from then on, she hated this type of person very much. So this was his extremely powerful counterattack at this moment. Unfortunately, the current Lin Wanwan was no longer the Lin Wanwan of the past who was totally submissive and followed his every whim. Lin Wanwan merely cast a faint glance at me, then looked back at Joe Zemo and asked back, "Is he?" Joe Zemo's body swayed violently, his expression looking extremely unnatural and ugly. "Brother Joe, I was just joking with you just now. Of course I know what that means. However, I'm not pretending to be pitiful. Instead, I am pretending to be cute." I pointed my index finger at my chin, my smile looking exceptionally charming. Pretending to be cute to a woman who likes me will definitely make her like me even more. Why wouldn't I do something so worthwhile? Sister Wanwan, he doesn't like you at all. Joe Zemo roared out sternly. Of course I know Lin Wanwan doesn't like me. So even though they have run into a conflict right now, and Lin Wanwan is throwing a tantrum at Joe Zemo, I still wouldn't bet on her cooperating with me to anger him. After all, if I lose the bet, it would be pretty embarrassing. Therefore, spinning the gears in my brain, I uttered an absolutely flawless sentence. I have a rather thick skin. Even if your sister Wanwan doesn't like me, I will just treat it as if she likes me anyway. I am truly an absolute genius. Brother Joe, although you are a bit up there in age now, and pretending to be cute might not look very cute on you, there's really no other way. In order to win my wife's affection, it's still better for you to give it a try. Although my wife doesn't say anything out loud, she might actually like it very much in her heart. These words were truly as mean and toxic as they could get, and as infuriating as possible. Calling her wife over and over made his blood boil with rage. If it were anyone else with slightly less self-control, they would have already been shouting curses out of anger by now. But Joe Zemo is scheming after all. Otherwise, he wouldn't have made Wanwan fall in love with him. Therefore, he knew that with the current situation, it was impossible to win back around. His hands clenching the bag loosened slightly, barely squeezing out an ugly smile. Mooch and you are still too young and inexperienced. A man's charm isn't just about being cute, but that's okay. I will prove it to you. What kind of man suits her best? I shrugged my shoulders, indifferently. Humph. This attitude of mine is more infuriating than saying anything. Fearing that he would be driven mad with rage if he stayed any longer, he looked at Lin Wanwan and said with a pale face, "Wanwan, I'm not feeling very well, so I'll leave first. I'll come to see you again tomorrow." As his words fell, he did not receive any response from the woman. If it were in the past, as long as he said he was unwell, Lin Wanwan would appear exceptionally anxious, treating him like a fragile baby. Even during these 5 years when he was far away abroad, whenever he felt physically uncomfortable, she would arrange for people to take him to the hospital, taking care of him with absolute meticulousness. But now she is completely indifferent. If this isn't a loss of love, what else could it be? Joe Zemo's rims of the eyes were red. Ultimately, not wanting his dignity to be completely stomped into the dirt, he turned around and left without saying another word. I'm so unwilling. Is it possible that after working hard for so many years, I ultimately have no way to step into the Lin family? I'm truly so unwilling. This absolutely cannot happen. I absolutely cannot give up this easily. With my background, wanting to marry a woman from an eminent family is truly way too difficult. Only with Lin Wanwan is there still a bit of hope. As long as there is a shred of hope, I must grasp it. Otherwise, I can only remain a person of lowly status. Lin Wanwan lowered her eyes as she listened to his inner thoughts, a deep ray of mockery flashing across her eyes. He wants to change his lowly status by marrying her. This has been his sole purpose from the very beginning to the end. How pitiful that her sincere heart was taken for granted, and she had been wrong for such a long period of time. It's getting late now, so I should head back too. There are still classes at school tomorrow. Since Joe Zemo had already left, there was no longer any need for me to act cute. My sharp face returned to its icy cold expression. With your face-changing speed, it's a pity you don't go perform in a theater. The corners of Lin Wanwan's mouth curled into an obvious arc, looking to be in an exceptionally good mood. The reason she fell in love with Joe Zemo back then was firstly because Joe Zemo indeed had methods, and secondly because he happened to be exactly her type. On the other hand, I am a type completely opposite to him. But for some unknown reason, the more she looks at me now, the more pleasing to the eye I seem. Even finding the way I annoy people quite cute, Lin Wanwan felt that she must be going crazy. Could it be because of those tragic inner thoughts of mine? Knowing that I used to love her deeply, that she became like this. She couldn't figure it out herself either. She only knew that before figuring out what on earth I had been through, it was absolutely impossible for her to let me leave her side. If you dare to listen, then I dare to go perform, I answered expressionlessly. The performance fee is 30 million per show. Lin Wanwan couldn't help but chuckle out loud. You really dare to open your mouth like a lion. Since you even dare to listen, what else would I not dare to ask for? I stood up planning to dust off my clothes and leave. Let the caregiver take good care of you tonight. No, Lin Wanwan disagreed. It wasn't that she couldn't bear to let me go, but rather she feared I would go to the psychiatry department to drag someone over again. Recalling that crazy man from this afternoon now, her mood still felt a bit uneasy. My brows furrowed slightly, just as I wanted to counter her with some harsh words, when Shuzhen walked in from the outside. I cried out in my heart that today was truly exhausting. Just after sending off Joe Zemo, here comes Wen Shuzhen. I am practically a gladiator, but late at night, I don't have the energy to fight anymore. Seeing me holding my backpack ready to leave, Wen Shuzhen questioned with an unfriendly face. Are you preparing to leave? I nodded with a cold expression. It's too late. If I don't go back, my mom will worry. Oh, cut it out and forget it. When Xiuzhen's face was full of mockery. Would that stepmother of yours actually worry about you? She wishes you would never go back, so no one would fight over the family fortune with her biological son. If you don't know how to speak properly, then keep quiet. The Lin family has a grand business and great wealth, so they surely don't lack that tiny bit of property. I was too lazy to bicker with her here, and after speaking, I carried my bag and walked straight out. When Xiuzhen actually learned to be well behaved this time, and did not reach out her hand to stop me. After I walked out of the ward, when Xiuzhen walked quickly to the side of the hospital bed, placing the insulated lunchbox on the bedside table. Daughter, mom personally brewed chicken soup for you. This car accident damaged your core health, so you must properly nourish your body. That's the only way. Drink a few more bowls in a bit. Lin Wanwan nodded with a faint expression, without opening her mouth to speak, while pouring the chicken soup into a bowl. When Xiuzhen quietly observed her facial expression, after finishing pouring, she appeared to carelessly remark, I bumped into Zemo downstairs just now. I saw that his rims of the eyes were completely red. Did you two have a fight? No. Then why would he? I know what you want to pry into. Lin Wanwan interrupted Wen Xiuzhen's words, her gaze calm without a single ripple. I've said it before. Aside from Grandpa Lin, no one can decide my marriage. And as for my emotional matters, no one has the right to question or decide them. The more she spoke, the sharper her gaze became. When Xiuzhen's throat choked up, she wanted to speak but didn't dare to open her mouth, and in the end could only let out a helpless sigh. Afterward, she fed Lin Wanwan 2 bowls of chicken soup, then packed up her things and left. Xiujiaqi was standing right outside the door, and Wen Xiuzhen walked right past her, but then stepped back again. The gaze she used to look at her was full of scrutiny. Assistant Shu, you have been standing out here all this time. Then, do you know with Zemo inside? What on earth happened among the 3 of them? When Xiuzhen leaned close to Xiujiaqi, asking in a lowered voice right next to her ear, Xiujiaqi's eyes flickered slightly, and she gently shook her head. President Lin instructed me that when there are other people present, I should stay a bit further away from the ward. Therefore, I don't know anything at all. When Xiuzhen clicked her tongue in dissatisfaction, her expression looking a bit ugly. However, Xiujiaqi was Wanwan's person after all, so she didn't dare to show her too much attitude either, and could only turn around and leave in a huff. After leaving the hospital, I went straight back home. Chu Huilan was sitting on the sofa in the living room, watching TV with a face mask on. Hearing the noise of the door opening, she turned her head and saw that it was me returning from outside, peeling off the face mask she had just put on not long ago. Why did you come back so late at night? Going back over there, it's just me and the auntie. I stay on the 2nd floor alone, and I feel scared in my heart. I placed the keys on the shoe cabinet in the entryway, walking into the living room and sitting down beside her. Besides, how could staying there be as comfortable as staying at home? Shu Huilan cast a side glance and squinted at me, letting out a cold snort. Even though you plan to marry into her family and divorce Lin Wanwan later, you've only been married for a couple of days. Running back home like this, if people find out, who knows how they'll gossip about you? I don't care at all about what others say about me. I grabbed a grape from the fruit platter and threw it into my mouth, leaning back against the sofa with a face full of comfort. Even if no woman is willing to want me in the future, I completely won't care either. Spending my whole life by your side is exactly what I want. Unexpectedly talking such nonsense here. Chu Huilan's eyes carried irritation. If you say more, I will kick you out of the house and make you take care of yourself outside. I let out a faint smile indifferently. Would you really have the heart to kick me out? You weren't even carried in my womb for 10 months, so why wouldn't I have the heart? If I had heard these words before my rebirth, I would definitely have been very unhappy in my heart, thereby forming an even bigger prejudice against her. But now, I completely won't feel that way anymore. Swallowing the sweet grape in my mouth, I stood up from the soft sofa. You already guessed that I would come back tonight. Otherwise, there wouldn't be grapes placed on the coffee table. Mom, you are always so double-faced speaking against your heart. Sooner or later, you're going to suffer a huge loss. Chu Huilan let out a soft sneer. My biggest loss was not sending you away earlier, wasting so much of our family's food for nothing. I gave a chuckle. I will continue to freeload on your food for many more years. So even if you feel bad in your heart, you just have to endure it. Just after finishing my words, I excitedly ran upstairs. Mu Chen, when are you moving your things back? Chu Huilan stood up and shouted at me. I stopped my steps going upstairs, turning around to look downstairs. I plan to move tomorrow, so help me contact a moving company. Did I owe you in my past life? Chu Huilan shouted in an irritated tone. I knew that she would definitely help me contact one, so I went upstairs with a face full of beams and smiles. Returning to my long-lost cozy room, I took a deep breath. The scent of lavender filled my nasal cavity, making my tense nerves relax. Before my rebirth, I rarely came back after getting married. Yet every time I returned, the room was very clean, filled everywhere with the scent of lavender. Even if I didn't come back for a very long time, she would still clean my room periodically. It's a pity that my brain didn't work very well in my past life. I noticed it but never thought carefully about why. I let out a gentle sigh, walking to the wide wardrobe, and reached out to open the wardrobe door. Clean pajamas were placed neatly inside. I smiled knowingly, taking the pajamas and walking into the bathroom. Once my nerves completely relaxed, I uncontrollably felt a wave of sleepiness. Fearing that I might fall asleep in the bathtub, I gave up on my plan of taking a comfortable bath, simply took a quick hot shower and left the bathroom. Lying down on the soft bed, I let out a comfortable sigh. It feels so good. Studying at the beautiful age of 20, going out to play with friends during free time, and living happily just to make myself pleased. Isn't this 100 times better than revolving around a woman, with my mood dictated by her at every moment? A person who has tasted the bitterness of life would never want to swallow a single bit of hardship ever again afterward. I'm currently in exactly this kind of relaxed state. I tossed and turned, thinking about what on earth I needed to do at school tomorrow. Thinking and thinking, I soon fell fast asleep. The next morning, when I got up and walked downstairs, I saw Chu Huilan making a phone call. I didn't walk over to disturb her, standing in place to listen quietly to a couple of sentences. Hearing that she was communicating with a moving company, I turned around, went over, and poured a cup of warm water. The moment she hung up the phone, I immediately handed the water cup over. "Mom, you've really worked hard." Chu Huilan glanced at me, presumably because her mood was pretty good today. She took the water cup without saying anything. My eyes spun quickly with a clever idea, and raising my hands, I gently massaged her shoulders. "Mom, I need to find a hospital for my clinical studies. Do you know anyone who works at a hospital? A doctor or anyone would do. With an acquaintance doing anything, there will be much more convenient." Chu Huilan narrowed her eyes slightly, deeply enjoying my massage service. My stomach has been feeling uncomfortable for the past few years. So I went to Tonghae Hospital to see a doctor. Don't look at how young the other party is. Their medical skills are indeed quite brilliant. After going there to see them many times, I gradually became familiar with them. Later, we added each other's private contact info, keeping in touch on and off over these years. "I can help you ask about his situation." That's truly fantastic. I knew Mom has the best social connections, able to make useful friends no matter where you go. I now deeply understand the way to get along with her. As long as I follow her lead and coax her, everything is easy to discuss. No matter how tsundere her personality is, faced with this kind of flattering and sweet talk, she would feel too embarrassed to lash out at me. She merely glared at me, without saying anything more. After eating a sumptuous breakfast, I headed out and took a car to school. I left the house rather early today. When I arrived at school, I sent a message to Lu Shubai, and he said he had only just gotten out of bed. I could only head to the lecture hall first. Going inside, I found that the seats we usually sit in had already been taken by someone else. A strange girl was sitting on the chair. I hadn't seen her in our class before. As I walked past her side, I curiously took a couple of extra glances at her. To my surprise, the girl suddenly raised her head, and the gazes of the two of us locked. I nodded to her awkwardly. "Hello?" The girl's face was full of cold indifference. Without saying a single word, she lowered her head again. Consequently, I wasn't just left feeling awkward, but it also made me look like an outsider. I frowned slightly. Although I felt a bit displeased in my heart, there was no need to bicker with an impolite person. Therefore, I didn't say anything at all, sitting down in a spot slightly further away from her. After putting away my backpack, I took out a thick anatomy book to review the knowledge content from the previous class. I am someone who can easily focus when reading, and I won't be easily disturbed by outside sounds. So by the time the surroundings became noisy, I felt interrupted, and raising my head, I saw the classroom was already packed with students. My face instantly went completely blank, because there wasn't a single person in the classroom that I recognized. My brain reacted quite fast though, realizing in just 2 seconds that I had walked into the wrong classroom. I immediately gathered my book and backpack and walked toward the door. Isn't that Mu Chen from the medical department? Why did he run over to our place? Looking at it, he probably walked into the wrong classroom, right? The corner of my mouth twitched slightly, and the steps beneath my feet quickened even more. Although I have kept an incredibly low profile after entering university, my exam results are outstanding, and my physical appearance is also quite good. Plus with Lu Shubai praising me everywhere, it is truly a bit difficult not to become famous. I ran out of the classroom door in slight panic, glancing back at the classroom door sign, and fiercely scolded myself in my heart. Clearly my sleep last night was pretty good, and I was full of energy when I got up this morning. So how could I still walk onto the wrong classroom floor? I looked at my watch while walking upstairs. Seeing that there were only 2 minutes left before class started, I seized the time to run upstairs. Finally, right as the piercing bell rang out, I happened to run to the entrance of the classroom. The professor on the podium glanced at me, merely waving his hand to signal me to come in quickly, and then prepared to start lecturing. My gaze searched around until I found Lu Shubai, and I walked over quickly to sit down next to him. "Brother Chen, didn't you arrive at school long ago? Why did you only just enter the classroom now?" Lu Shubai leaned close to my ear and asked in a low voice, "Don't even bring this up. I walked into the wrong classroom just now, and I didn't notice because I was too focused on reading." I propped up the thick book on the desk to block us, lowering my head with a face full of gloom. Lu Shubai really couldn't hold back and laughed out loud. I looked at him sternly, sending a warning with my eyes. Seeing that I was truly feeling very gloomy, he tried his best to suppress his laughter, not daring to make any more movements. The noise of the two of us whispering was a bit loud, so the old professor looked toward our side, stopped lecturing, and let out a heavy cough. The classmates in this class followed his gaze and looked over. Now this is just great. He got to experience the taste of embarrassment too. The two of us instantly became well behaved, beginning to listen attentively to the professor's lecture. As this class was about to end, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of someone walking past outside. Although it was just a fleeting glance for an instant, I would recognize this person even if he turned to ash. It was exactly Joe Zemo. Why on earth would he run over to a university? Frowning, I stared outside for a moment. The dismissal bell finally rang out. I quickly packed up my backpack, and dragging Lu Chubai, I walked straight out of the classroom. I saw Joe Zemo just now. What's the situation? Joe Zemo. Lu Chubai had a face full of surprise. Is he back from abroad? I didn't tell him this news yesterday. Firstly, because I didn't want his wild thinking brain to overthink random things. And secondly, because I feared he would clamor to settle scores with Joe Zemo. Ever since he found out I liked Lin Wanwan, Lin Wanwan liked Joe Zemo. He found Joe Zemo extremely displeasing to the eye. As long as they met, they would definitely clash for a few words. But because Lin Wanwan protected him, not only did he fail to gain any advantage every time, but he also ended up holding back a stomach full of grievances instead. Right now, as long as I dare to nod and admit it, he will dare to turn this place upside down to find him. Calm down first. Don't get excited. Lin Wanwan didn't show any reaction of protecting him at all. So don't be in such a hurry to settle scores with him yet. How can that be fine? You vented your anger, but I still have to vent mine too. It's not like you don't know about the past. How unpleasant his words were about me both on the surface and between the lines. Furthermore, the rumors spread about me outside were all secretly disseminated by him in the dark. He is just jealous of my good family background, feeling that a person with my kind of personality, who is also unmotivated, can be highly regarded and heavily relied upon just by relying on family background. He thinks this world is very unfair. Lu Shubai indeed has a bit of knack for judging people. His analysis of Joe Zemo's psychology was completely correct. No way, Lu Shubai. You're actually pretty good. I stared at him with a scrutinizing gaze, as if it were the first day I had gotten to know him. I truly underestimated you before, thinking you were just a purely happy, empty-headed young master. Go away already. Feigning anger, he raised his hand and gave my shoulder a gentle slap. Why have you become as annoying as him? All right. I was just joking. I tightly held his hand. If you were truly like what I said just now, how could you possibly pass the exam to get into H University? It's just that on many matters, you just choose not to think about so much, and your mindset is simply more pure. This is actually a good thing. He was extremely fond of hearing these words, pouting at me in a tsundere manner, and then splitting his mouth into a smile. I'll count it as you knowing how to speak properly, kid. I'll barely forgive you for teasing me. Seeing this happy look of his, I gave his shoulder a squeeze. I want to know what he came here to do. Help me out so we can go pry into the situation together. Can't we just find out with a casual inquiry? Uchibai looked around at his surroundings. He passed by here just now. Let me see who might know the inside scoop. Hey, Fanjiro, come over here for a second. A girl standing against the wall not far away cast a glance toward our side and then walked over sluggishly. Shubai, what's wrong with calling me? Fanjiro had a face full of sleepiness. I was just taking a nap. All you know how to do day in and day out is sleep. I want to ask you about someone. A man walked through the hallway just now. Did you see where he went? Fanjiro opened her eyes slightly wider, and after a few seconds of silence, she slowly spoke up. He had an onboarding form in his hand, so he should be a newly arrived teacher, right? He definitely went to the principal's office. He came to H University to be a teacher. Lu Shubai widened his eyes in disbelief. No way, right? Even he is fit to be a teacher. Why wouldn't he be fit after returning from studying abroad? My face was full of disdain. As for that school he attended abroad, anyone can get in and study as long as they have money. Who knows how much money was spent back then? And now he's returned to the country to be a teacher. Really thinking he's something great, huh? The more Lu Shubai spoke, the more indignant he felt in his heart. And after speaking, he strode right toward the stairwell. Looking at this, he was clearly going to look for trouble with him. I hurriedly reached out my hand to pull him back. Shubai, don't be in such a rush. Even if we don't go looking for him, he will come looking for us sooner or later. He turned his head to look at me with a face full of confusion. How do you know that? Yesterday, I made him lose face right in front of Wanwan. Now that he has come to H University and even become a new teacher at H University, he definitely wants to seize this chance to win back around and teach me a lesson while he's at it. The corners of my lips curled up slightly, my smile appearing exceptionally confident. I understand him very well now. Lu Shubai had always trusted me a lot, and seeing how firmly I spoke, he pouted his lips and compromised. All right then, I'll listen to you and trust you this once. We'll wait for him to actively deliver himself to our door. The next class is about to start shortly. I smiled politely at Fanjiro. Thank you. We'll head back to class first. Fanjiro nodded sluggishly. raising her hand to pat his shoulder, then walked back to her original spot to lean against the wall. Lu Shubai looked at her and muttered in a low voice, "This person is truly strange. She just likes to lean against the wall to sleep, and I don't even know if she can actually fall asleep. Her behavior like this is either a rare habit for ordinary people or it harbors some sort of purpose." I lowered my eyes to look at him, with a face full of deep meaning. "Lu Shubai, isn't it about time for you to date someone?" Fanjiro was indeed a person with a unique personality, always keeping to herself at school. Back then, I was very puzzled as to how such an eccentric person could be familiar with him. Later, I heard that she was the daughter of the fan group's chairman, that is Fan Ming's daughter from an affair. Fan Ming met with a severe car accident, and his wife and daughter were also in the car. In the end, only she was successfully resuscitated and lived. After waking up, he had people call her to the hospital bedside. What that meant was naturally self-evident. It was also starting from this moment that she began to passionately pursue Lu Shubai, and pursued him very single-mindedly. That was why I uttered these words at this time. Why are you speaking without making any coherent sense? The gaze he used to look at me was a bit strange. Also, I told you long ago, I don't want to get caught up in emotional entanglements at all. I want to spend my whole life happily alone. If there is a person who can love you for a lifetime, it will definitely be even happier than being alone, right? I shot back with a beaming smile. He shook his head. Forget it. I just don't believe in such long-lasting relationships. Even in fairy tales, the prince isn't necessarily the same person. Is that true or false? I felt exceptionally astonished. He rolled his eyes at me. If you don't believe it, go check it yourself. All right. You are the most learned. Can't I just believe you? At this moment, the bell for class rang in our ears. I decisively ended this topic, dragging him and returning quickly to the classroom. When the class was halfway through, he leaned close to my ear and asked in a low voice, when is he going to come look for us? He'll have to wait at least until this class ends. But when this class ends, it's lunch break. Under the watch of my teasing gaze, he braced himself and continued to say, we have to eat during the lunch break. My stomach is getting hungry. He is an absolute food lover who can't skip a single one of his 3 meals a day, and his mouth can't stay idle during the rest of the time either. Not letting him go eat when it's mealtime is simply more unbearable than anything. Then you go ahead and eat. I'll wait for him to come all by myself. How can that be fine? How can I just leave you alone? Am I the kind of person who doesn't care about loyalty? He spoke with absolute seriousness, as if I had been doubting him just now. I understand his personality all too well, and asking back with a hint of amusement, have you really made up your mind not to eat lunch? He clearly hadn't made up his mind yet, wanting to eat a sumptuous lunch in his heart, yet not wanting to leave me alone either. After agonizing over it for a good long while, he suddenly pulled at me with a joyful face. Didn't you say he would come find you? Then we'll just go to the cafeteria, and he'll look for us over there too. True, the two of us really didn't use our brains just now, not knowing how to be flexible at all. He packed up his backpack at lightning speed. Let's hurry up and go. If we're any later, my favorite dishes will be gone. I took a deep look at him. Who said that if we went to the cafeteria, he wouldn't necessarily look for us over there? A man who cares so extremely about status and position, striving to make himself look high-end and incomparably noble, is a man who wouldn't willingly go to a down-to-earth place like the school cafeteria. However, even if he doesn't come looking for me, I will use other ways to face him in the future. He doesn't lack this 1 or 2 chances. It's just a pity that he can't vent the grievance from back then. But I underestimated the extent of the impact of yesterday's events. When I saw him accompanied by a female teacher, walking into the crowded cafeteria, I was slightly surprised for a brief moment. Then I guessed that he might care too much, preferring to lower his status and come here just to find me and clear things up. I bit the tip of the chopsticks in my hand, my eyes curling up with a smile. Lu Chubai looked back and see who has come. He was busy stuffing his face with food, having no mind at all to listen to my words. It wasn't until Joe Zemo walked right up to us that he finally raised his eyes and cast a glance at the other party. At first he didn't react, but taking another careful look at him, he finally realized who it was and widened his eyes. Subai, long time no see. Joe Zemo's smile was gentle and elegant. His face was groomed clean and neat, wearing the latest season's premium high-end suit with an expensive watch worn on his wrist. It could be described as costing a fortune. With one look, anyone would think he's a successful figure, or a young master from an affluent family background. Isn't this young Master Joe, with such a noble status of yours? Wouldn't coming here wrong you? He immediately put down the chopsticks in his hand, not even eating his favorite meal anymore, and his entire being instantly switched into defense mode. In the past, compared to me, the actual target, Joe Zemo actually targeted him more. Just like right now, his face was full of disdain, and his words were completely merciless. Although they didn't directly get physical, the clash between their words was also very intense. Joe Zemo didn't seem to care about his cynicism, making people feel very uncomfortable every time. How could he not mind this? Joe Zemo's face looked a bit ugly. Because he was in a hurry to find me to handle yesterday's matter, he had actually forgotten about Lu Shubai's existence. In the absence of Lin Wanwan, This straightforward guy was simply a huge trouble for him. Hearing this, the female teacher who accompanied him over looked at him with a somewhat strange expression. This student, mind your manners when you speak. This is disrespectful to others, so be careful not to cause unnecessary trouble. Zhou Zimo's gaze was extremely serious, his aura appearing very full. He really had the posture of a teacher now. Unnecessary trouble. He let out a soft sneer. Having gone abroad is indeed different. Even your speech has become more confident than before. It's not just about being confident. He has also selectively forgotten about the past. Then wouldn't my wife become an outsider? All those years of affection went down the drain. I hurriedly followed up from the side. The amount of information in these words was truly a bit large. The accompanying teacher Chen had a face full of embarrassment. Teacher Zhou, are you old acquaintances with these two students? I indeed know them. Naturally, he couldn't let teacher Chen delve deeper into our words, knitting his brows to deliberately explain. However, there is a bit of misunderstanding between us, so they are speaking a bit aggressively. His expression appeared extremely calm, and he deliberately left some leeway in his words, revealing the reliability of a mature man. It could easily inspire a sense of trust. So that's how it is. A smile appeared on teacher Chen's face again, her tone carrying a few hints of protection. I knew teacher Zhou wouldn't be like that. Dignified and handsome, and behaving appropriately. Zhou Zimo's external conditions were indeed good, and he deliberately maintained his poise. Taking a casual stroll around the school, if not gaining 100% of the attention, he could at least leave a very good impression on quite a few single female teachers. Teacher Chen was naturally one of them. Hahaha, Lu Shubai let out a soft laugh, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Zhou Zimo, don't you feel a guilty conscience hearing this? A person with strong psychological quality naturally wouldn't let it show. The two of them cooperated with great tacit understanding, and their words were also spoken to strike right at his sore spot. Zhou Zimo's expression changed back and forth. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. No matter how eloquent and sharp-tongued he was still at a disadvantage. He took a deep breath, turned his head to look at Teacher Chen, and spoke with a slightly apologetic tone. Teacher Chen, thank you very much for bringing me over today. It's getting late now, so go ahead and have your lunch. I will handle the matters here myself. I actually don't mind at all. After finishing his words, he walked to the empty seat next to me, putting on a posture as if preparing to sit down for a long talk. Teacher Chen hurriedly reached out to stop him, saying with a face full of worry, Teacher Zhou, what are you still planning to sit here for? To listen to them continue saying these words. She looked at me and Lu Shubai disapprovingly, her face carrying obvious displeasure. Which major students are you? This is the newly arrived pharmacy major teacher. You should know how to respect your teachers. I didn't even look at her, faintly smiling at Zhou Zimo. Since Lin Wanwan wasn't by his side right now, he intended to use Teacher Chen as a shield. I saw through this mind of his loud and clear. He really is used to relying on others. We are clinical medicine students. You aren't a clinical medicine teacher, right? Then you aren't in charge of our department. Lu Chubai had been independent since childhood and never liked others bossing him around. He certainly wouldn't submit completely and stay silent just because of her status as a teacher. Teacher Chen belonged to the nursing major, so she indeed wasn't directly in charge of clinical medicine. A trace of embarrassment surfaced on Teacher Chen's face, but in front of Zhou Zimo, she didn't want to seem completely powerless. So she could only brace herself and say forcefully, even if I am not from your major, you are students of the school, and I am a teacher of the school. So I also have a responsibility to remind you. I don't want to argue with you about this. You fulfill your responsibility, and we will maintain our attitude all right. He picked up the chopsticks on the table, his face full of indifference. It's still quite rare for a teacher from another major to interfere in this matter. No, you should just tell us to stop talking so that the teacher beside you won't feel annoyed. He pointed out his thoughts so bluntly, making him feel exceptionally embarrassed. Zhou Zimo cast a glance at him, his brows furrowing tightly together. If he always encounters this kind of situation, he can only fall into a passive position and won't be able to seize the initiative. Only with Lin Wanwan can he have enough confidence to be taken seriously by others. Therefore, he absolutely must handle these relationships well. I will absolutely not compromise easily. Teacher Chen found it hard to say anything more about us, fearing we would say words that make it even harder for her to back down, making it even more awkward for her. Thus she advised Zhou Zimo in a gentle voice, Teacher Zhou, they are still young and impetuous. Don't lower yourself to their level. Especially for a new teacher like you. There's no need to argue with students. What kind of teacher is he anyway? My smile appeared deeply meaningful. Is it by relying on connections, or are there other channels? I've warned you. Please mind your phrasing. Zhou Zimo was truly serious this time, his tone becoming extremely solemn. Just like Teacher Chen said, I am a teacher of the school after all. Please show some basic respect. I shrugged my shoulders indifferently, the smile on my face remaining relaxed. I was just asking out of curiosity. I didn't say you are. There is absolutely no need to be this nervous. Could he not be nervous and care? If he appeared not to care, How could he make others believe that he possesses real talent and learning? Lu Shubai propped his chin up with both hands and looked at her. Teacher Chen, don't you agree? You guys are simply unreasonable. You are way too impolite toward your teacher. I really don't know how students with such a bad attitude manage to get into the medical university. It's simply a disappointment to the school. Lu Chubai turned his head to look at me. Meow. He playfully mimicked a cat's meow. I instantly understood his meaning, and the two of us lowered our heads and chuckled softly. Isn't this a textbook case of protective behavior? Joe Zemo is indeed attractive, able to win the favor of others wherever he goes, and it's always that kind of spare-no-effort protection. But thinking about it, it doesn't feel strange either. After all, his external image is indeed pretty good. A person who has a shady past always tries his best to hide it in front of those in the know. If it were just me alone, it would be fine. But adding an outspoken Lu Shubai, no matter how he explains things now, it will appear half-hearted. I originally wanted to clear up the misunderstanding between us, so everyone could stay on friendly terms in the future. Since you guys don't want to talk properly, then I have nothing more to say either. I've expressed what needed to be expressed. I hope you can grow up a bit in the future. Josimo stood up, speaking coldly. Teacher Joe, you've troubled yourself. Looking at Teacher Chen's face full of concern, he really felt it was a bit unnecessary, so he spoke up bluntly. Teacher Chen, this seemingly glamorous teacher right before your eyes, actually has an extraordinary past experience. This outfit of his costs a fortune, even far exceeding the imagination of ordinary people. That watch on his wrist is even more rare. I will tell you the brand right now, and you can go back, look it up yourself, and you'll know. So do you still feel like we are the ones looking for trouble? We are merely stating the facts. I followed up with a calm smile. Teacher Chen's expression instantly changed a bit. We had already made things so clear. If she blindly favored him in her heart, she was either naive or completely fooled by appearances. She really needed a wake-up call. After all, Teacher Chen had only just met him, merely having a good impression of him without any deep understanding. Therefore, she cast a glance at Joe Zemo, and without saying anything, turned around and left. Joe Zemo's expression looked a bit unnatural, standing in place and staying silent for a while. Teacher Joe, I know you wanted to find me to talk about yesterday's matter, hoping to use this chance to explain the situation, but you should also consider the occasion a bit. Before coming, you didn't even check who was here. After all, he is someone who specializes in curing all kinds of defiance. I teased with a face full of smiles. Of course, I won't back down easily now either. It's just that he hasn't completely accepted it himself. I have absolutely no need to hide from you. Saying he specializes in curing defiance, aren't you being a bit too exaggerated? Joe Zemo said, suppressing his emotions. I don't necessarily have to prove anything either. I will be working at H University from now on, and it's unavoidable that we'll bump into each other on campus from time to time. I just felt it was necessary to say hello. What exact subject are you teaching as a teacher? I'm truly a bit curious now. Let me ask you, did you specialize in medicine while you were abroad? His face was full of suspicion, staring at him with his eyes waiting for an answer. Joe Zemo's expression shifted slightly. I then adjusted my expression, my tone incomparably calm. I have a pharmacist qualification certificate, so I am qualified to be a pharmacy major teacher. He didn't give Lu Chubai a straight answer. Lu Chubai truly admired him. Even though he was in the wrong and lacked confidence, he could still act this composed. Don't you think your current quibbling makes you look exactly like a clown? I lowered my eyes to glance at my watch. If I were you, I would save some face for myself early on, rather than waiting until lunch break is over. Let's go first. Just as the words left my mouth, I stood up and tilted my head toward Lu Chubai, signaling him to leave together. The two of them walked side by side, striding away right in front of Joe Zemo. Joe Zemo stood in place, staring at our retreating figures with a resentful gaze, gritting his teeth in pure anger. In the past, I was timid in front of him, not daring to provoke him in the slightest. 5 years can allow a lot of things to happen, and it can also completely change a person. He wasn't surprised that things turned out this way, but he still couldn't accept it for a moment. The young master, who used to have no choice but to watch his expressions, suddenly dared to give him an attitude. Especially when facing my mocking gaze, he simply couldn't remain calm. He didn't want to let me realize that I could completely hold my head high and live my life without any fear or restraint, just like Lu Shubai. Joe Zemo closed his eyes tightly and then walked out of the cafeteria at a quick pace. Lu Shubai and I had vented our anger, so our moods were exceptionally pleasant. When the afternoon classes ended, I once again turned down Lu Shubai's invitation and went straight to the hospital. Lin Wanwan used to be a workaholic, who rarely lay down in bed every day, but now she had to be bedridden all day long. The level of her discomfort could well be imagined. I entered the hospital room in a rather good mood with a face full of smiles, which contrasted sharply with the cold-faced Lin Wanwan. Who is she showing such an ugly face to? Just don't show it to me. Otherwise, I will leave immediately, I thought to myself in secret. Lin Wanwan, who originally wanted to give me an attitude, took a deep breath and forced herself to ask in a gentle tone, "School's over." I nodded expressionless. Isn't that pure nonsense? Could I have come here if school wasn't over? It seems her brain is truly injured. Lin Wanwan went silent for a few seconds. Deeply feeling that she had become foolish from lying on the hospital bed, she felt a bit irritated. She wanted to lose her temper, but she couldn't direct her anger at me. Otherwise, if I left in a fit of anger, she would have to face that detestable caregiver again. So she could only forcefully hold back her anger. What are we eating for dinner? Right after asking, I remembered something, and immediately followed up by saying, forgot. You can only drink porridge right now. Lin Wanwan's expression turned a bit uglier once again. Drinking nothing but liquid soups for days in a row. Any human being wouldn't be able to take it. Lin Wanwan felt that her mouth had no flavor at all. Your mother will bring it over, right? I put my backpack aside. Sitting on the chair nearby, I leisurely crossed my legs. Once your mother brings it over and you finish eating, I'll head home. Is this the so-called taking care of me that you spoke of? Just watching me finish eating and then leaving? Lin Wanwan questioned in a cold voice. Otherwise, what else? I raised an eyebrow. How else do you want me to take care of you? Are you out of your mind? 3210. Lin Wanwan was completely angered into a laugh. Lin Wanwan was driven to laughter by pure anger. Mu Chen, you just wait and see. I looked up toward the ceiling. Anyway, once she can move, she'll definitely settle scores with me. Right now, having too many debts doesn't weigh me down. So, taking advantage of the fact that she can't move to anger her more is a win. Being able to infuriate her is already considered a profit. Mu Chen, do you really think you can anger me? The woman's question perfectly mirrored her inner thoughts. My heart instantly skipped a beat, and I looked at her with a guarded gaze. She couldn't possibly know what I'm thinking, right? This is absolutely impossible. It must be a mere coincidence. But this woman is truly terrifying. Someone without a sharp mind in front of her would be like a book left completely open. I don't think I can. I crossed my arms over my chest, quietly looking at the woman before my eyes. My skills are not enough yet. You got into a car accident way too early. If given another 2 years, it should work. Lin Wanwan let out a cold laugh. I didn't realize you were so quick-tongued before. Before I hadn't seen the light yet, so I was no different from a fool. Now that I've seen the light, I look much more clever. I let out a cold chuckle. This mouth of mine has received the true teachings of Chu Huilan. Trying to get the upper hand over my tongue is incredibly difficult. Whether it's Zhou Zimo or Lin Wanwan, neither of them is my match. After that, neither of us said a word, and the hospital room fell into a death-like silence, until Wen Shuzhen's arrival broke the quietness. Daughter, mom knows you have no appetite drinking porridge, so I added chicken into the porridge today. Drink a bit more, alright? Different from the past where she would always look for trouble upon seeing me, today Wen Shuzhen acted as if she hadn't seen me. It wasn't until she poured the porridge into a bowl and picked it up that she finally cast a cold glance at me. Some people sound so nice when they speak, promising that they will do this and that, but when it's truly time to act, they can't do it at all. Just as her words left her mouth, she let out a few mocking laughs. I laughed along with her, except my laugh appeared slightly honest and simple. Who is she being so passive-aggressive to? As long as I pretend not to understand, then you aren't talking about me. I will simply just not respond to it, and see if you feel uncomfortable in your heart. Lin Wanwan on the hospital bed swept a glance at me, her eyes faintly carrying a trace of a smile. Seeing that I was just happily acting foolish without talking. Wen Shuzhen grumbled in annoyance. How truly unlucky. Right, your daughter getting into a car accident? How could it not be unlucky? Can you not mention the words car accident? Wen Shuzhen barked at him in pure rage. Her beloved daughter had suffered a great ordeal, and her heart ached to death for her. She couldn't bear to hear these two words at all. All right, I made a zipping motion over my mouth, which looked even more infuriating. Wen Shuzhen took a few deep breaths, barely suppressing the rage in her heart. And grabbing my hand, she stuffed the bowl into it. Take good care of my daughter for me. This is what you said yourself, that you would take care of her until she is discharged. You are not allowed to go home tonight either. I lowered my eyes to look at the bowl in my hand, a flash of craftiness crossing my eyes. But I have to go to school. Go to school. When Xiu Zhen's expression changed. Didn't you drop out of school? Didn't you make me get a divorce? After getting divorced, what else could I do if I didn't go back to school? Fortunately, my grades are way too excellent. And the counselor didn't want to lose a person like me, so they didn't submit the dropout application. Only because of this was I able to continue returning to school to study. Otherwise, my whole life would have been ruined by a certain someone. Lin Wanwan extremely loathes it when others interfere, hating it when elders meddle in her relationships and marriage. My saying this was to give Wen Shuzhen a hard time, praising myself fiercely while I was at it, and firing back with a passive-aggressive counterattack. And as expected, Lin Wanwan's face immediately darkened, and the gaze she used to look at Wen Shuzhen was gloomy. Wen Shuzhen guiltily avoided her gaze, and then argued back with her neck stiffened. It wasn't me who made you get a divorce. He was the one who brought it up first himself. Just as her words left her mouth, she stared at me with a face full of anger. You child, how can you make up lies? I shrugged my shoulders indifferently, speaking with a calm smile. Maybe I remembered it wrong. How could I have remembered it wrong? It was clearly a deliberate statement. No matter what the situation was, this was also giving Wen Shuzhen a way out. Although Wen Shuzhen was displeased in her heart, Her face indeed looked a lot better. You stay to take care of Wanwan tonight. She can't move right now, and I don't feel reassured leaving her to others' care. When Shuzhen pointed at the bowl in my hand, I still have some matters to attend to. So you feed the porridge to Wanwan. She really made it sound so nice. Saying things like leaving her to others' care made her feel worried. If she was so worried, why didn't she take care of her herself? To put it bluntly, she just wanted to give me a hard time, deliberately not letting me have a comfortable life. Leaving her to my care is exactly what should worry her the most. Who knows if I'm in a bad mood one day? I might just settle old scores with your daughter. This time Lin Wanwan couldn't bring herself to smile after listening. She is indeed in danger right now. This is no laughing matter. My expression remained unchanged, holding the handle of the spoon as I turned to look at Lin Wanwan. Don't worry, I will take good care of her. The word good was emphasized very heavily by me. Lin Wanwan's eyes sank slightly, her face full of a warning expression. I quickly shifted my gaze away, pretending that I couldn't see anything. Seeing that I wasn't singing a different tune anymore, when Xiuzhen didn't say anything more either, turning around to grab her bag and left. When leaving, she deliberately said to Shujiaki at the door, "If he leaves, let me know." Great, now, even if I don't want to stay today, I have no choice. If I leave right now, it would be trampling Wen Xiuzhen's face to pieces. It would be a miracle if she didn't go crazy by then. After Wen Xiuzhen walked far away, I patiently fed the porridge to Lin Wanwan. During this period, neither of us said a word, and the hospital room was incomparably quiet. I noticed that she had been keeping her eyes lowered, but suddenly raised them to look behind me. With a face full of confusion, I turned my head. The woman standing behind me was tall and slender, and was standing extremely close to me. It felt like facing a wall, and caught off guard, it gave me a fright. Frowning, I looked upward, meeting a cynical face. I am very familiar with this woman. She is Lin Wanwan's cousin, the daughter of Wen Xiuzhen's younger brother. Her name is Mu Yulu. In the past, Mu Yulu was just like Lin Wanwan. Both of them extremely detested me. The reason was nothing more than feeling that I wasn't good enough. Not good enough for her idolized cousin. Every time she saw me, it would inevitably involve cold mockery and burning satire. If it were just cold mockery and burning satire, it would actually be fine. I could completely choose to turn a blind eye, as it wouldn't cause any substantial harm to me. But Mu Yulu has a crooked mind and frequently tripped me up behind my back. Therefore, I loathe her to the extreme. How did I forget about this person? In the past, I suffered quite a few losses at her hands. When I have time, I'll have to teach her a lesson too. Lin Wanwan heard my inner thoughts, and the gaze she used to look at Mu Yulu became somewhat displeased. This cousin of hers had been obnoxious since childhood, not to mention being narrow-minded and loved to hold grudges. Whoever she found displeasing to the eye, even if they hadn't offended her, she would still think of wicked tricks to play on them. She is just a dark-minded fellow. If I had indeed experienced all of that back then, I definitely wouldn't have been bullied any less by Mu Yulu. Restrain yourself for me. Lin Wanwan spoke up to warn her coldly. Hearing this first sentence upon meeting Mu Yulu to my ears, it sounded quite baffling. But Mu Yulu understood her meaning, and she raised her eyebrows with a face full of surprise, feeling it was somewhat unbelievable. Didn't her cousin detest me very much? Why is she suddenly defending me? I didn't want to directly provoke Mu Yulu, so I put the bowl on the nightstand and stood up to step aside. Lin Wanwan showed a displeased expression, speaking in an icy tone. "The porridge isn't finished yet. Eating less at night is good for the body." I gave a faint smile. Before Lin Wanwan had time to speak, Mu Yulu on the side let out a cold scoff. "I see you're just afraid of me, and don't dare to continue sitting here." "You are right, but also wrong. Haven't you noticed that when I bump into you at school, I just take a detour directly? I'm afraid that your temper is too big. My life is fragile to begin with, so if by any chance I get hit by your temper, it would be a disaster if I lost my little life." As I spoke, I gave her a slight bow. My attitude looked very flattering, but the words coming out of my mouth just didn't sound right at all. Mu Yulu's face darkened significantly. In the past, when she bullied me, I wouldn't even dare to talk back a single sentence. Now facing a counterattack for the first time, it made her feel unusually furious. "Mu Chen, don't think that just because you married my cousin, you can reach the sky in a single bound and can look down on everyone. In my cousin's eyes, you are nothing. You are absolutely nothing." Mu Yulu's words were always unpleasant to hear. I had heard these ugly words way too many times, and had completely become immune to them long ago. My expression barely shifted, still maintaining a cheerful and smiling look. "You're overthinking it. I've always had a clear understanding of myself. There is absolutely no need to tire yourself out to specifically remind me." My words sounded very pleasant at first, listen, but they just made people feel very uncomfortable in their hearts, making them want to lose their temper. But getting angry would make a person seem too petty. Mu Yulu was completely disgusted dealing with this kind of person. The best method is to strike back using the exact same method. Unfortunately, Mu Yulu didn't understand this reasoning. "I think you're just too comfortable." Mu Yulu strode quickly toward me, the expression on her face exceptionally fierce. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I will write my name backward. My expression was utterly calm, and I didn't feel afraid in the slightest, even standing in place without moving an inch. What a truly foolish child. If her causing trouble made it onto the news, not only her family, but even the Lin family would be caught up in the storm, thereby causing the company's stock price to drop. Who knows how much the losses would be by then. Hurry up and make your move. Don't dawdle. Lin Wanwan's face instantly darkened, and she shouted in a severe voice, Muyulu, are you treating me as if I don't exist? Muyulu's steps ground to a halt immediately. Turning her head, she grumbled with a slight grievance. Cousin, his words are way too unpleasant to hear. Which of you is actually the one speaking unpleasantly? Lin Wanwan found it both laughable and a headache. She looked at Muyulu with a severe gaze. Even so, you can't get physical and hit someone. I didn't plan on getting physical to hit him. Even if I Muyulu have a bad temper, it's impossible for me to hit someone randomly. Oh, she's actually quite principled. I clicked my tongue with deep regret, and with a face full of provocation, continued to press. If you didn't plan to hit me, what did you storm over here for? Don't tell me you wanted to give me a massage. Mu Chen, Muyulu's eyes turned blood red. She was simply about to be driven insane by anger. No one had ever been able to anger her to this extent. Although there is a first time for everything, she didn't want this person to be Mu Chen. On what grounds? The person who used to bow his head has not only raised his head now, but even dealt her a heavy blow. 3,492. The more Muyulu thought about it, the more uncomfortable she felt. The body wash, the more I think about it, the more uncomfortable I feel. I'm right here. There's no need to call my name so loudly. I reached out to dig at my ear, looking even more infuriating. Mu Chen, I don't know what kind of provocation you've suffered, but I am not my cousin. You better watch your step around me, Muyulu warned, gritting her teeth. Are you threatening me? I raised an eyebrow. Please don't. I'm truly terrified of a nuisance like you. I shouldn't have used that word right. I am really sorry I spoke without thinking just now. You are a bigger person, so please don't take it to heart. Isn't she almost driven crazy by anger? If you have the ability, come and hit me. In all her years growing up, she had never met this kind of person, who was actually rushing to get beaten up. Mu Chen either has something wrong with his brain now, or has developed a psychological issue. Could this be what a normal person thinks? Muyulu was indeed about to die of anger, her fists clenching and unclenching several times, her face completely written with how badly she wanted to beat him up. But no matter what, she also knew that she shouldn't just get physical, let alone in front of Lin Wanwan. Therefore, this breath bottled up in her chest, and this fire suppressed in her stomach, couldn't be released at all. The level of her discomfort could well be imagined. Seeing that she was merely staring at me fiercely, without the slightest intention of getting physical, I knew that no matter how I provoked her, it would be useless, and I instantly lost all interest. Turning around, I walked toward the water dispenser to get water. It seems I'll have to think of other ways in the future. I must teach her a profound lesson, so that she won't dare to come and provoke me again. It would be best if she takes a detour the moment she sees me. Listening to my inner thoughts, Lin Wanwan's expression turned even more gloomy. Muyulu, don't provoke him in the future. Cousin. Muyulu widened her eyes to look at her. You are actually still defending him. I don't care, he humiliated me like this today. I must make him suffer a bit. I am afraid that you are the one who will suffer. Lin Wanwan let out a barely audible sigh and didn't continue to say anything more. Perhaps it really was so. This cousin indeed needed to be taught a lesson. Her body would hurt from time to time now, so she had no energy to think about this mess. Closing her eyes, she spoke in a low voice. Go back. I need to rest. Cousin, I'll leave right away. Before leaving, I have to ask a few questions. Muyulu put away the angry look on her face and sat down on the chair with a beaming smile. Lin Wanwan opened one eye to look at her. Why? Did brother Zhou Zimo come back? Standing by the water dispenser, having a drink of water, my movements instantly paused for a brief moment. I raised my eyes and looked straight over, my ears also pricking up. If you have nothing to do, just hurry back. Lin Wanwan's expression looked extremely displeased. Compared to her cousin shifting her affection to Mu Chen, Muyulu believed more that she was just throwing a tantrum. Therefore, she lowered her head to earnestly advise her cousin. Brother Zhou Zimo has a proud nature. Coupled with the fact that Grandpa forced you to marry back then, it's only normal that he has resentment and throws a tantrum with you. He is finally willing to return to the country now, so you can't throw a tantrum along with him. What if he goes abroad again and doesn't return for several years? You'll be the one to regret it when the time comes. Exactly. If he goes abroad for another few years, the child of your cousin and me will be old enough to call him uncle. This follow-up sentence of mine was absolute gold, successfully making both of their faces turn pale, looking exceptionally ugly. How can there be someone in the world who speaks so cuttingly? It's a miracle that Mu Chen hasn't been beaten up yet. Why is everyone looking at me? I blinked my eyes innocently. Could it be that what I said is wrong? You actually still want to have a child with my cousin? You really don't look like much. But you sure dream big. Muyulu's face was completely full of ridicule. This isn't me dreaming big. Your cousin and I are a legal couple. Think about it carefully. sharing the same room every day, sleeping in the same bed at night. Sooner or later, there will be a child, unless your cousin's body isn't up for it. Just as the words left my mouth, I turned my head to look at Lin Wanwan, an ambiguous smile appearing on my face. Lin Wanwan felt fiercely humiliated, a flush of crimson surfacing on her face. This was definitely not out of shyness, but out of pure anger. She was purely driven into a rage by me. Did you perhaps forget a possibility? Lin Wanwan knitted her brows, her face completely covered in frost. I raised my eyebrows. What possibility? Isn't it just not sleeping with me? I can read that little mind of yours perfectly. How exactly can this superpower of hearing inner thoughts disappear? If it doesn't disappear, she's afraid she will lose 10 years of her life during this hospitalization. All of you get out. Lin Wanwan closed her eyes wearily. I need to rest. Cousin, you and brother Joe Zemo, can't you hear me talking? Lin Wanwan snapped her eyes open, her gaze piercingly cold and exceptionally terrifying. My relationship matters are not for you to meddle in. Take care of yourself first before talking. Anyone who knows Lin Wanwan knows that she doesn't want to hear a single word right now. Although Mu Yulu was unwilling in her heart, she still smartly chose to leave for now. After she walked far away, I pretended as if nothing had happened just now and walked into the restroom with complete composure. When I came out again, there were water stains on my face, looking at a glance like I had just washed it. I'm quite young right now, right at the age when my skin is tender and hydrated, coupled with my fair complexion and well-defined facial features. Under the light, it looked just like a peeled egg, making people unable to resist wanting to give it a pinch to see if it feels exceptionally good to the touch. Lin Wanwan stared at me intently, her eyes deep. It was precisely such a vibrant young man who had once loved her deeply with his life, with all his heart and soul. Yet she had cast him aside like a plague. She couldn't imagine what kind of treatment I had received from her in the past to voice such sorrowful inner thoughts in the dead of night. Lin Wanwan's mood was extremely complicated, but I didn't have that many thoughts. Right now, I just wanted to get a good night's sleep and go to class tomorrow full of energy. All the way until I lay down on the bed and climbed into the blanket. During this entire process, I didn't give Lin Wanwan a single glance. She had completely become transparent in my eyes. He had completely treated her as if she were air. A trace of displeasure appeared in Lin Wanwan's eyes, and she let out a gentle cough, trying to attract my attention. I still showed her a bit of face, turning my head to look at her. What's wrong? Is your throat uncomfortable? Lin Wanwan coughed a few more times. Pour me some water to drink. I had only just lain down and was truly unwilling to trouble myself to get up. But staying here, it wouldn't do if I didn't get up. So with a face full of reluctance, I got out of bed, poured a cup of water, and after returning my movement in feeding her, water was very rough. It could no longer be called feeding her water, but rather forcefully pouring water down her throat. Cough. Yu Mu-chen. Finally, under my unremitting efforts, Lin Wanwan's defense completely failed, and she was choked into a violent fit of coughing. Sorry, I was too sleepy and spaced out a little bit. This apology had no sincerity to speak of, with a face completely written with, I did it on purpose. This is for deliberately giving me a hard time. Let's see if you still dare to do it in the future. It'd serve you right if you choke to death. My inner thoughts could be described as exceptionally malicious. Fire was practically bursting from Lin Wanwan's eyes. Just as she was about to speak up to teach me a lesson, I suddenly saw something, and froze right in place. After a few seconds passed, she laughed out of extreme anger. Mu-chen, what are you doing with my face towel? I glanced at the light blue towel on the doorknob and answered nonchalantly, wiping my feet. That is used to wipe my face. The caregiver had been using it to wipe her face every day for the past few days, so she simply couldn't be more familiar with it. I put on an exaggerated expression of surprise. Oh, I didn't know. When I stayed here a few days ago, I also used it to wipe my feet. Don't tell me you... I didn't finish my sentence, but covered my mouth and looked at her with a disgusted yet pitiful gaze. Lin Wanwan didn't say a single word, merely looking at me with an icy gaze. Without knowing how much time had passed, the corners of her mouth slowly curled upward, and she let out an ambiguous laugh. I suspected whether she had been driven completely crazy by anger. If by any chance I truly drove her crazy, and she insisted on crawling up to deal with me, it would be bad. Maybe I should restrain myself a bit. I was joking. Don't take it seriously. Lin Wanwan didn't believe my nonsense at all. With a gloomy face, she shouted loudly, Shujaki, come in. My face instantly turned rigid, and a bad premonition arose in my heart. This woman is definitely up to no good. Kujaki had been standing outside the door all along, and upon hearing the voice, she pushed the door open and walked in. Her gaze swept across my face, a faint smile flashing in her eyes. Miss Lin? Kujaki walked over to the side of the hospital bed and stood still, bowing slightly. What are your orders? Starting from today, keep a close eye on that man behind you. You are not allowed to let him leave the hospital even a single step. Upon hearing this, my hair instantly stood on end and I raised my voice to question her. On what grounds are you restricting my personal freedom? On the grounds that I am your legal wife. Lin Wanwan let out a cold laugh. Even if I weren't, If I don't want you to leave the hospital, what can you possibly do about it? I was so angry that I became tongue-tied for a moment. Using power to suppress people is completely meaningless. Can't afford to play. Can you? This was the first time she saw me speechless, so her mood instantly improved a lot. Whenever you learn to behave yourself, I will let you leave. Otherwise, just wait until I'm discharged and leave together with me. I narrowed my eyes slightly, wondering how the original host was so blind to fall for her back then. Could it be purely because she looks good? Before my rebirth, I didn't think so. But looking at it now, it's mostly the case. Because after removing the filter, I found out that besides looking good, she is simply completely worthless. After Lin Wanwan finished listening to my inner thoughts, her eyes couldn't help but dim. She understood that I resent her very much right now, and her using this method would only make me hate her more. But I am consistently like a hedgehog firmly protecting my fragile heart. Whoever touches it gets pricked and my whole body is full of aggressiveness. She had already tried the gentle approach, but I was unwilling to speak to her properly. So right now, she could only resort to this worst-case strategy. First, keep the person by her side, and not let me run around everywhere. Boil the frog in warm water and take it slow. Sooner or later, she can get me to calm down and communicate. Fine, you're amazing. What else can I do? I can only sit back on the bed and completely start to slacking off. Then I won't go to school anymore. I'll focus on taking care of you right here. I looked at Lin Wanwan, tilting my head with a smile as I continued to add, I guarantee I'll take excellent care of you. When you're discharged, it'll be like you never got into a car accident. This was absolutely sarcasm. It would be a miracle if Lin Wanwan couldn't hear it. But her expression didn't change at all, as she calmly nodded and replied, Great, I hope you keep your word. At this moment, I wasn't thinking about anything in my head, so Lin Wanwan couldn't figure out my thoughts either, and didn't say anything more. I lay down on the bed once again, turning on my side to stare at the wall while silently gritting my teeth. Wicked woman imprisoning me, are you? Then you just wait and see. Don't even think about having an easy time before you're discharged. You trapped me and ruined my life before, but this time, no matter what, I won't let you order me around. Lin Wanwan, who was listening to my inner thoughts, knitted her brows. Trapped once and ruined a life? Where exactly was he trapped? Lin Wanwan kept listening while harboring doubts, but she didn't gain any valuable information. She tilted her head to look at the other bed, seeing that I had turned around at some point to face her directly. My eyes closed as I was already dozing off. She gritted her teeth in pure frustration. She was wondering what I had gone through before, thinking until her head ached severely. Yet I, on the other hand, had just fallen straight asleep. He really is unbelievably thick-skinned. Lin Wanwan sulked by herself for quite a while, before closing her eyes, and slept through the night without any dreams. When I got up in the morning, Lin Wanwan was still fast asleep. I glanced at the phone on the nightstand, picked it up, and turned it on directly. Please bring my songs back to your home. Please leave your smile behind for tomorrow. The singing echoed loudly throughout the hospital room. Lin Wanwan, who was fast asleep, knitted her brows, and very quickly opened her eyes. With a face full of hostility, she looked at me. What do you think you're doing? Listening to songs, I said with a face full of smiles. I have a habit of listening to songs when I get up. I'm really so sorry, I must have disturbed you, right? Since you knew it would disturb me, why did you still play it? Lin Wanwan hated that she couldn't move. Otherwise, she would definitely get up and choke me to death. I shrugged my shoulders indifferently. I'm usually alone when I get up, so I forgot about your existence for a moment. Lin Wanwan took a deep breath. A big living person was lying right across from him. Yet, I could actually say this kind of words. That's right, I did this completely on purpose. Turn it off for me, Lin Wanwan ordered in a cold voice. Since you're already awake, why should I bother turning it off? Just listen to the song with me for a while. Listening to songs can make a person's mood pleasant, and when you're pleased, your body recovers faster. I am doing this for your own good. If Lin Wanwan couldn't hear his inner thoughts, perhaps she really would have believed this nonsense, because she wouldn't let him leave the hospital. This man was cursing her to death in his heart as revenge. I have plenty of time to make you behave. Lin Wanwan let out a cold laugh. Let's see who can last longer. My gaze instantly turned sharp, and I didn't want to talk anymore. Does she not know how to do anything else besides threatening? Lin Wanwan curled the corners of her mouth. Never mind whether she knew how to do anything else. As long as this trick worked and could make me shut up, that was enough. Xiujaki delivered meals punctually at 7 o'clock every day. As soon as the time arrived, Xiujaki knocked on the room door. Lin Wanwan looked toward the door of the hospital room. Come in. Just as her words fell, the room door was gently pushed open. Xiujaki placed the thermal box on the nightstand, then leaned forward slightly and said to Lin Wanwan, Miss Lin, there is a document that requires your review. Lin Wanwan gave a calm nod. Staring at Xiujaki, I asked curiously, are you the one guarding outside every single day? Don't you ever need to rest? I don't guard here all the time. I have colleagues who take turns with me to guard. After Xiujaki opened the file, she turned her head and replied softly, then that really is a coincidence. Every time I come, you are always the one here. The smile on my face was incredibly sweet, looking handsome and moving under the sunlight. Lin Wanwan cast a glance at me, feeling somewhat uncomfortable in her heart, But she didn't say much about it either. Shujaki held the document, and as soon as Lin Wanwan finished reading a page and nodded, she would turn the page accordingly. A document was very quickly finished being reviewed. Sign it on my behalf. Lin Wanwan's voice was flat. Yes. Shujaki closed the document and was just about to turn around and leave. I tilted my head up to look at her. Have you had breakfast? I've eaten. Shujaki paused for a moment, then politely added another line, thank you for your concern, sir. I smiled, and didn't continue to say anything more. Shujaki, what are you standing here for? Lin Wanwan looked at the two of us with displeasure. Shujaki didn't dare to stay any longer, nodding to me before walking out of the hospital room. Why be so fierce? The host felt a bit of sympathy for Shujaki for having such a boss. Lin Wanwan smiled. She was driven to a laugh by pure anger from me. From my perspective, her sudden smile was honestly quite terrifying. With a face full of disgust, I turned my face to the side. Lin Wanwan's stomach was filled with anger by me, and she announced in a cold voice, Mu Chun, starting from now, focus entirely on taking care of me. If I am not satisfied, I will absolutely not get discharged from the hospital. You doing this is completely meaningless. My expression was exceptionally ugly. Josimo has returned to the country. Why don't you hurry up and let him take care of you? Instead of insisting on holding on to me and not letting go, Lin Wanwan sneered, because it makes me happy. A mocking smile appeared on my face. I think you just can't bear to let him tire himself out. Lin Wanwan, can you be any more pretentious? So only your Josimo is a human being, and I'm not a human being, right? Lin Wanwan admitted that this could definitely anger him. But she didn't want me to loathe her even more, so she slowly shook her head. I just think you are more useful. I am more useful. What the hell? The expression on my face was hard to describe. Lin Wanwan, did the doctor say there's something wrong with your head? If they said there's no problem, I feel like it might be a misdiagnosis. You can rest assured, my head is perfectly fine. Lin Wanwan curled her lips into a smile. It's absolutely more than enough to deal with you. Lin Wanwan's eyes are narrow and long. When she doesn't smile, she gives people a very cold feeling, looking like someone you absolutely shouldn't mess with. But once she smiles, she appears charming and extraordinarily captivating. Back then, I fell in love at first sight because of this smile. Every time I saw Lin Wanwan, I hoped she could smile at me. Unfortunately, Lin Wanwan didn't like to smile. And even when she did, she only smiled at Josimo. When facing me, she always maintained a cold face. Therefore, I hate her smile now. It was this smile that dragged me into a predicament, dooming me eternally from then on. My mood suddenly became extremely terrible. Avoiding her gaze, I said in a cold voice, whatever you say. I'm going to wash up. As my words fell, I turned around, walked quickly into the restroom and closed the door. I stood in front of the sink, turned on the faucet to the cold water, scooped up a handful of water and splashed it onto my face. The harm suffered in the past was too deep. Even if I have moved on now, that harm was real and tangible, incapable of disappearing at all, requiring a lifetime to heal. I can't go on like this anymore. I should maintain a far enough distance and never be influenced by her even a single bit again. I just need to patiently endure until she is discharged from the hospital. From then on, she can cross her sunny broad road, while I walk across my single log bridge. We won't interfere with each other. After making up my mind, I finished washing up and walked out of the restroom, coming over to the nightstand. With an expressionless face, I opened the thermal food box, getting ready to feed Lin Wanwan her meal. Everything I had thought about in the restroom just now had been completely heard by Lin Wanwan. Staring at me with a complicated expression, she wanted to say something, but under the current situation where I am extremely resistant, there was truly nothing much she could say. After thinking it over back and forth, she chose silence. I strictly followed my decision from just now, honestly feeding Lin Wanwan her meal, without saying a single word during the entire period. The two of us fell into a bizarre silence, with no sign of breaking it. After finishing feeding Lin Wanwan, I opened the other food box and began to eat. After I finished eating, I looked at Lin Wanwan and spoke up calmly. It won't do if I don't go to school for a long time. You should be able to handle that for me, right? Lin Wanwan nodded, saying she would have Shujaki go pull some strings. This kind of matter was just a trivial thing to her. A simple word would suffice. This is the benefit of having wealth and power. It can solve 99% of your troubles. The remaining ones are just because you aren't wealthy and powerful enough. Thanks. I stood up from the chair. I'm going to find the nurse to get the medicine. The nurse will come over by herself in a moment. As if I hadn't heard her words at all, I turned around and walked straight out, only wanting to minimize sharing the same space with her as much as possible. Otherwise, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to resist mocking her. Interacting less with Lin Wanwan will be my motto during this period of time. A man in a suit was standing outside the hospital room. I recognized him. He was the secretary who had been by Lin Wanwan's side for many years, named Xu Hua. Upon seeing me, Xu Hua didn't even have a smile on his face, merely nodding at me tokenistically without the slightest intention of greeting me. His reason for detesting me was both the same and different from Mu Yulu's. The same was that he felt I wasn't good enough. The difference was that he felt he himself was good enough. I can't figure it out. Even though the Mu family has fallen into poverty, I am at least still a young master. My looks aren't bad either, and my educational background is quite high. Where exactly am I not good enough for Lin Wanwan? I can't figure out why so many people feel that way. Could it be that I am actually very terrible? It's just that I haven't realized it myself. No matter how terrible I am, I'm still better than the man in front of me, right? On what grounds does he think I'm not worthy, but he is? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got in my heart. I originally wanted to just walk past him, but then I changed my mind. I stopped right in front of him, an ambiguous smile playing on my face. The smile made Shuhua feel uncomfortable, and he took a step backward. Frowning, he asked, "Is there something you need? Don't you need to introduce yourself?" Shuhua let out a mocking laugh, the gaze he used to look at me being extremely contemptuous. Even though he didn't say anything, I also understood his meaning. "Are you even worthy?" I raised my hand and pinched the work badge on his chest. "Shu Tai, my name is Shu Hua." Zhu Hua forcefully slapped my hand away. "I didn't expect someone who got into H University to be illiterate. I'm truly worried for your future patients. I hope you'll be among them." I struck back with a beaming smile. Zhu Hua's gaze turned gloomy, and he waved his hand with a face full of irritability, just like shooing away a fly. "If there's nothing else, please leave. Don't disrupt my work." "You call this working?" I opened my mouth wide in surprise. "Are you the janitor, uncle?" I looked around back and forth, my face full of confusion. "Where are the cleaning tools then?" "Mu Chen," Shuhua shouted my name in anger. "If you're sick, hurry up and go to the psychiatry department. I don't have time to engage in a war of words with you. Do you think everyone is as free as you? And do you think everyone has a great temper?" My expression suddenly became cold and sharp, and my aura shot up instantly. He is merely a secretary by my wife's side. On what grounds does he have such an arrogant attitude? Could he be my wife's lover? Which is why he is so full of confidence. "Mr. Mu, please watch your words. President Lin and I are completely innocent and clean, and I won't tolerate your slander." Xu Hua's face was full of anger. "So he's just purely audacious, right?" I let out a cold laugh, leaning my face close to his ear. "I admire your courage, but unfortunately I don't like it. Please recognize your own identity. Be more respectful when you see me in the future. Otherwise, I'll have you kicked out of the company and never be able to stay by President Lin's side again." Xu Hua's expression instantly changed. I took a step backward, returning to my beaming, smiling appearance. "I'm not trying to scare you." Xu Hua took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "I am President Lin's person. What right do you have to decide whether I stay or leave? If you don't believe me, you can give it a try. Although I don't have the right, I do have the ability." After finishing my words, I left without looking back. I can tolerate Lin Wanwan and Zhou Zimo, but there's no need to tolerate a minor Xu Hua. If he dares to make things unpleasant for me, I'll make him feel even more miserable. When I came out, I didn't actually plan on looking for a nurse. After going downstairs to buy a can of coffee, I sat on a chair facing the main entrance, drinking water while observing the outside. I wondered if there were Lin Wanwan's people outside. I just stood up halfway but sat back down. There probably were, for the most part. Since Lin Wanwan had given the order, Jujaki would definitely follow it strictly. But being trapped in the hospital just like this, I really felt somewhat unwilling in my heart. I drank the remaining coffee in one gulp, crushed the coffee can, and walked toward the entrance. Even if there are people guarding outside, I still want to go and test it out myself. Once I've tested it, I'll completely give up on the idea, saving myself from constantly dwelling on it and feeling bad. "Sir, please go back." As expected, my guess was right. One of my feet hadn't even stepped out of the main entrance before a man appeared to block me. I silently pulled my foot back and spoke to him with a fake smile. "You really are dedicated to your job. Keep up the good work." "You flatter me, sir." "Do you really think I'm praising you?" A mass of frustration accumulated in my chest, which I couldn't swallow down or vent out, making it simply terribly uncomfortable. I stood in place to compose myself for quite a while before walking away. When passing by the trash can, I threw the coffee can in with a vicious toss, then went upstairs and entered Lin Wanwan's hospital room. The nurse was currently changing her dressing. I swept a glance over her body, my brow furrowing slightly. An injury like this will definitely leave a scar once healed. I wonder if it can even fully recover. Why am I thinking about all this random nonsense? Whether she keeps a scar or not, what does it have to do with me? There's really something wrong with my brain. Maybe I just feel that her face and body can truly be considered top tier, just like a perfect work of art. So leaving a flaw is honestly a bit of a pity. Thinking about it this way, my expression looked a bit better. I felt a bit thirsty from drinking coffee, so I walked over to the water dispenser and poured a cup of water. The nurse turned her head over to look me up and down, and my gaze just happened to collide with hers. Seeing this, I let out a chuckle, unable to resist running my mouth again. "Is my nominal wife beautiful?" The nurse was completely dazed by my question. Only after a few seconds did she nod blankly. "I'll give her to you then. No need to be polite." "You really know how to joke, sir?" The nurse felt incredibly embarrassed. I realized I was talking too much, so I quickly shut my mouth tightly and stopped speaking. Putting down the water cup, I lay down on the sofa. Lin Wanwan opened her eyes and stared at the nurse. "Hurry up!" Her tone sounded very impatient. The nurse immediately picked up her pace, manifestly more than 3 times faster than before. After finishing changing all the dressing, she practically fled from the hospital room. Look at how scared that little girl was. Only I had a huge amount of courage back then, not being scared away by this terrifying woman. Otherwise, who would dare to like her? Living with her, one would be constantly afraid of being frightened. Veins popped up on Lin Wanwan's forehead. I wonder if Joe Zemo truly likes her, or just treats her as a tool to change his destiny. If it's the latter, I can only say her life is too tragic. But this is also what she deserves. Moo Chin, the woman's cold, sharp voice gave me a start. I violently bounced up into a sitting position from the sofa, looking at her with a face full of daze. What did you suddenly shout my name so loudly for? Lin Wanwan couldn't possibly say she heard his inner thoughts. But throwing a tantrum at me without saying anything, in my eyes, is just being completely unreasonable. It's simply baffling, just like a short-tempered maniac. My face turned red from frustration for a moment. Do you actually have something to say or not? I already felt she was being completely baffling. Lin Wanwan swallowed her anger unwillingly. The gaze I used to look at her became full of disdain. She's truly sick. I didn't want to pay any more attention to this woman, so I turned over and lay back down. For the next few days, I endured whatever I could endure, never saying a single word of nonsense. Lin Wanwan seemed to understand my thoughts, so she didn't try to communicate with me anymore. It wasn't until Lin Wanwan could move around that I started to feel somewhat uneasy, my whole body putting up defensive thorns again. Whenever I caught an opportunity, I would deliberately provoke her a bit. This was actually what she was glad to see. At least I was willing to talk to her. As long as there was still communication between us, even if it wasn't friendly, it was still a good thing. It meant there was still a possibility to break the deadlock. Otherwise, if we kept up the silent treatment like before, it would just stay this way for the rest of our lives. On the day of the Mid-Autumn Festival, the doctor said she could try to get out of bed on her own. Wen Xiuzhen was very happy upon finding out. Arriving at the hospital early in the morning, she was happy in her heart, so she didn't sneer mockingly at me anymore upon seeing me, though her expression wasn't particularly pleasant either. I didn't care about it in my heart at all. Thrusting the peeled apple into her hand, I spoke in a flat tone. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival. You have to let me go home to celebrate the festival, right? You can. Lin Wanwan originally intended to let me leave, so she agreed exceptionally readily. I was practically about to go stir-crazy here. Seeing that she agreed, I immediately turned it around and left, my steps moving incredibly fast, as if someone were chasing me from behind. Once I walked out of the hospital room, Wen Xiuzhen withdrew her gaze and asked Lin Wanwan with a serious face, "Daughter, Mom doesn't want to interfere in your relationship. I just want to ask what you are thinking right now." Lin Wanwan raised her eyelids. What? Are you no longer planning to divorce Mu Chen? I don't have that plan for the time being. Wen Xiuzhen wasn't surprised by this answer. She wasn't a fool. How could she not tell during this period of time that her own daughter had become interested in Mu Chen? It was just that she couldn't figure it out in her heart. Her daughter clearly loathed him before, so how could her attitude suddenly change? Besides, wasn't the person she liked Joe Zemo? If you don't want to divorce, then don't. Wen Xiuzhen hesitated for a moment, then continued to speak. It's just that Mom truly doesn't like him, and that Joe Zemo, I don't like him either. If possible, you'd better find someone of equal social standing, who can provide help to you in your career. Lin Wanwan knew she was going to say these things, a trace of gloominess flashing across her face. I am not a useless piece of trash who can achieve nothing in her career without a man's help. Mom doesn't mean it that way. Mom is just... Wen Xiuzhen didn't say the rest of her words, which turned it into a helpless sigh. Forget it, do as you see fit. Lin Wanwan pursed her lips tightly, not continuing to speak anymore. The mother and daughter usually had nothing to talk about, and after facing each other in silence for a few minutes, Wen Xiuzhen pulled out her phone to chat. On this side, after leaving the hospital, I went straight home. Mu Xiaobi is in her senior year of high school this year. With the college entrance examination approaching, her studies are extremely stressful. In order to save commuting time, she simply chose to live at school. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival, so since the high school is on holiday, she will definitely come home. The relationship between us siblings is very good, and I really love this sensible younger sister. Perhaps because we were both neglected by Chu Huilan, we share the same plight, and naturally became a bit closer. Not having seen her for such a long time, I missed her dearly in my heart. Entering the house door, I called out her name. Mu Xiaobi poked her head out from the second floor, and I quietly looked at her. I felt a moment of daze. Before I was sent to the nursing home, she was already about to graduate from college, having grown into a young woman. Seeing her youthful teenage appearance again now gives me a very surreal feeling. When did you get back? I quickly snapped out of it, smiling as I waved to my sister upstairs. Hurry up and come down. Let your brother look at you. Mu Xiaobi immediately ran downstairs, and when she reached me, she opened her arms wide and hugged me tightly, nuzzling her face against my shoulder. Brother, I missed you so much. Brother missed you too. I gently patted the back of her head, speaking in a gentle voice to ask, studying at school must have been exhausting, right? Mu Xiaobi smiled and shook her head. It's not exhausting. Even if it were exhausting, you wouldn't say it. I know you best. Don't push yourself too hard either. Rest when it's time to rest. Your health is what matters most. I know. Mu Liheng walked out of the restroom, looking at the siblings hugging each other, a gratified smile appearing on his face. However, Chu Huilan, who came out of her room, saw this heartwarming scene downstairs, and not only didn't smile, but instead knitted her brows tightly. Xiaobei, cling less to your brother when you're at home. You aren't even this close to me. People who don't know any better would think he's your father. These words of hers were indeed a bit harsh. Mu Liheng was displeased in his heart, raising his head to shout at her loudly. Huilan, it's a big festival. Why are you speaking so harshly? If it's harsh, then don't listen. Chu Huilan glared at him viciously. Stop yelling at me. If you lose your temper at me again, none of us will celebrate this festival anymore. Mu Xiaobi let go of me, turning her head to look at her with a face full of dissatisfaction. Can you stop acting like this? The young girl inherited Chu Huilan's looks, growing up to be exceptionally beautiful. Even with an ordinary school uniform on her body, she still managed to pull off a fashionable look, practically like a lead character walking right out of a manga. It was Dad who shouted at me first. Chu Huilan, facing this beautiful face, she rarely could say anything harsh, so she just tattled on Mu Liheng. You were the one who spoke harshly to begin with, and now you won't even let others talk back. Mu Xiaobi retorted with a cold face. Chu Huilan's eyes widened instantly. Mu Xiaobi, you actually dared to lecture me. Have you turned rebellious or something? Mu Xiaobi stayed silent in a huff. In the past, I definitely would have thought my mother was looking for trouble on purpose, but now I know it's because she feels lost. She wants to gain her daughter's attention, but she doesn't know how to go about it. On top of that, her personality is stubborn and she refuses to yield, which is why she has these behaviors of picking fights. At this moment, I had to take the initiative to step forward. Mom, I know you're worried about me being tired, and that Xiaobei clinging to me like this won't let me get proper rest. Dad and Xiaobi just didn't understand your good intentions. It's a major festival, so let's not dwell on it. I provided this opening for her to step down perfectly. Chu Huilan stared at me for a good while, then let out a cold snort. I can't be bothered to dwell on it with them. As long as you're not angry anymore, that's fine. I plan to cook a few dishes myself. Come to the kitchen and help me out, okay? As I rolled up my sleeves, I looked toward Mu Liheng and spoke, Dad, I recently learned a few dishes, and after trying to make them a few times, I feel the taste is actually quite good. Today, I must have you all taste them. You actually learned to cook. Mu Liheng laughed heartily after hearing this. All right, then I'll just sit and wait to see how my son's culinary skills turn out. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. In the past, in order to curry favor with Lin Wanwan's family, I put a great deal of effort into my cooking skills. While I won't say I can compare to a 5-star chef, it can definitely be considered quite good. So Mu Liheng certainly won't be disappointed. You brats, you dare to order me around now? Chu Huilan said as she walked downstairs, poking my forehead with her finger. Although she was so full of disdain with her words, she still followed me into the kitchen anyway. Only my father and younger sister were left in the living room, the two of them sitting on the sofa, chatting, eventually bringing up the matter of Lin Wanwan's car accident. Mu Xiaobi's face turned somewhat cold. Yeah, Mom already told me about it. That Lin Wanwan actually dismissed the caregivers and forced my brother to take care of her all by himself. Isn't this clearly bullying him? She just looks down on your brother and deliberately seized the opportunity to bully him. Mu Liheng picked up the cigarette pack on the coffee table, feeling worried whenever this marriage was mentioned. Are we just going to watch helplessly as my brother gets bullied? Mu Xiaobi's pitch went up, her emotions turning a bit agitated. Keep your voice down. Mu Liheng's brows were almost twisted into a knot. I also feel bad for your brother, but you also know how much he loves Lin Wanwan. If we go to demand an explanation and make Lin Wanwan unhappy, the one who suffers in the end will still be your brother. Mu Xiaobi clenched both of her hands into fists, speaking through gritted teeth. Back then, we should have stopped him no matter what, and absolutely never let him marry that woman. If I had stopped him from marrying her, he would have dared to go on a hunger strike for me to see. Otherwise, do you think I would have agreed? Mu Liheng took a deep drag of his cigarette. Letting him suffer some hardships might be good. Once he can't take it anymore, he'll naturally divorce her. Mu Xiaobi's expression remained unpleasant. I hope it really turns out that way. Inside the kitchen, I was completely unaware, not knowing that my family was currently worrying about me. I finished chopping a bowl of green vegetables and handed it to Chu Huilan for her to wash. Just by looking at my expression, one could tell I was in a very good mood. So happy that I was just short of humming a song. Chu Huilan turned her head and glanced at me. What is making you so happy? I'm back home, so of course I'm happy. I answered with a beaming smile. Just because of this alone is enough to make me happy. I lowered my eyes, sighing softly. No place is as good as home, and nowhere is better than being by my family's side. That is indeed the truth. I thought she wouldn't let you leave today. It seems she's still somewhat human. Chu Huilan stopped her vegetable chopping action, her face full of confusion. I really don't get what Lin Wanwan is thinking. Hasn't Zhou Zimo returned to the country? Why doesn't she let him accompany her every day, but instead makes you guard her in the hospital? How would I know? I also find it completely baffling. In the past, she found it annoying to even cast an extra glance at me. I don't know which wire got crossed in her brain from this car accident. No matter which nerve of hers got crossed, since you've decided to take back your feelings and are determined to divorce her, you must not be deluded by her again and eagerly run off to curry favor with her mom. I know. Unless there is something wrong with my brain, or I have a severe masochistic tendency, only then would I fall for her again. Seeing that I hadn't wavered in the slightest even up till now, Chu Huilan nodded with satisfaction. It's for the best that you think this way. Besides her, there are plenty of other good women out there. You didn't say it like that before. Aren't you being a bit too fickle? I bumped her shoulder gently, unable to resist speaking up to tease her. Before I saw that you loved her too much, and I was afraid you would regret it later after getting a divorce, which would be too late by then. Now that I see you've truly given up, getting a divorce as soon as possible is the best thing. Probably because I had been coaxing her all along. She was now willing to speak her heartfelt words. Chu Huilan and I chatted while we worked, our movements exceptionally agile. I only planned to make 3 signature dishes, leaving the rest for the family maid to handle. After all the ingredients were washed and chopped, I began to stir-fry the dishes skillfully. There wasn't much left for Chu Huilan to help with, so she stood aside watching me busying myself. I chatted with her while stir-frying, and the smile on my face never vanished. Why are you so happy? Chu Huilan asked with a smile. Being able to spend the festival together with family and being able to let you all eat the food I made, of course I feel happy. Chu Huilan pursed her lips gently, lowering her eyes and remaining silent. She actually had no concept of the word home. When she was a child, her life was extremely miserable. Her father was a short-tempered, wretched gambler, and her mother couldn't take it, abandoning her and leaving. The collectors came to the door every day, demanding money, and the house was frequently smashed into a total mess. Her father stayed away all day to avoid debts, and even when he did come back, he would only vent his anger on her. She suffered endlessly just to survive, not even uttering a sound when her ribs were broken. For a person surviving in this kind of environment, they would either go crazy or become completely numb. She fled that home when she was 14 years old, completely cutting off the shackles of the past. She had never known what a normal family looked like, coupled with the fact that later on, in order to survive, she clad herself in thick armor and equipped herself with the sharpest weapons. So after getting married, whether toward her husband or her children, she always behaved very coldly. How can someone who has never been properly loved know how to love someone else? I glanced at her while handling the cooking, seeing her leaning against the wall, staring blankly at one spot, not knowing what was going on in her mind. I smiled with kind intent and didn't make a sound to disturb her. Who knows how much time passed before Chu Huilan pulled herself out of her memories, rolled up her sleeves, and walked toward the refrigerator. Then I'll also make 2 dishes. My eyes instantly lit up upon hearing this, and I immediately turned my head to look at her. Mom, then you must really show off your skills. I hasn't eaten your cooking in a very long time. Have I ever cooked for you before? Chu Huilan's face was full of confusion. Ever since she married into the family and became a rich lady, she seemed to have never stepped into the kitchen again. The smile on my face instantly stiffened. Lowering my eyes, I said softly, of course you have, but it was many years ago, so you probably don't remember it anymore. Chu Huilan nodded slightly. Thinking that she really had forgotten about it, she didn't dwell on it much further. I quickly turned my head back and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. At this specific point in time after my rebirth, I indeed hadn't eaten her cooking yet. Back then, when I suffered an immense grievance, I ran back to my parents' home to cry and complain, and she, without a second word, went into the kitchen to cook for me. At that time, she asked me if I wanted a divorce, but I shook my head and refused without any hesitation. The me back then was truly way too foolish. Unfortunately, at that time, I was so infatuated with love that I was practically possessed, completely losing my sanity. What are you dazing off for? I had been dazing off for too long, and the soup in the pot was almost boiling dry. Chu Huilan quickly nudged my arm. I snapped out of it instantly, hurriedly grabbing the kettle to add water into the pot. I got too caught up in my thoughts. Were you thinking about the divorce? No. A faint smile curled on the corners of my mouth. He and I are going to get a divorce sooner or later anyway, so there's nothing to feel conflicted about. I just feel that my past self was too ridiculous. Who hasn't done foolish things when they were young? Stop letting your mind wander. From now on, just plan your life well. I know. I reached out to put my hand on her shoulder, speaking with a beaming smile. I promise from now on I'll listen to everything Mom says. Facing my sudden intimacy, Chu Huilan appeared very unaccustomed, feeling somewhat at a loss as to what to do. Thus she pulled her arm away and said very awkwardly, cut it out with this routine. It's truly sickeningly sweet. Do you really dislike me clinging to you? I reached out to place my hand on her shoulder again, pressing further with a grinning smile. I dislike it. Chu Huilan said she disliked it with her mouth, but this time she didn't pull her arm away again. I smiled with satisfaction and didn't continue to say anything more. In the end, she and I each made 3 dishes, while the family maid prepared 2 cold dishes. 8 delicious dishes were laid out on the table, and I went to the living room to call them over to eat. Mu Liheng came in and saw the full table of food, asking with a face full of shock, "My dear son, could it be that you made all of this? If I made this many dishes all by myself, you wouldn't even be able to eat by the time it gets dark." I pointed to the dishes on the table. "These 3 dishes were made by me." I then pointed to the other 3 dishes. "These 3 were made by mom herself, and the rest were done by Auntie Lin." "What did you say? Your mom actually went into the kitchen and cooked?" Mu Liheng's eyes practically popped out. I didn't hear wrong, did I? In all his years of marriage, he had never eaten a meal cooked by his wife. Now he had finally waited for this day to come. Aside from his shock, he was full of excitement. "You didn't hear wrong? It was indeed made by mom," I answered with a face full of smiles. This is truly raining from a clear sky. I've really witnessed a miracle today. Mu Liheng sat down on the chair excitedly, slapping his thigh with joy. This is truly too rare. Chu Huilan was made both embarrassed and annoyed by him, snapping in a harsh voice, "Mu Liheng, why do you have so much nonsense to say just for a meal? Right, I'll shut up and just eat properly." Mu Liheng couldn't wait to pick up his chopsticks, wanting to taste his wife's culinary skills. After everyone had taken their seats, he immediately picked up a piece of food with his chopsticks and quickly stuffed it into his mouth. Chu Huilan had worked part-time jobs away from home in her early years, which helped her develop good cooking skills. Although she hadn't cooked for many years and was a bit rusty, the flavor was still quite excellent. "It's too delicious." Mu Liheng gave a thumbs up and praised, "As expected of my wife. These skills are simply incredible." He was always very direct when praising people. Chu Huilan couldn't handle him praising her the most, and a faint blush appeared on her cheeks. However, because the 2 children were present, she felt a bit embarrassed. Speaking out in exasperation, "I told you to shut up and eat. Do you not understand human language?" Mu Liheng immediately and obediently shut his mouth. Seeing this situation, Mu Xiaobi and I exchanged a glance, both of our faces breaking into brilliant smiles. When parents have a good relationship, the children naturally feel happy. "Hurry up and taste what your brother made." I placed some food into my sister's bowl. Mu Xiaobi stared at the food in her bowl, a confused expression appearing on her face. "Is this lily bulb?" "Yes, this dish is called stewed pumpkin with lily bulb." As I spoke, I scooped a spoonful for myself. As the warm, soft, and smooth soup entered my mouth, I nodded with great satisfaction. It seems my culinary skills haven't deteriorated. Mu Xiaobi put it into her mouth, her eyes instantly lighting up. "Brother, this dish is really delicious." As her words fell, she ate several large spoonfuls in a row. Seeing how much she enjoyed eating it, our parents also reached out with their spoons. After eating it, both of them were also full of praise. "Mu-chen, you really have a talent for cooking. Whoever marries you in the future will be blessed." Mu Liheng picked up the wine glass, by his hand observing my expression while drinking. He was saying this to test me. Testing whether I felt it absolutely had to be Lin Wanwan. How could I not understand his intention? I responded in a half-joking tone, "Dads, you've raised me for so many years. I have to wait until you've enjoyed enough blessings before letting some other woman get me for cheap." This was my way of expressing that I would get a divorce. Mu Liheng understood my attitude, smiling even more happily, the corners of his mouth almost splitting to his ears. "Right. The son I raised with so much effort can't just be given away for cheap to someone else. You need to show me filial piety for a few more years." I smiled and nodded, not saying anything more. "Brother," Mu Xiaobei called out softly. I leaned over and asked with a smile, "What's wrong?" "It's nothing," Mu Xiaobei giggled while staring at my profile. "I just feel happy." She had also understood our conversation and was genuinely happy for me from the bottom of her heart. In many people's eyes, I wasn't good enough for the Lin family, but in the eyes of my family, I am a priceless treasure. Before my rebirth, I didn't realize this point. Fortunately, the heavens gave me a chance at rebirth. This time, I will definitely cherish my family. The whole family happily ate the reunion dinner, everyone's mood being exceptionally pleasant. Just as we were preparing to leave the table, Auntie Lin walked in with a face full of awkwardness. "Sir, madam, some guests have arrived." Chu Huilan frowned and asked, "Who is it?" Auntie Lin hesitated and stammered for a long time. "It's Mu Jianhua's family." Mu Jianhua is Mu Liheng's elder brother. Back then, the old master handed the family business to my father, so Mu Jianhua's family has always held resentment in their hearts. His wife Zheng Yin has a fierce and shrewish personality. Every time she comes, she never fails to cause frustration. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival, and they came deliberately to make things unpleasant. Chu Huilan understood this perfectly in her heart, directly speaking up to instruct, "Have the guards stop them. Don't let them in. Just say we went out to celebrate the festival." "Right, just say that." Mu Liheng didn't want to see them either. At least absolutely not today. Auntie Lin quickly nodded in agreement. "I'll go right away to tell the guards." After she left, I looked at Chu Huilan and said, "Mom, it's fine to let them come in too. We can't always let them make things unpleasant for us. I also want to make things unpleasant for them, but there's nothing I can do." Who asked me to be indeed covered in blemishes, unable to beat them at their game? Chu Huilan smiled mockingly at herself. "Mom, don't talk about yourself like that. The ones covered in blemishes are them." I let out a cold laugh. In my past life, I found out many secrets. No one in Mu Jianhua's family is clean. There are too many things on them that can't see the light of day. Therefore, I am exceptionally confident. As long as this family of 3 dares to come in, I can roast them until they flee with their tails between their legs. Chu Huilan raised her eyebrows. What do you mean by that? You'll find out when the time comes. I smiled meaningfully. Chu Huilan's eyes flickered for a moment, and she didn't continue to press further. She knew I wouldn't speak without good reason, so she also made up her mind. Not long after Auntie Lin left, she ran back again with a pale face. Sir, madam, I spoke too late. The guards didn't dare to block them, and they have forced their way in. Chu Huilan nodded very calmly. Understood. Brother, sister-in-law, where are you guys? Zheng Yin's sharp voice came from outside, sounding extremely piercing and making people feel very uncomfortable. Although we had mentally prepared ourselves, actually having to face their family still made us feel physically and mentally uncomfortable. Oh, your whole family is having a meal. Zheng Yin appeared at the entrance of the dining room. She is in her 40s this year, with a somewhat plump build. Her lipstick color was applied extremely brightly, looking quite off-putting. Not a single person in the dining room paid attention to her. Yet Zheng Yin didn't feel embarrassed in the slightest. She split her mouth into a grin and smiled. Li Heng's sister-in-law, we are family after all. Today is the Mid-Autumn Festival, yet you didn't call us over to have a reunion dinner. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? Exactly. Mu Jianhua also popped out from behind her, pointing at Mu Li Heng to reprimand him. Li Heng, aren't you breaking your brother's heart by doing this? He is a half-brother to my father. Since childhood, he was ignorant and spent his days in debauchery, which was why the old master handed the family business to my father. Every time he would use the company's crisis to mock my father, leaving him completely speechless and forced to endure his mockery. Uncle, isn't it just noon right now? We're just having a casual lunch. We originally planned to call you over this afternoon. I spoke up with a smile on my face. Yo, isn't this Mu Chen? Why are you at home? Zheng Yin looked at me and began to speak sarcastically. You just got married to Lin Wanwan, and she just had such a major car accident. Yet, instead of keeping her company in the hospital, you came home to feast. I see you smiling like this, so that passionate, tragic love of yours must be completely fake, right? She just can't stand to see things going well for me. When I got married to Lin Wanwan, the person who felt the most bitter was her. Aunt Wanwan's injuries are getting better day by day. Should I be crying if I'm not being unfilial? She was worried about my parents being anxious, so she tried everything to persuade me to come home for the festival. Otherwise, how could I bear to leave her side? I put on a face full of bashful affection. There is no need to worry about me. I am living a very happy life right now. When dealing with an extremely narrow-minded person like her, the happier I appear to be, the angrier she will feel. As expected, Zheng Yin's face turned very ugly. She let out a cold sneer. Oh, please give me a break. Who doesn't know that she doesn't like you at all? We are all family here. Who doesn't know who around here? Zheng Yin, you keep calling us family. So why are your words so full of hidden thorns? Chu Huilan stood up and walked behind me, placing both of her hands on my shoulders, while looking straight at her. You are also a woman. Could it be that you still don't understand a woman's mind? Our Mu Chen is so handsome. How can you be so sure that after getting married, she won't slowly grow to like him? Zheng Yin's face darkened instantly, leaving her with nothing to say. That's true. He was raised by you after all, so there's no reason for Lin Wanwan not to like him. The one who said these words was not the Mu Jianhua couple, but their daughter Mu Yulu. She perfectly inherited her mother's vile nature, and was even more malicious, practically having no moral bottom line whatsoever. Mu Yulu had a banana in her mouth. As she strolled casually into the dining room, her gaze scanning me flippantly. Mu Chen, my cousin, we haven't seen each other for so many days, and you've grown more handsome again. I gripped the tablecloth tightly, my eyes turning blood red with anger. I was shaking all over with rage, wishing I could sweep her right out of the house. Mu Yulu, what did you mean by your words just now? Mu Li Heng slammed his hands down and stood up, shouting at her with a face full of fury. It means exactly what it sounds like. Mu Yulu chuckled. Aunt Chu, having been through countless battles, you must know exactly what I mean. The expressions of everyone in our family completely changed. Mu Li Heng was even more furious, slamming his hand on the table in rage and reprimanding her loudly, sternly criticizing her for having no manners. Mu Yulu was startled into taking a few steps back, leaning against the wall and glaring fiercely at my father. Mu Li Heng, what do you think you're doing? Mu Jianhua couldn't bear to see his daughter suffer any grievance, so he rushed forward and shoved my father hard. Speak nicely. What are you losing your temper for? Do you think she was speaking nicely just now? Huilan is her elder, yet she actually dared to insult her. Does she even respect me? She is my daughter. Even if she said the wrong thing, it's not your place to discipline her. As soon as his voice fell, Zheng Yin grabbed a plate from the table and smashed it to pieces, picking up a shard and pointing it at my father. You dare to scold my precious daughter. Do you really think we're easy targets to bully? Just who is the easy target here? Mu Li Heng was pushed to the absolute peak of fury. He furiously grabbed a plate shard, slammed it violently onto the ground, and pointed at Zheng Yin. I've really given you guys too much face. If you have the ability, come at me. Do you really think I'm someone you can just push around? Usually when they came to the house to cause trouble, my father would lose his temper too, but it had never turned this ugly. How could my father tolerate it any longer? His fury left Mu Jianhua's family dazed, freezing on the spot for a moment, not knowing what to do. My father was proud and arrogant in his youth, and now he has developed the company exceptionally well. He is definitely not someone to be trifled with. Although Mu Jianhua's family is foolish, they know this point clearly in their hearts. Logically speaking, in this kind of stalemate, someone would have to step forward to play the peacemaker. But Chu Huilan had suffered too many grievances and wished for nothing more than to completely tear off the facade, so she wouldn't try to smooth things over at all. Mu Xiaobi and I wanted to watch the drama unfold even more. Chu Huilan spoke up with a freezing cold expression. Zheng Yin, if you guys dare to act recklessly today, I will absolutely never let you off. You also know my past methods. Her gaze was deep and freezing cold, making people feel a chill down their spine just looking at it. Zheng Yin's face was full of terror, shrinking back forcefully. Li Hing, don't be so agitated. Mu Jianhua knew it was time to back down now. You also know, your sister-in-law treasures our daughter. She was just anxious for a moment just now. It's understandable, right? Only your daughter is a treasure, while my wife is just a piece of grass. Anyone can just trample on her a few times, right? I couldn't resist bursting into laughter. Father used to be very clumsy with his words, but now his tongue is actually quite sharp. This is truly worth celebrating. A hint of a smile also appeared on Chu Huilan's face. She looked toward my father. That's about enough. Mu Liheng kept his face tense, pretending he didn't hear anything at all, and questioned Zheng Yin in a cold voice. Are you too scared to dare now? Zheng Yin shook her head repeatedly in fear. Mu Liheng let out a cold sneer. You only have this much courage. If this were your sister-in-law, I would have been carried out by now. Chu Huilan looked at him with a warning gaze. Mu Liheng shrank his neck in fear, but then immediately resumed his fierce appearance. I'm warning you guys. Stop coming to our house to cause trouble in the future. I will absolutely never tolerate it again, you. Mu Liheng pointed at Mu Yulu. Barks out sharply in anger. Come over here and apologize to your aunt. Father has a tall and sturdy build, and when he loses his temper, anyone would feel terrified looking at him. Although Mu Yulu held a grudge in her heart, she didn't dare to go head-to-head at the moment. With a face full of frustration, she walked before my mother. I'm sorry, I know I was wrong. Chu Huilan raised her eyes to look at her, a trace of mockery flashing in her eyes. I hope you are genuinely apologizing. It's absolutely genuine. Mu Yulu bent her waist, her face full of a flattering fake smile. My mind hasn't been very clear lately. Please be magnanimous and don't lower yourself to my level. If your mind isn't clear, then stay at home. Don't run around everywhere if nothing is going on. Mu Yulu glared at her viciously. Mu Xiaobi, I'm talking to Auntie, why are you interrupting? How truly impolite. She has always hated my younger sister. The two of them are close in age, and were frequently compared by others. Mu Xiaobi has been well-behaved and had good grades since childhood, while she played tricks, caused trouble, and refused to learn. So every time they were compared, she would lose. Possessing an extremely strong desire to win, she felt deeply resentful. Naturally, my sister also loathed her, so their meetings were always filled with the heavy scent of gunpowder. My dad told me to speak my mind directly, and not to bottle things up in my heart. Mu Xiaobi put down her chopsticks and wiped her mouth. Besides, with so many elders present, even if I shouldn't interrupt, it's still not your place to lecture me. Mu Yulu's face looked extremely ugly. She wanted to retort but didn't know how to speak, feeling incredibly suffocated. All right? Chu Huilan waved her hand at my sister, signaling her not to continue talking. Yulu, you usually play wildly outside and have caused quite a lot of trouble. Auntie knows all about it in her heart. It's fine for young people to love to play, but you'd better restrain yourself a bit. Otherwise, if you provoke someone you shouldn't provoke, even Auntie won't be able to help you. The amount of information in the other party's words was too large, and with Mu Yulu's IQ, it was difficult for her to fully understand. She looked toward Zheng Yin with a face full of anxiety. Zheng Yin shook her head at her with a pale face, then spoke in a hoarse voice to plead for mercy. Sister-in-law, the child is still young. Please don't lower yourself to her level. Besides, we are family. What can't a family get past? Indeed, a cold smile curled on Chu Huilan's lips. Nothing is impossible to get past for a family. I will remember these words. These words clearly carried a deeper meaning. Zheng Yin felt extremely uneasy in her heart, putting her hand behind her back to tug at her husband's pants. Mu Jianhua also realized things were not quite right. He walked over to his daughter's side, pressing her head down. You worthless thing. You have no filter on your mouth. Hurry up and apologize. Properly again. Dad. Mu Yulu still hadn't grasped the situation, shouting with a face full of rage. I already apologized just now. I told you to apologize again. Mu Yulu gritted her teeth in resentment. I'm sorry, I really know I was wrong. Sister-in-law, this child truly knows her mistake now. Just forgive her, all right? Mu Jianhua pleaded with a face full of sincerity. Brother, look at what you are doing. The child already apologized just now. It's such a trivial matter. There's no need to make it so serious. Chu Huilan spoke with a fake smile. looking a bit terrifying to others. She still wanted to act magnanimous after scaring them. Mu Jianhua felt extremely furious in his heart, but he could only force himself to endure it. This child lacks manners. How can you call it a small matter? When we get home, I will definitely discipline her well, and guarantee she will be deeply respectful to you next time. Chu Huilan smiled and nodded. It's also good to discipline her more. She was the one saying both the nice things and the harsh things. Mu Jianhua's family felt extremely suffocated. But right now, they were in a position of weakness. So no matter how angry they were, they could only force themselves to bear it. Since everything has been cleared up, Uncle, why don't you guys sit down and eat? No, it's fine. Mu Jianhua hurriedly waved his hand to refuse. It's getting late, and we should be heading back too. Didn't you guys come to have a reunion dinner? Chu Huilan deliberately asked back with a smile. She still remembered Zheng Yin's words when entering the door. And right now, she was returning it with interest. Zheng Yin's face froze instantly, tightly clutching the bag in her hand, and answered in a very stiff tone. I was just cracking a joke, that's all. We already ate before we came here. Chu Huilan nodded understandingly. So it was just a joke. Alright then, you guys be careful on your way back. She deliberately emphasized the last few words, making it sound almost like a curse. The faces of the Mu Jianhua couple looked extremely unsightly. They didn't want to stay for even a single second longer, hurriedly leaving with their daughter. After they walked out of the main gate, Chu Huilan spoke up with a cold smile. Every single one of them is cowardly to this ridiculous extent, yet they still want to ride on my head and run wild. They did run wild before though. Mu Xiaobei chimed in from the side. If it weren't for not wanting to make your dad look bad, I would have dealt with them a long time ago. My sister's undermining made my mother lose face, and she instantly blew her top. Mu Xiaobei just loved to see her lose her temper. It was purely for revenge. Revenging her coldness over all these years. Right, what your mom said is absolutely correct. If it weren't for my sake, your mom would have already taken action. Mu Liheng hurriedly smoothed his wife's ruffled feathers. Otherwise, the unlucky one in the end would definitely be him. Chu Huilan felt a lot better in her heart, letting out a cold snort as she said, if it weren't for this family, I wouldn't endure this kind of annoyance. Yes, yes, yes. Mu Liheng nodded repeatedly in agreement. Speaking of this, I'm just full of anger. What did you say before marrying me? You said you'd absolutely never let me suffer a bit of anger. You didn't make me angry yourself, but you actually let others make me angry. It's all my fault. A man's mouth is a deceiving ghost. That's indeed not wrong at all. Indeed, indeed. No matter what Chu Huilan complained about, my father just nodded repeatedly in agreement. My sister and I watched with faces full of disdain. Being afraid of one's wife to this extent is truly painful to watch. Chu Huilan felt much better after venting her anger, picking up her water cup and taking a sip of water, then announcing in a freezing cold voice, from now on I will no longer spoil them. They are pushing their luck more and more. If we continue to tolerate them, who knows how they will treat us? Then we won't spoil them anymore from now on. Mu Liheng gently patted her back. Calm down. Don't let the anger ruin your health. Chu Huilan didn't say anything more, taking a few more sips of water before leaving. Father then followed her and left as well. Only the two of us siblings were left in the dining room. I picked up some food with my chopsticks and placed it in my sister's bowl, telling her in a warm voice, you're right at the age when your body is growing, so eat more nutritious food. Brother, I'm already full. Although she said so, she still picked up her chopsticks and ate it. After eating and swallowing it down, she hesitated for a moment before speaking. Brother, why was Uncle so afraid of Mom just now? My movement of picking up food paused for a moment, and I drew my hand back, letting out a long sigh. It's better for you not to know about this. Brother, I am already an adult. Mu Xiaobi appeared a bit unhappy. Children at this age hate being treated like a child the most. I glanced at her, understanding this point, and gently placed my chopsticks on the rest. Resting my hands behind my head, I stared at the ceiling, recalling the events of my past life in my mind. Mom suffered endless hardships since she was a child. Losing her parents, she went through too many difficulties, hardships that are far beyond our imagination. But you also know she is very strong. No matter how hard it was, she carved out her own path. Do you know about the Feng Yuan group? I turned my head to look at Mu Xiaobei. Mu Xiaobi shook her head blankly. It's normal that you don't know. That group moved away over 10 years ago. Back then, Mom used to manage that group. I thought about it and continued to explain. The boss behind that group is very mysterious, and no one knows their true background. Later, when a business dispute arose, they only sought out the person in charge at that time. You can try to imagine it, to be able to take charge of everything alone there, with the backing power still unknown to anyone to this day, proves just how powerful the background is. Mom was highly regarded by the upper echelon and entrusted with heavy responsibilities. Before trouble broke out, they let her get away smoothly and helped her wipe everything clean. From this, you can see how powerful her capability is. Mu Xiaobi stared blankly, obviously shocked by these words, unable to digest it all for the time being. I actually omitted many details and spoke rather vaguely. Chu Huilan was a legendary figure in her youth. It's just that her methods were somewhat ruthless and swift. I knew I couldn't tell my sister everything. Since she insisted on knowing, I could only pick what could be said to tell her. In other words, when mom was young, she was... Mu Xiaobei couldn't think of a suitable word for a while. I looked at her and helped her finish a big boss. In short, she is definitely someone you don't want to mess with. That's why after mom lost her temper, aunt was so panicked. If mom really wanted to take action, Mu Yulu wouldn't even know how she died. Mu Xiaobei's face darkened slightly, not knowing what to say anymore. Although Zheng Yin frequently spoke ill of my mother, she never dared to mention things in this regard. She didn't dare to offend my mother, so my sister was naturally completely in the dark. I chose to tell you all this because I don't want you to hear it from others in the future. Others will inevitably add fuel to the fire, and I'm afraid it might affect your relationship with mom. You just have to firmly remember that no matter what mom went through in the past, she is not a bad person. At least to us, she absolutely isn't. The more I spoke, the more serious the expression on my face became. Before my rebirth, my sister had somehow heard some gossip from someone, came home, and had a massive fight with my mother. Her words were extremely sharp and unpleasant, frenziedly rubbing salt into my mother's wounds. Chu Huilan was unwilling to show weakness, nor did she want to dig up the past to explain, so the mother and daughter eventually fell out completely. Therefore, after coming back through rebirth, I will absolutely not let this tragedy repeat itself. Brother, I will firmly remember it. Mu Xiaobi has always listened to me very much, looking at me with a face full of obedience. I reached out and ruffled her hair. So good. Brother, do you still have to go to the hospital to take care of her? As a love brain who was beyond saving, Mu Xiaobi had tried to advise me several times to no avail, and finally chose to give up completely. But now that I gave a different answer, she suspected whether she had misheard. I know that being with her brings no happiness. I have completely thought it through. We will go get a divorce sooner or later, so don't worry about me anymore in the future. I looked at her with a face full of helplessness. Brother, is everything you said true? The young girl's eyes grew brighter and brighter, like the most dazzling stars, looking so beautiful that it made one's breath tighten. I smiled and nodded. That's truly wonderful. It's great that you've thought it through. Mu Xiaobi revealed a relaxed smile. If you still hadn't thought it through, I wouldn't have been able to resist going over to teach her a lesson. You brat, you actually really dare to say such words. I raised my hand and gave the back of her head a light smack. Mu Xiaobi rubbed the spot where she was hit, giggling twice in a silly manner. Isn't it just a joke? I tightly pursed my lips, my expression becoming very complex. What, just a joke? I knew she was absolutely being serious. Before my rebirth, there was one time I came home to grab some things, and when passing by my sister's room, I found that the door wasn't completely closed. I saw her in front of her desk, secretively writing something. Out of temporary curiosity, I directly pushed the door open and walked in. She flusteredly swept the things into her drawer, and turning her head to see it was me. A trace of panic and helplessness flashed across her face. I walked over, pulled open the drawer to take a look, and it unexpectedly turned out to be a confrontation letter. She wanted to go find Lin Wanwan to confront her face to face. Have you lost your mind? Brother, listen to my explanation. I just wanted her to stay away from you. Enough my business is none of your concern. I will tell mom about this matter, and I am confiscating this. Later on, she cried and explained a lot, which I can't quite remember clearly anymore, but it was roughly along the lines of doing it for my own good. Ever since then, we as siblings rarely contacted each other. Back then, Lin Wanwan was the most important person in my heart, and my sister's attempt to hurt her was enough to make me harbor resentment, and thus deliberately distance myself from her. Brother, why did you suddenly stop talking? Mu Xiaobi interrupted my reminiscence. Looking at my sister in front of me, I let out a bitter smile and said, You are truly too foolish. Everyone else praises me for being smart, so why are you the only one calling me foolish? Mu Xiaobi had a face full of depression. Because I see through your true nature. I stood up with a smile. All right, let's head out quickly, so Auntie can finish cleaning up earlier, and go home early to celebrate Mid-Autumn Festival. The two of us stepped out of the dining room. Seeing that our parents weren't in the living room, we didn't bother to look for them specifically. Seeing that, the sunshine outside was just right. The two of us brewed some tea and went to sit in the courtyard. I leaned comfortably against the back of the chair, squinting my eyes slightly to bask in the sun. Once you're full of food and drink, it's easy to get drowsy. Just as I was planning to take a short nap, the phone in my pants pocket started vibrating. I clicked my tongue in annoyance. Sensing that it was a call from the hospital, I didn't want to pull it out to answer at all. I turned over planning to ignore it, but the person calling was extremely persistent. If I didn't answer, they just kept calling nonstop. The vibration made me feel irritated, so I had no choice but to pull out my phone with a dark face. As expected, it was a call from Shujaki. There was no need to think to know it was on Lin Wanwan's orders. My expression was extremely gloomy, and my voice turned somewhat cold as I picked up the phone. What instructions does your boss have? President Lin wants you to return to the hospital as soon as possible. She needs someone around to take care of her. Are the hired caregivers dead? I suddenly sat up from the lounge chair, the rage on my face impossible to conceal. Put me on speakerphone right now. It's already on. This woman Lin Wanwan has really had enough. Why did she have to let Shujaki relay the message? Did she become mute after I left? Fine, Lin Wanwan. You better perk up your ears and listen carefully. I took a huge breath. Your mother hired a specialized caregiver, but that caregiver is sleeping soundly next door and doing nothing. Anyone who didn't know better would think you're keeping him as a sugar baby. You got into a car accident just to let him enjoy a life of leisure. I know, of course, I know you're fully aware. I'm not an idiot. The fury in my heart rushed straight to my head. You spend money to hire a caregiver just to let them enjoy blessings. Yet you don't give me a single dime and exploit me like a slave every day. I just want to ask you, do you even view me as a human being? You are a human, so of course I view you as one. Lin Wanwan's voice was very low, sounding as if she had just woken up. Sure enough, she let out a yawn in the very next second. I was about to explode with rage on my end, and hearing this yawn made me completely snap. Lin Wanwan, listen to me clearly. If you want me to keep serving you, it is absolutely impossible. As soon as my voice fell, I hung up the phone without the slightest hesitation. Mu Xiaobi had heard everything from the side and spoke up to question with a face full of rage. Brother, have you been the only one taking care of her all these days? Who else but me? I threw my phone onto the chair, placing my hands on my hips and saying angrily, they just don't want me to have any peace of mind. I could tolerate that too, but hiring a caregiver to sleep soundly next door, just who are they trying to disgust? Aren't they just trying to disgust you? Chu Huilan's laughing voice came from behind me. I snapped my head around to look at her, pouting my lips in grievance. The Lin family is too wicked. Every single one of them is rotten to the core. Chu Huilan smiled without saying a word, walking up to me and holding up her phone. The transfer record that just hit the account. You know what it's about, right? I stared at the amount on the phone, my eyes widening in shock. Could this be transferred by Lin Wanwan? Yes. Chu Huilan put away her phone, and at the same time withdrew her smile. Go back to the hospital right now. Mom, you sold me out for just this little bit of money. I felt like I was about to completely break down. This little bit of money, Chu Huilan let out a cold laugh. Even if I sold you out, you wouldn't be worth 30 million. Uncle Chen take him back to the hospital immediately. After saying this, Chu Huilan turned around and went back inside the house. My face was completely full of depression. Since things had come to this, no matter how much I didn't want to go back, I had to. The one who paid the money is the boss after all. Returning to the hospital ward once again, I held a grudge in my heart and started deliberately ignoring Lin Wanwan again. Lin Wanwan was also extremely annoyed in her heart. The money had already been paid, yet this was the kind of service attitude she got. The two of us fell into a Cold War state once again. It wasn't until the doctor came over, finished the checkup, and said that she would soon be able to move around freely, that I completely couldn't sit still anymore. She would recover fully sooner or later. When she could run and jump, she would definitely take fierce revenge on me. Watching the bandages on her body decrease, I was so worried that I couldn't even swallow my food, and I slept extremely fitfully. After the countless times I wanted to take advantage of her sleeping, to give her a couple of whacks with a club, Lin Wanwan finally couldn't take it anymore. Lying next to someone who always wanted to harm her, having to be on guard every single day, no one could bear it. Finally, one day, the doctor said she could start her rehabilitation. She looked at me as I sighed toward the window. As long as you help me through my rehab properly, once I am smoothly discharged from the hospital, I will absolutely never mention the past. Although she didn't spell it out directly, it was enough to make me understand her meaning. It's just that I still felt uneasy in my heart. Running over to the bedside and staring at her with glowing eyes. Are you sure you won't take revenge on me after being discharged? Lin Wanwan gritted her teeth forcefully. I'm sure the grand president of the Lin group, lying on a hospital bed and enduring being bullied, and still had to suppress her anger without letting it break out. The level of frustration can well be imagined. Whether she was actually frustrated or not, I wasn't really sure in my heart. I only knew that I was very happy right now, doing bad things without having to pay a price. This feeling was truly too wonderful. The worry in my heart vanished into thin air instantly, and my whole being became much lighter. You must feel thirsty, right? I was in a great mood, and was also willing to show a smiling face to her. I'll go pour you a glass of warm water. Lin Wanwan's eyes flickered for a moment, and she voiced her request rather gloomily. Help me add some honey to it. There is a phrase called, give them an inch and they'll take a mile. My eyelids twitched violently, and the smile on my face faded by 30%. Where am I supposed to find honey for you? There is a supermarket downstairs in the hospital. Not going, I don't want to move. My tolerance level for her was extremely low, and she realized this point once again, clicking her tongue with some displeasure. Why are you clicking your tongue? I felt even more annoyed in my heart. I am not your exclusive caregiver, let alone your private nanny. It's not like whatever you want me to do. I absolutely must go do it. She really shines bright the moment she's given some sunshine. Just drinking a cup of water, yet she still needs to add some honey. Back when you stayed up late, working overtime. How come I didn't see you taking care of your health? At that time, I was also just asking for trouble. She didn't even cherish her own body, yet I insisted on advising her with earnest words, only to be despised for poking my nose into her business and told to get as far away as possible. Lin Wanwan lowered her eyes, remaining silent without saying a word. Was she really that excessive? No wonder she started to doubt herself. Even if she had a cold personality, it didn't mean she couldn't distinguish good from bad. When facing other people's goodwill, she generally wouldn't reject it, let alone give them the cold shoulder. I saw that she kept remaining quiet, not knowing what she was thinking about either. I rolled my eyes big time, turned around to walk to the water dispenser, poured a cup of warm water, and walked back. I handed it straight to Lin Wanwan. Hold it and drink it yourself. Her left hand wasn't severely injured, and after recovering for so many days, it was almost healed. Aside from eating, which was indeed inconvenient, and required me to help feed her, small matters like drinking water and grabbing things were completely within her ability to do herself. Lin Wanwan reached out to take the water cup, raised her head slightly to take 2 small sips, and placed the water cup on the bedside table. Just now, I had casually placed my phone right there, and the screen was still on because I forgot to lock it. Lin Wanwan couldn't avoid looking at it even if she tried. On the chat interface, the 3 words "Shujiaki" at the top made her brow twitch violently. These 2 people actually dared to say they weren't close. They were completely lying through their teeth. She took 2 deep breaths, and after lying down, tried her best to ask calmly. You and Shujiaki knew each other beforehand, right? She had asked this question countless times, and I was truly sick and tired of hearing it. Why do you have to obsess over this? Is there something wrong with you? Lin Wanwan also felt like there was something wrong with herself. Seeing Shujiaki and me talking and laughing so happily made her feel extremely displeased in her heart. Even if we knew each other, so what? I really cannot understand. Putting aside whether it has anything to do with you, it doesn't have any impact on you either, right? Why do you insist on caring so much? Lin Wanwan tightly pursed her thin lips. She also wanted to know what the answer was. Seeing that she was playing mute again, I really couldn't be bothered to pay attention to her anymore. Picking up my phone to go binge shows on the sofa, only then did I realize the screen was still on. Understanding why she suddenly brought up the old matter again, I was instantly amused by the sheer anger, looking at her and questioning in a cold voice, snooping on someone else's phone privacy. I truly looked down on you. I didn't snoop. Lin Wanwan's face darkened completely. I pointed right at her nose. You actually still dare to quibble. Your screen wasn't locked and it was right next to my face. I didn't want to look at it at all, it just forced its way into my eyes. Can this really be blamed on me? Humph, making a refined excuse out of snooping on someone else's phone. This is also the first time I've ever seen such a thing. Can she take back her words about not taking revenge? This man truly needs to be taught a lesson. With a face full of displeasure, I left the ward. Lin Wanwan instantly sat up from the hospital bed, forgetting that the injuries on her body hadn't completely healed yet. The movement pulled at her wounds, making her frown in pain, and clutching her chest, she began to cough violently. Shujiaki, who was outside the door, heard the coughing, and hurriedly pushed the door open and walked in. Miss Lin, where did Muchen go? Lin Wanwan's voice was extremely cold, mister. He went. Shujiaki's face was pale, looking as if she wanted to speak but hesitated. Lin Wanwan was in an extremely terrible mood right now, looking at her with a face full of impatience. If you have something to say it quickly. Mr. saw that my complexion looked haggard, so he went to help me buy lip balm. Lin Wanwan felt like she couldn't even breathe smoothly anymore. He refused to even go downstairs to buy honey for her, yet he ran lightning fast to buy things for Shujiaki. The key point was that he went completely on his own initiative. This man truly angers people to death without remorse. Shujiaki had been by her side for many years. Even though Lin Wanwan remained calm on the surface, she knew she was extremely furious at this moment. Shujiaki wanted to slip away secretly, but who knew that just as she took a small step, Lin Wanwan looked over with an unfriendly gaze, gritting her teeth and ordering coldly, "Get in here." She absolutely had to question the situation clearly today. Otherwise, she would constantly have the illusion of being cheated on. 20 minutes later, I returned and saw a sickly-looking Shujiaki. I walked over quickly, staring at her with a face full of worry. Why does your face look so pale? Are you tired from standing, or is there somewhere you're feeling unwell? No, I just feel too hot. Shujiaki kept her head lowered deeply. How could she not feel hot? She was almost burned to death by Lin Wanwan's fury. Hot? I scratched my head in confusion. I actually feel a little cold. Are you really getting sick? Why don't you go see a doctor? Facing my earnest concern, Shujiaki felt her heart trembling with panic. She wiped the cold sweat from her forehead, her face full of strain. As she spoke in response, "Thank you for your concern, mister. I will go get checked out. President Lin needs someone by her side to take care of her, so you should head inside quickly." I stared closely at her, remaining silent for a moment. My intuition clearly told me that Shujiaki's state was very off, and the person who made her this uneasy was highly likely to be Lin Wanwan. I turned around, pushed the door open, and entered the ward. Seeing her leaning against the bedside, looking at her phone, with a faint smile still lingering on her face, I walked over and inquired probingly, "Did Shujiaki come in just now?" Lin Wanwan gave me a faint glance. "I'm busy handling work right now. Why would I call her in to disturb me?" This was a pure lie. She was a shrewd businesswoman, and lying was as common as eating to her. She had long since mastered the skill of lying without changing her expression. Therefore, I couldn't spot any flaw at all. It's just that I still felt suspicious in my heart. Staring at her for a good while, yet truly unable to see any clues. I finally opened my mouth in resentment to warn her. You better be more open and upright. Sorry, I don't understand what you mean. Lin Wanwan behaved incomparably calmly. I didn't continue to question further either. Carrying my snacks to go sit down on the sofa, I turned on a newly released power fantasy drama, half reclining on the comfortable sofa, eating snacks while binge watching the show. When it reached an exciting part, I would even let out exclamations. Lin Wanwan turned her head to glance at me. Just by looking at me like this, she could feel my current coziness. Lin Wanwan found it quite amusing. No matter what time it was, this man could always find a way to make himself happy and cheerful. To put it bluntly, he was just completely lighthearted. Coincidentally, just as she was about to retract her gaze, I suddenly turned my head and looked over. Why are you staring at me with such a disgusting smile? I questioned with a furrowed brow. How do you know I was looking at you? She was a big shot in the business world after all. Facing an embarrassing situation, her face didn't flush and her heart didn't skip a beat, behaving with complete calm and composure. I saw you looking at me with my own eyes. I turned my head to scan the surroundings, then spoke with a face full of mockery. This mural is indeed quite good looking, but I don't think it's as good looking as me. So you must have been looking at me. Humph, she mocked without being polite at all. Being overconfident is just arrogant delusion. Are you always like this at school too? I raised my eyebrows proudly. Is there a problem with that? It's fine, as long as you think there's no problem. Otherwise, I'm afraid you'll get beaten up by someone on the street. Rest assured, I haven't been beaten up by anyone to this day. That just means you have too many issues. Lin Wanwan let out a soft laugh and stopped continuing to talk. This attitude made me feel like a child, while she was a tolerant adult. Facing a child's childish remarks, she could only let it pass with a helpless smile, unwilling to argue with me any further. My good mood was ruined once again. Not wanting to give her another glance, I put down my phone and lay down with my back facing her. Is he really angry? Lin Wanwan raised an eyebrow, deciding to hold her ground. Unsure of how much time had passed, just as she was guessing whether I had fallen asleep, she heard my inner voice. I really want to hurry back to school. Facing this moody and utterly detestable woman every day is a real pain. Lin Wanwan's face instantly darkened. She heard the complaints in my inner voice every day, yet still had to pretend to be unaware, which was also very painful. At this moment, a knock on the door suddenly rang out. I immediately perked up my ears. Come in. Lin Wanwan's voice was soft and sweet, filled with a water-like tenderness. Even without looking at her face, one could tell how gentle she was. Just listening to the voice was an absolute enjoyment. The person outside the ward pushed the door open and walked in. It was that male nurse who frequently changed her medication. The nurse wasn't very old, probably a fresh university graduate. He had fair and tender skin, and his facial features were also quite good, considered a handsome guy among ordinary people. The moment he entered the door and saw Lin Wanwan, his face unconsciously flushed for an instant. Then, with his head slightly lowered, he walked to the bedside and put down the ointment. Miss Lin, apply this to the bruised areas. Applying this ointment a few times will make the bruises fade away. Okay. Lin Wanwan usually treated people coldly, and the male nurse had never seen her smile. He was very curious about how she looked when smiling, which would surely be even more charming. He bit his lip hard, mustering up the courage to look up at her face. Miss Lin, you can start your rehabilitation this afternoon. This meant that it wouldn't be long before she could move around freely. This was the best possible news. Just as the male nurse wished, a faint smile appeared on her face. How good looking she was when she smiled, how incredibly likable she was, and how easy it was for people to become infatuated with her. I knew it all too well in my heart. So when I turned my head and saw the nurse's expression, my eyes flickered slightly, and I let out a cold laugh to mock Lin Wanwan. You should hurry up and get discharged to go home. The smelly socks you've piled up for over 20 days are about to grow moldy and stink. I'm really not trying to criticize you, but you look perfectly decent. So how can you be so unhygienic? I've truly had enough of living with you. Lin Wanwan stared at me with a freezing cold gaze. Seeing that she was about to speak, I immediately cut in ahead of her and continued. What are you glaring at me for? Is what I said not the truth? Little brother here, you better remember this firmly. When looking for a partner in the future, you can't just look at appearances. Being good looking can't be eaten as food. And even if it could, it wouldn't necessarily taste good. Take my nominal wife, for example. Marrying her has made my regrets turn my intestines green. Usually unhygienic. It's one thing that her life is messy and she can't take care of herself, but she isn't faithful to relationships at all. The male nurse's eyes widened in shock. Was this gossip he could really listen to for free? Who could bear someone being unfaithful to a relationship? You could say she has money and power. So being unfaithful doesn't matter as long as she's willing to give money to spend. But what if she catches a disease outside and comes home to infect me? Would you say money is important or life is important? In my opinion, you must find someone who is wholehearted. What's all this talk about beauty? When people grow old, they all become wrinkled old women. So who can really look that much better than anyone else? As for having money or not, as long as you can live a down-to-earth life and can support a family, that's enough. The male nurse stared at me blankly, trying hard to digest this massive amount of information. Mu Chen, have you finally said enough? Lin Wanwan's voice suppressed her rage. I've said enough. I lay back down on the sofa again, letting out a hypocritical soft sigh. They all say beautiful women are deceivers, but are gorgeous women any different? You must never judge people solely by their appearance. Falling in love with her means suffering and misery. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda, and I can't just watch this young lad jump into a fiery pit. But since words have been spoken to this extent, if he still acts foolishly, there's nothing I can do. I can only say everyone has their own destiny. Lin Wanwan stared at me with bloodshot eyes, her fury having already rushed up to her throat, ready to burst forth the moment she opened her mouth. What did he mean by falling in love with her means suffering? Maybe she really did hurt me before her rebirth. But what did she do wrong after her rebirth? Lin Wanwan felt extremely innocent and felt very aggrieved in her heart. But in my eyes, whether before or after the rebirth, she was always the exact same person, always the woman I utterly detested. Therefore, a dead knot had been tied between the two of us. Her wanting to improve the marital relationship with me was basically an impossible thing. No one had ever said these things to the nurse before, not even his own parents. Even his parents had never done so. The level of shock can well be imagined. In his still naive head, he still dreamed of having a perfect woman who would pick him out from the crowd, allowing them to live happily ever after. I just wanted to shatter his illusion and make him return to reality as soon as possible. Reality doesn't have that many perfect women, and even if they exist, they won't necessarily bring happiness. This gentleman, my last name is Mo, and my given name is Chen, I replied with a faint smile. Mr. Mu, thank you for telling me all this. The male nurse had a very shy personality, and not knowing how to reply, he just smiled at me foolishly. I nodded in satisfaction. You're welcome. Go ahead and continue changing my wife's medication. Remember to keep your movements gentle, in case you hurt her and affect her ability to find another man later. That wouldn't be good. After the male nurse heard my words, his gaze cooled down instantly, and he lowered his head to look at her with an unfriendly expression. Mr. Mu, please rest assured. I am very professional. My hands will definitely be very, very gentle. Lin Wanwan's expression darkened instantly, and her whole body emitted a daunting aura, attempting to intimidate this male nurse so that he wouldn't dare to act presumptuously. Unfortunately, no man doesn't detest a toxic woman. When facing a toxic woman, no matter how mild one's temper is, it will turn fierce. Therefore, although he was quite scared at this moment, his movements while changing the dressing became much heavier. Unsure whether it was out of spite or a woman's self-esteem, Lin Wanwan stubbornly didn't make a single sound. If it weren't for seeing her brow constantly tightly furrowed, we would really have thought she didn't feel pain. It's changed. The nurse threw the used gauze into the trash can. Be careful not to get any water on the wound. Get ready for rehab this afternoon. Lin Wanwan kept a dark face and didn't make a sound. The male nurse let out a cold laugh, turned his head and strode out of the ward. Just as he walked to the door of the ward, he suddenly stopped his pace. He smiled at me and waved his hand, and I politely responded to him with a smile of gratification on my face. Just because of my brief guidance, his feelings toward Lin Wanwan turned from admiration to disgust, pulling him back from the edge of the abyss. I felt a great sense of accomplishment. The male nurse went out and closed the room door. The sound of the door closing made Lin Wanwan's tense nerves completely snap in an instant. Mu-chen, come over here right now. Her voice sounded extremely calm. Not going. Whoever goes over at a time like this is an idiot. The veins on Lin Wanwan's forehead throbbed slightly and continuously. I'm not angry with you. Come over here right away. I have something to tell you. Can't you just say it while I'm over here? It cannot be heard by others. Are there even any other people here? I seriously doubted if she had been driven stupid by anger. Even if she hadn't been driven stupid, she had lost her mind from rage. I told you to come over, so get over here right now. Lin Wanwan finally broke down completely, low growling at me through gritted teeth. I sat up from the sofa, grabbed a banana from the fruit platter, and retorted with a cold laugh. I'm just not going over, so what? You are truly amazing? Lin Wanwan stared at me fiercely. You just wait right there. My movement of peeling the banana paused violently, and I subconsciously shrank my neck. Deep down in my heart, I was still afraid of her. No one wasn't afraid of Lin Wanwan. She had been a terrifying existence since childhood. Her mind was extremely deep and unpredictable, and absolutely no one could gauge her thoughts. Her temper was also very eccentric, and anyone who provoked her met with a terrible end. After entering the business world, relying on her ultra-high business acumen, her sharp nose for investments, and her quick, fierce, and precise execution, she struck even more terror into everyone's hearts. I recalled her methods of dealing with enemies. Although I didn't want to back down easily, I still couldn't control my attitude from softening. Actually, you don't need to take it to heart. I was just playing a joke on him, that's all. You call willfully slandering me a joke? Lin Wanwan questioned expressionlessly. How did you hear slander in that? I absolutely didn't do it. Don't just wrongfully accuse me. I plan to continue playing dumb and ride it out to the end. Lin Wanwan let out a cold laugh. That nurse clearly had feelings for me, and you didn't want him to keep bothering me either. I was also helping myself solve a hassle. When I want to provoke people, I can anger them to death. But when it comes to speaking pleasant words, I'm also quite a talker. After spending so many days with me, plus being able to hear my inner voice, she could be considered to have gained a certain understanding of me. I was just an eloquent and silver-tongued guy, extremely slick with my words. Trying to get the better of my tongue was way too hard. Therefore, she gave up on communicating with me, turning her head to the side and closing her eyes. Then speaking as if passing a judgment, "You just wait and see. We can talk things over nicely." I hurriedly got up and leaned closer. "I'm just a guy with a foul mouth, which you must have deeply experienced during this period of time. How can you still take me so seriously and get angry?" Lin Wanwan looked at me with cold eyes. "Just because I have deeply experienced it, and you insult me without any politeness, I shouldn't be angry with you. What kind of bandit logic is this of yours?" Bandit logic? I blinked my eyes innocently. Do I have that? The more she looked at this innocent look of mine, the hotter the fury in her heart burned. My courage was truly big enough. Running right in front of her, I still dared to flaunt like this. Just be the bigger person and overlook my faults. Acting as if nothing ever happened, okay? My face was piled with a pleasing smile. I have already lowered my stance to this extent. If you look into it further, it wouldn't be magnanimous enough. According to Lin Wanwan's personality, plus the fact that she wanted to improve our relationship, since I had already softened up first, she indeed wouldn't look into it any deeper. But she was truly driven half mad with anger today. Her gaze suddenly grew fierce, and she raised her hand to grab my arm. "Sister Wanwan, I came to see you." Just as her hand was about to grab me, a clear voice came from the door of the ward. Lin Wanwan's brow furrowed slightly, and a trace of displeasure flashed across her face. The smile on my face, however, became even more brilliant. I turned around and plopped down on the hospital bed, looking at Joe Zemo as he walked over step by step. What a rare guest. Young Master Joe hasn't come to see Wanwan for several days. "Do you finally have time today?" My ability to annoy people was just too superb, making him breach defense with the very first sentence. Young Master Mu's sister Wanwan doesn't like that form of address. His expression became very unsightly. Furthermore, when facing other people, "You should address her more formally." "Oh, is that so?" I raised my eyebrows in mock surprise. "Thank you for the kind reminder, young Master Joe. After all, you are older than me and know much more than I do. Can someone please come and sew this man's mouth shut?" Josimo took several deep breaths before barely managing to steady his mind. "Young Master Mu just hasn't learned the rules properly. You will naturally be fine after learning more in the future." Those words are indeed correct. I raised my hand and patted Lin Wanwan's leg, then turned my head to look at her. No wonder people say my wife has good taste. You are indeed excellent enough. Although calling her wife was disgusting, these two would only feel even more disgusted upon hearing it. Look at how wonderful the expressions on their faces are. Joe Zemo naturally couldn't stand hearing it, while Lin Wanwan couldn't stand it because she knew clearly that I wasn't being sincere at all. Knowing it was fake affection, hearing it would only make her feel awkward and disgusted. "Mu-chen, can you give your mouth a rest for a moment?" Lin Wanwan gritted her teeth and questioned severely. "What's wrong? Afraid I'll make your sweetheart feel wronged? So you want to force me to shut down, right?" I hummed twice with a face full of displeasure. "No matter what, I am your nominal husband. And on our wedding night, you even..." I deliberately paused right here, leaving the sentence unfinished. But the shy expression on my face was enough to make them understand what I was trying to say. Both of their faces had a constipation-like expression. So even if you like him in your heart, you shouldn't be too cruel and heartless to me, right? Otherwise, you would be way too much. As I spoke, the rims of my eyes turned red. Just who did what to whom exactly? The two helplessly chose to remain silent. I am also a normal person, so naturally I would also find the scene awkward. Seeing that no one was paying attention to me, I clicked my tongue, feeling it was boring, stood up from the hospital bed and made a gesture. "You two please go ahead and be lovey-dovey as you please. Just act as if I don't exist." As soon as my voice fell, I stood to the side as if I were on guard duty, putting aside whether they would be lovey-dovey or not. Even if they had the mind to, being stared at by me like this, they couldn't be lovey-dovey anyway. Josimo had never encountered such a difficult person. The men who tried to approach Lin Wanwan in the past, he could easily make them retreat knowing it was difficult. He knew he had met his match this time. To defeat me, he absolutely must not be impatient. But he couldn't help the fact that I was just too good at annoying people, and knew exactly how to poke at people's sore spots. So he stared closely at me for a good while, finally unable to resist opening his mouth to say, "Young Master Mu, since you know we are mutually in love, could you please have mercy and fulfill our wish, letting you guys be together?" Josimo raised his eyebrows. "That's exactly what I mean. You shouldn't come and ask me about this." I reached out and patted the soft hospital bed. "As long as Sister Wanwan says the word, I will fulfill your wish immediately." Josimo's eyes brightened violently, and he looked at Lin Wanwan eagerly. Even though she had a cold face during this period of time, and her attitude toward me was also highly unusual, he still felt that she still loved him. How could someone love for so many years and just give it up easily just by saying so? She would definitely speak up to demand a divorce. He had absolute confidence in this. Unfortunately, this confidence was shattered in the next second. "We're perfectly fine, why bring up a divorce?" Lin Wanwan asked back with a half smile. I knew clearly that she didn't want a divorce right now, so Joe Zemo was bound to not get his wish fulfilled. Therefore, the smile on my face never stopped. Joe Zemo finally noticed this point, but before she gave a clear answer, he hadn't realized the severity of the situation. Now he realized it completely. Sister Wanwan, have you really fallen in love with him? Joe Zemo inquired with a trembling voice. No such thing. She answered exceptionally crisply and quickly. After saying this, she turned her head to the other side, not knowing whether she detested this question or was concealing the panic in her heart. Joe Zemo's tense nerves suddenly relaxed. That's good. No, what exactly do you mean by those words? What did he mean by that's good? I widened my eyes full of rage. Let me tell you clearly. Although I am a person with moral boundaries and won't deliberately destroy your relationship, I won't reject her falling in love with me either. When three people appear in a relationship, everyone just competes based on their own abilities. Who wants to compete with you based on ability? Originally, Sister Wanwan and I were childhood. Who is childhood sweethearts with you? I let out a cold laugh, interrupting his words. Joe Zemo, I can make my words sound even uglier. Do you want to listen? Carefully, Joe Zemo's face looked incredibly unsightly, and he remained silent. I suddenly changed my expression, making him completely unable to guess my thoughts. Your last name is Joe. Let me think, which big enterprise is named Joe? I tapped my chin gently with my finger, putting on a look of serious thinking. It seems there really is such a company, but I remember President Joe only has one son. So may I ask, always lofty young master, which family's young master are you exactly? His face could no longer be described as just unsightly. The fingers of both his hands couldn't stop twitching slightly, and he stared at me with an extremely freezing cold gaze. What exactly are you trying to say? You're just a student funded by the Lin family, a poor kid who came out of the remote mountains. After I finished saying these words, it felt as though I had spat out all the pent-up frustration. Joe Zemo's face turned deathly pale instantly, and both of his hands couldn't stop trembling violently. He forced himself to pull out a cold smile. You are simply talking absolute nonsense. Sister Wanwan, you must never believe him. He's just jealous of our great relationship. I spoke up to retort without any mercy. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, as long as we check the Lin family's funding bills, won't the whole truth come to light? Lin Wanwan's expression became extremely unsightly. She was an exceptionally shrewd businesswoman. How could she possibly not see his guilt? She took a deep breath and spoke coldly. Joe Zemo, tell me the truth. Is what he said true? Joe Zemo was so scared that his legs went weak, his eyes full of panic, and he didn't dare to look at her at all. It's like this, Sister Wanwan. My feelings for you are sincere. It's all him deliberately sowing discord. In his panic, he reached out to grab Lin Wanwan's hand, but was flung away by her without any mercy. Lin Wanwan's gaze carried a bone-chilling coldness. Don't touch me with your dirty hands. Get out, I don't want to see you. Seeing Lin Wanwan being so heartless, the mask of Joe Zemo's disguise shattered completely. With a distorted face, he roared out in anger. You rich people are always so high and mighty. On what grounds do I only get to fawn on you guys? Before he even had the chance to continue throwing his fit, the bodyguards outside the door rushed in and directly dragged him out of the ward by force. A dead silence was restored to the ward once again. Lin Wanwan looked as if all her strength had been drained, leaning against the hospital bed with a face full of dejection. She turned her head to look at me as I watched the drama from the side, a flash of intense regret crossing her eyes. You knew his true colors all along, didn't you? I calmly peeled a tangerine. Yeah, I saw right through him long ago. It's just that you never believed me before. Is this drama good to watch now? The rims of Lin Wanwan's eyes turned red instantly. Muchen, I'm sorry. It was my fault. Can we please not get a divorce? I will make it up to you properly. I stood up and patted the dust off my hands, took out the prepared document from my bag, and placed it gently on her hospital bed. Everything is already too late. This is the divorce agreement I've signed. From now on, our paths part ways. Take care and recover well. I'm leaving. I didn't give her another glance, turning around to leave the ward without any hesitation. Her suppressed crying came from behind me, but there was no longer any ripple in my heart. Stepping out of this depressing hospital, the sunshine outside was warm and brilliant. A familiar car was parked by the roadside. Mushaobi pushed the car door open and waved at me, brother. We're picking you up to go home. Chu Huilan and Mu Liheng sat inside the car, their faces full of loving smiles. I strode toward them with big steps, leaving behind that unbearable past. The happy life that belongs to me has just begun.